What's up, fellow Manhoa junkies? Manhoa today is back. Today we're popping the seal on an absolute banger, Mist Might Mayhem. This video is best served while you're eating, taking a dump, or pretending to work. You know the drill, let's get it. The dry earth cradled the body of an old man, his long white beard stained crimson, a silent testament to a brutal end. Blood trickled from his nose and mouth. He, a young man with dark blue hair and solemn eyes, stood with a heavy basket on his back, his gaze vacant and soulless. He looked down at his bare feet on the dusty ground, a profound emptiness echoing within him. My grandfather passed away. The memory of his grandfather, severed and bleeding on the ground, flashed through his mind, a stark, horrifying image. He was cut in half. His eyes, deep and unfeeling, reflected no sorrow, just a chilling void. I don't feel any sadness either. The charred remains of their home smoldered in the background as he stood over the body of his grandfather, a chilling self-reflection. He was the only family I had. He wondered, how terrible of a human am I? The vibrant memory surfaced. He is a boy, his face bright with joy, holding up a green herb. Grandpa, look, it's a spirit connection herb. His grandfather replied, you're back. Good work. He added, I looked in the eastern parts like you said, and that's where I found it. He presented the herbs to his grandfather, who examined them with a satisfied nod. Oh, it's pretty big too. We'll receive at least 5 nyong for this. He added, there was a fox den right next to where I found the herb. He continued, but the mother wasn't there. Only the babies. His grandfather, a kind-faced old man with a long white beard and a green robe, looked at me with a hint of concern. So, he asked, did you kill the babies? His expression softened. Hell, why would I? He explained his reasoning with a gentle frown. The mother would be sad if she came back to see that all her babies had been killed. His grandfather smiled warmly. That's right. Good job, he added, let's put this away and have dinner. He cheerfully replied. Okay, till to his grandfather's demeanor turned serious, his gaze piercing. Jiang, can you promise your grandpa something? Jiang looked up, confused. What? His grandfather's voice deepened. The true nature that you hide within yourself. The old man's words hung heavy in the air, a solemn and mysterious warning. Don't ever reveal it to anyone. Jiang, with a faint smile, replied, I'm sorry, Grandpa. A terrifying grin split his face, his eyes glowing with a malevolent red light, revealing a monstrous inner self. The scythe, a tool of both harvest and death, lay discarded on the ground, reflecting the chaotic energy. Jiang screamed, his body racked with raw emotion, clutching the scythe tightly. I don't think I can keep that promise. Overhead, the bustling Xinjiang County unfolded, a sprawling city of traditional buildings under a clear sky. The heavy wooden wheel of a prisoner's cart creaked slowly through the dusty streets, its progress marked by a rhythmic dragging sound. Behind the wooden bars of a cage, several men with rough, bearded faces and matted hair stained with blood stared out with grim expressions. The people along the bustling street observed the procession, some clicking their tongues. Tusk, 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 just look at them. One person remarked, they're all petty criminals and mountain bandits. They began to insult the prisoners as they passed. Useless bastards. TCH. A man in a blue robe, part of the jeering crowd, shouted angrily at the passing prisoners. Die, you swines. Other voices echoed, boo-o. From a window above, a man in a conical hat and a dark cloak with a neatly trimmed mustache watched the procession. He asked, who is that? Why does he get a whole carriage to himself? Another voice from inside the room replied, Where? Jiang, bloodied and disheveled, sat confined within his solitary cage, the wooden bars rattling with the cart's movement. The man in a conical hat took a sip from his teacup, his gaze still fixed on Jiang. He's young. He mused, must be about the same age as the young master. A man in a yellow robe with a round face and a small mustache stood opposite the man in a conical hat, discussing the prisoner. We shouldn't underestimate him just because he's young. The man in the conical hat replied, he's probably the worst out of all those prisoners. He added, well, I assume that's why he got a whole carriage to himself. The man in a conical hat continued, his voice casual. You're probably not really scared since you're a part of the Murim, though. A server brought drinks to the man in the yellow robe. Another man at a nearby table called out, another drink, please. She responded, okay. The man in the yellow robe ate as he spoke. But you'll be surprised if I told you how many people he killed with a scythe. He exclaimed, people call him the Scythe Killer Demon. The man in a conical hat replied, so it's just murder. The other man chuckled. Hatilda, don't be like that. The man in a yellow robe held his teacup, his expression expectant. So, what kind of request did you have this time? The man in a conical hat replied, I need to hire someone. He continued, someone young, someone no one would care about if he were to die. Our protagonist was still enjoying the violent affection of the townspeople, blood splattering across his face and hair. You deserve more than divine punishment. Someone shouted from the common folk. His bloodied face was framed by dark hair. Suddenly, the man in a conical hat looked utterly surprised. Jiang sat chained, his hands bound by a wooden stock, blood still smeared across his face and clothes. He brushed his hair aside, revealing his delicate features. The man in a yellow robe scoffed, looking at Jiang. Huh, he's pretty enough to be mistaken as a woman, killing people with such a pretty face. The man in a conical hat suddenly stood up and said, I don't have a request for you anymore. The man in the yellow robe called out, not understanding what was happening. What, you called me here? The man in a conical hat walked away, ignoring him. He descended the stairs, his form moving through the bustling street, leaving the other man behind. The man in a conical hat walked through the street, his gaze fixed on something in the distance. Found him. Jiang remained in his cage, the bars casting long shadows, his face obscured by his dark hair. A thought, sharp and decisive, echoed in the man in a conical hat's mind. He's the perfect candidate. Night descended upon the inner castle of Jingyang County, casting the magnificent golden jade hall in deep shadows under a starlit sky. Guards, clad in their white and red uniforms, patrolled the dimly lit wooden corridors of the prison, their spears glinting faintly. 2 guards stood sentinel outside Jiang's cell, their watchful presence a stark contrast to his quiet despair within. Jiang sat on the cold floor of his cell, his body bruised and bloodied, reflecting on his actions. I was too rash. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of intense hatred burning within them as he recalled the man who killed his grandfather. That bastard. A shadowy figure, the scarred man with a conical hat and a red cloak, his face twisted in a chilling grin, appeared in Jiang's memory. That's impressive, he said. I was wondering who was following us, but to think it was some kid no one knows of. Scarred man's hand, stained with blood, clenched into a fist, while Jiang lay helpless in the memory of his cage. Jiang recalled the overwhelming power of his grandfather's killer. He was a monster. He continued his internal monologue. I finally managed to find the one who killed my grandfather, he added, but he was different from the others. He defeated me before I could even do anything. His hands gripped his own throat, his face contorted in frustration and despair. Even if I were to fight him again, the result would be the same. He thought, I cannot think of a way to kill him. The scarred man growled, but to think it was some kid no one knows of. Jiang whispered martial arts. Jiang looked up, his eyes filled with a desperate question. If I learn martial arts, will I be able to defeat him? He lowered his gaze, his hope wavering, the cold reality of his situation pressing down. No, will I even get that chance? I might never get a second chance. Jiang's eyes snapped open, a sudden realization dawning as he sensed something unusual. He turned his head, inhaling deeply, his senses alert to the strange scent permeating the air. Smoke. Is there a fire? No, it's a different smell. He continued, I've smelled and eaten all kinds of herbs while living with my grandfather. This is. Jiang's mind raced, identifying the components of the scent. Lizard's tail, he thought, purple parsnip. A guard in white and red armor with a dark blue cap grimaced, clutching his stomach as the strange aroma took effect. Yug. Jiang identified the final, crucial ingredient, a subtle tremor passing through the air. Birthroot. He realized the true nature of the scent, looking up at the guards collapsing around him. Sleep aroma. Jiang fought to stay conscious, his eyelids heavy, as the heavy wooden door of his cell creaked open. Dark boots stepped silently into the prison corridor, their presence ominous amidst the swirling mist. The masked man, wearing a conical hat and a dark cloak, approached Jiang's cell, his movements swift and silent. The masked man reached out, effortlessly undoing the chains binding Jiang's feet, the metallic clinks echoing softly. Jiang looked up at the masked man, who seemed surprised to see him awake. His eyes widened in sudden alarm, a surge of adrenaline cutting through the lingering effects of the sleep aroma. Jiang lunged forward, a desperate strike aimed at the masked man, but his movements were sluggish. You're a whack, he cried out in pain as the masked man struck him, a powerful blow sending him reeling back into his cell. Puke. Jiang, battered but defiant, realized the opportunity before him. I don't know what's happening, but this is my chance, he continued. I was able to stay awake thanks to how badly the herbs were combined. He pushed himself up, his bloodied face resolute, preparing for another desperate attempt. The masked man moved with blinding speed, striking Jiang's pressure points with precise, focused blows. The masked man stood over Jiang, his voice cold and assured. I've gone for your pressure points. He stated you won't be able to move anymore. Jiang's eyes darted around, his mind reeling from the speed and precision of the attack. When did he catch up to me? He wondered, is this martial arts? The masked man continued his relentless assault, a flurry of strikes against Jiang's immobilized form. Jiang coughed, blood staining his lips, a chilling realization dawning. A martial artist. He then questioned, is it perhaps the one who killed my grandfather? He quickly dismissed the thought, remembering a crucial detail about his grandfather's killer. No, they're similar in appearance, but that bastard had a scar by his left eye. A young master, dressed in an elegant blue robe with long dark hair tied in a high ponytail, entered the prison. He addressed the masked man. Guard Cam, is it him? The masked man, Guard Cam, turned in surprise. Guard Cam, still masked, turned to the young master. "Young master, I told you to wait outside." The young master interrupted. "I've never been inside a prison before." He continued, "I've always wanted to see it at least once, but it's not interesting at all. It just smells bad." The young master, his voice imperious, issued an order. "Is it him? Prop him up so that I can see his face," he demanded, "and a chair." Guard Cam responded, "Yes, young master." Jiang lay on the ground, listening. Guard Cam roughly grabbed Jiang's hair, pulling him upright against the cell wall. The young master, a cruel smile playing on his lips, looked at Jiang. "Ha, you're right." He continued, "He looks exactly like me." Jiang's eyes widened in utter disbelief, a profound shock washing over him as he stared at the young master's face. Before Jiang, the one who called himself the young master had a face identical to his own. For someone who looks exactly like me to appear in this situation, he mused, could there be anything more fateful than this? The young master chuckled, observing Jiang's stunned reaction. "Kyukuk, seems like you're just as surprised." Jiang remained silent, his mind reeling. The young master, now seated comfortably, revealed Jiang's grim fate with a casual air. "I heard you were on death row," he added, "drawn and quartered in 2 days." Jiang could only manage a quiet affirmation. "Yes." The young master spread his hands, a theatrical gesture of mock sympathy. "Life is so unfair." He elaborated, "We were born with the same face, but I'm a young master and you a death row inmate." The young master leaned forward, his voice dropping conspiratorially, offering a lifeline. "I'll give you a very rare chance." Jiang looked up, a spark of interest in his eyes. The young master revealed the astonishing proposition. A chance to become the 3rd young master of the great Mock Sword Manor. A chance to be a stand-in for me, Mock Jiang-woon. Jiang looked up, his expression a mix of confusion and cautious hope. "A chance?" Mock Jiang-woon painted a vivid picture of luxury and freedom. "It won't be difficult. You'll be cooped up in the manor with delicious food, pretty servants, and a comfortable bed." He continued, "You'll be able to enjoy all the things you've never had the privilege of so far." Young Master Mock Jiang-woon concluded his tempting offer, promising a grand reward. "And once it's over, you'll receive plenty of money so that you can go wherever you want as a free man." Jiang remained silent, considering. Guard Cam extended his hand, offering a small red pill to Jiang. "If you want to do it, eat this." Jiang eyed the pill with suspicion. "Is it poison?" Guard Cam replied, "Did you think that we'd just trust you blindly when you're a prisoner?" Guard Cam, his expression stern, laid out the terms clearly. "If you manage to accomplish the job, I will give you the antidote." He then challenged, "So what will you do?" Jiang thought of his grandfather. He had already made his decision. "Grandpa, I've been given a second chance." He swallowed the red pill without hesitation. Young Master Mock Jiang-woon smiled. "A chance to get revenge," Jiang thought to himself. Jiang looked up and said, "Now, will you really give me that chance?" The young master, he chuckled, his smile widening with a hint of madness. "A wise choice." Mock Jiang-woon turned to Guard Cam, issuing an order. "Guard Cam, you can undo his pressure point seal and the handcuffs now." Guard Cam bowed slightly. "Yes, young master." Guard Cam moved swiftly, his hands releasing the pressure point seal on Jiang and then unlocking his wooden handcuffs. Jiang stretched his freed limbs, a weary sigh escaping his lips as he stood. "Phew," Guard Cam spoke. "I'll lead the way. Please follow us from the back, young master." Mock Jiang-woon replied, "All right." Mock Jiang-woon looked at Jiang with a sly smile. "Walk ahead of me." Guard Cam looked back and said, "We're clear." He added, "Please be careful following me." Suddenly Jiang grabbed Mock Jiang-woon's head. Without warning, he brutally twisted Mock Jiang-woon's head backward, a crazed smile spreading across his bloodied face. Guard Cam's eyes widened in utter horror, his face contorted in a silent scream of disbelief. What? Mock Jiang-woon collapsed to the ground, dying instantly. Jiang turned to Guard Cam, a sinister smile on his face, feigning surprise. "Huh," he said, "oh, oops." He then challenged, "What now, Guard Cam?" The prison corridor, now a stage for brutal ambition, fell silent around him, the prisoner, as he revealed his true intent with a blood-splattered grin. The fake's dead now. The night sky above Xinjiang County glowed ominously, casting flickering shadows as fires raged through the grand buildings. Screams of terror echoed through the chaos. "Yuaag, run, Kuaag!" A blood-soaked hand clutched a severed head, its dark hair cascading down as flames danced in the background. Jiang thought, "This is fun." Panic erupted within the burning halls as terrified people fled in disarray, their faces contorted in horror. "Yuaag!" Another voice cried, "Help!" He thought, "This is fun." Jiang, his face smeared with blood and a chilling smile, swung his scythe, a whirlwind of destruction. He thought, "I killed everyone that I thought might be related to the death of my grandfather." Bodies lay broken and bleeding across the stone floor, a gruesome tapestry of his rampage. He thought, "The emotion I very vividly felt while killing dozens of people was joy." He remembered his grandfather's words, "Don't ever reveal to anyone the true nature that you hide within yourself." He thought my true nature. He stood amidst the carnage, dropping a lifeless body as his side dripped with crimson. He wondered what kind of facial expression did I have blood stained his outstretched hand, reflecting the flickering light of the burning structures around him. He pondered while killing all these people. He continued, am I smiling? Am I smiling? He let out a soft sound, ha. A close-up revealed Jiang's blood-splattered face, twisted into a distorted, mad smile. He questioned, is this the true nature my grandfather was referring to? His grandfather's stern face faded in his mind, his words echoing, the true nature that you hide within yourself. A voice screamed, slaughtering scythed demon. Jiang wondered, is my true nature evil? He then whispered. I don't know, he thought, for now I'll just kill. But then, from behind, the scarred man delivered a powerful kick to Jiang's back. The scarred man, clad in a conical hat and a red cloak, launched a kick that sent Jiang reeling, dazed. He cried out, Kyuhyuk. Jiang lay on the ground, coughing up blood, his body racked with pain. The scarred man stood beside him, appearing surprised. He asked, oh, you're alive. The scarred man drew his sword, its blade glinting menacingly in the dim light. He remarked, that's impressive. Jiang glared. This bastard. Scarred man's eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, radiating an aura of profound danger. Jiang thought, he's dangerous. The scarred man approached and said, looks like you haven't even learned martial arts. He added, but you managed to survive my ultimate attack. Jiang was suddenly seized by the throat, lifted off his feet. He gasped. He cried out, Kyuhyuk. The scarred man held Jiang aloft, his movements impossibly swift and precise. Jiang thought, he's fast. He was standing far from me, but he closed the distance in just a second. He questioned, is he even human? The scarred man mused, interesting. He continued, I was wondering who was following us. Jiang's bloodied face showed a mix of pain and dawning realization. The scarred man continued, but to think it was some kid who's not even trained in martial arts. Jiang questioned, following. The scarred man plunged his sword into Jiang's abdomen, a brutal, decisive strike. Jiang gasped, blood trickled from Jiang's mouth as he choked, his body convulsing in agony. He coughed. The scarred man thought, a kid that can survive my ultimate attack despite not, he continued, being trained in martial arts. The scarred man raised his sword, ready for the final blow. He said, it'd be best to kill you now. Jiang was impaled again, the blade piercing deeper into his form. The scarred man coldly stated, you shouldn't have gone around killing people. You'll end up shortening your own lifespan. He advised, you should have just lived a quiet life. Jiang's eyes were filled with despair, his face a mask of utter defeat. He thought, I was defeated so easily. He lamented after finally finding the person who killed my grandfather. His eyes closed, the weight of his failure pressing down upon him. He wondered, is this how I die? The prison cell offered no comfort, only cold stone and the lingering scent of despair. Jiang reflected, I did not die. His hands were bound by heavy wooden stocks, a stark symbol of his impending doom. He mused, but I will soon be killed. He thought, if I were given another chance. His blood-stained hands, scarred from battle, clenched into fists, yearning for freedom. He resolved I would not. Jiang's hand shot out, seizing Mok Jeong-woon's head with brutal force. He thought, let go of it. Mok Jeong-woon collapsed to the ground, his body lifeless as Jiang's sinister smile widened. He challenged, what now, guard Cam? Jiang stood over the fallen body, his face a blood-splattered canvas of madness. He declared, the fake's dead now. Guard Cam lunged forward, his fist connecting with Jiang's face in a furious blow. He roared, you piece of shit. Guard Cam's face was contorted with pure rage, his eyes blazing with fury. He shouted, insane bastard. You dare kill the young master? He continued, you really want to die, huh? Jiang, wiping blood from his lips, offered a chilling smile. He questioned, it's the opposite, don't you think? He explained. A stand-in is supposed to substitute the real and risk danger. He continued, his voice dripping with sinister logic, the blood still fresh on his face. Jiang added, blind obedience in that situation is what would get me killed. Guard Cam reeled back, a flicker of shock and grudging respect in his eyes. He thought, how is he so strong? Guard Cam grabbed Jiang by the throat, his grip tight and threatening. He asked, didn't you consider the possibility that I might kill you? Jiang replied, if you were going to kill me, you would have already done it by now. He added, I assume you didn't have any attachment to the young master. Guard Cam let out a furious roar, then slammed Jiang violently to the floor. He shouted, nonsense. Jiang crashed to the ground, the impact sending ripples through the dusty floor of the prison. Guard Cam quickly drew a gleaming dagger from his belt. Guard Cam knelt over Jiang, pressing the dagger menacingly against his throat. He declared, I will kill you right now. Jiang lay still, his eyes fixed on Guard Cam, a faint smile playing on his lips. He asked, is that necessary? Guard Cam retorted, why wouldn't it be? Jiang lay defeated, his voice a weary whisper, yet laced with cunning. He stated, I took the poison you gave me. He continued, I can't live without the antidote. He concluded, that means I have no choice but to obey you. He looked up at guard Cam, his expression shifting to one of sly suggestion. Jiang asked, "Isn't this a good opportunity for you?" He then offered, "The third young master of the mock sword manor is now your loyal dog." Guard Cam stared down at Jiang, his dagger still held firm, his mind churning with the implications. He said, "So you mean to tell me I should betray the young master," he continued, "and use you as my puppet?" Jiang remained silent, his gaze unwavering, allowing his words to sink into Guard Cam's thoughts. Guard Cam looked down, contemplating. Guard Cam let out a heavy sigh, the tension in the air slowly dissipating. He then shouted and plunged the dagger down forcefully. The dagger missed Jiang. It seemed Guard Cam had been convinced by him. The night sky enveloped the mock sword manor, its grand architecture silhouetted against the pale moonlight. Guard Cam still held Jiang pinned to the ground, the silent agreement hanging between them. Jiang's eyes remained closed, a faint smile playing on his lips, hinting at the depths of his unspoken plans. Guard Cam looked down at Jiang, his voice firm and resonant in the quiet prison. He declared, "From now on." Guard Cam stood over the prone figure of Jiang, his words a decree that would alter destinies. He stated, "Your mock Jiang-woon." A chilling, subtle smile crept across Jiang's face, his eyes still closed, embracing his new identity. The twilight deepened over the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the land. Guard Cam thought, however. An aerial view showcased the sprawling mock sword manor, a fortress of power and tradition. Guard Cam, now in a green robe, stood in a lavish room. He stated, "You will not be meeting any of the people of the mock sword manor." Guard Cam stood with his back to Jiang, who reclined on the floor, listening intently. Jiang asked, "Then it's not so different from being a stand-in, is it?" Guard Cam replied, "You're in no position to be asking questions when you've chosen to be a puppet instead of a stand-in." He warned, "If you get caught, you will not receive the antidote for the poison you ingested." Mock Jiang-woon calmly responded, "Well, all right." Guard Cam turned, his gaze sharp and direct, adding a final, chilling condition. He stated, and Mock Jiang-woon tilted his head, listening. Guard Cam pointed a stern finger at Mock Jiang-woon, his voice unwavering and filled with menace. He warned, "If you disobey me," he continued, "or try anything," he concluded, "I will kill you immediately." Mock Jiang-woon met Guard Cam's gaze with a confident, almost mocking smile, accepting the terms. He replied, "All right." Guard Cam in his green robe held out a small, round neutralizer pill in his palm. He scoffed, "HMPH, creepy bastard. Here's the neutralizer." He explained, "If you don't take this every 24 hours, the poison will spread all over your body," he warned, "so keep that in mind." The sky above the manor painted itself in hues of orange and purple, signaling the dawn of a new day. Mock Jiang-woon brought the small, brown pill to his lips, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face. He thought, "I got lucky." He sat calmly in the elegant room, a new resolve settling within him despite his recent wounds. He mused, "It's already a miracle that I survived those stab wounds," he continued, "but I was also given a new life." Mock Jiang-woon gazed out the window, the fresh morning air a stark contrast to his dark thoughts of vengeance. He thought, "Perhaps this is all Grandpa's doing to stop me from dying so early." He added, "Well, I don't intend on dying until I avenge you, so don't worry, Grandpa." The scarred man, his face hidden beneath a conical hat, appeared in Jiang's mind, a target for his wrath. He thought, "Revenge." He mused, "I bet that bastard thinks I'm dead." He added, "Since the corpse of Mock Jiang-woon has probably been found by now." The grand mock sword manor stood proudly, its traditional architecture promising ancient secrets and power. He thought, martial arts. He added, "I was told this is a martial clan." He planned, "I'll pretend to be the third young master here and train in martial arts." Mock Jiang-woon looked out over the sprawling manor, his mind already formulating the intricate steps of his grand scheme. He resolved, "I will then find the bastard who killed my grandfather." The image of his grandfather's death was etched deep within Mock Jiang-woon's mind. He would forever remember that day. Jiang, now embodying Mock Jiang-woon, smiled with a chilling, determined glint in his eyes. His path set, he thought, and kill him the same way he killed my grandfather. The towering pagodas of the mock sword manor pierced the clear blue sky, casting long, sharp shadows across the pristine courtyard. Mock Jiang-woon sits alone in a quiet chamber, staring intently at the wooden table. He hums. He continues, "I miraculously managed to avoid death." He lifts a pair of chopsticks to his lips, savoring the simple meal before him. "And I did get a chance to learn martial arts." Mock Jiang-woon narrows his eyes, his gaze shifting toward the doorway where a heavy silence lingers. But he sets his bowl down, his expression hardening as he contemplates the man standing guard. "The guard that Cam left me with to keep an eye on me." He sighs, "He's bothering me." Go Chan stands stiffly near the entrance, his traditional hat casting a shadow over his brow, his hand resting firmly on the hilt of his sheathed sword. He is a man with a thick beard and a nervous, twitching gaze. Go-chan glares toward the room, his jaw tight with suppressed irritation. He mutters TCH. He shifts his weight, his boots scraping against the polished stone floor as he paces. Cam sure has gotten soft. He grumbles, what's so special about a kid that hasn't even learned martial arts yet? Go-chan recalls his conversation with guard Cam. Huh, he killed Mok Jeong-woon? He stammers. Then what about the plan? Guard Cam quickly clamps his hand over Go-chan's mouth to silence him. Quiet. You're being too loud. He whispers, it doesn't matter. Your role won't change. He commands, keep an eye on him as planned and make sure he does not leave this place. Guard Cam turns his back, his dark robes flowing as he prepares to depart. I'll come up with a different plan in the meantime, he adds, and he glances back with a sharp, predatory grin. We'll throw him out. Go-chan watches the main character walk away, then gritting his teeth, he mutters, we'll do that. He shudders and side with someone else. Go-chan asks, Cam, didn't you say that you fed him poison? Guard Cam replies, it'll be hard for him to disobey us. Guard Cam muses, the reason we chose the third young master in the first place was, he interrupts himself, his tone dropping. He's not it. Go-chan looks up, his brow furrowed in confusion as he struggles to comprehend the statement. Sorry, Guard Cam muses, he's not the kind of person to be obedient. Mok Jeong-woon stares down at his own hands, his mind racing with calculated thoughts. He was a death row inmate, and he managed to kill Mok Jeong-woon to take his place. He observes he's quick-witted for someone who was on the brink of death. He warns he's dangerous. Getting involved with him will do us no good. Go-chan bites his lip, sweat beading on his forehead as he grapples with the terrifying description of this stand-in. What's so special about this kid who hasn't learned martial arts and even consumed poison? He whispers, damn it, I can't go against his orders either. Mok Jeong-woon sits back at his table, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the wood. He stares into the distance, his eyes reflecting a deep, calculating hunger for power. Guard Cam didn't tell me why they needed a stand-in. He thinks he just put that one guard on watch and left. Mok Jeong-woon picks up his chopsticks, his movements precise and deliberate. I've been here only a short while, but I've begun to understand the atmosphere of this place. He concludes, what I felt immediately was that this place isn't so dangerous that they'd need a stand-in. He adds, actually, I'd say it's pretty safe. He pauses, his thoughts deepening as he stares at the food. That means they have some other reason for them to need a stand-in. Mok Jeong-woon gently taps his finger against the table, a faint smile touching his lips. He continues to stare at the table, his mind turning over the possibilities. Does he intend on not telling me anything even when they need a stand-in? Mok Jeong-woon snaps the chopsticks in his hand, realizing something. No, he intends on switching sides. Go-chan stands outside in the dim corridor, his posture rigid as he keeps his vigil. He looks exhausted, his eyes drooping as he struggles to remain alert while on duty. Mok Jeong-woon suddenly opens the door and steps out from the room. Go-chan jumps in surprise, his hand instinctively flying to his sword hilt. What? Do you need to go to the bathroom or something? Mok Jeong-woon replies, no, I just want some fresh air. He adds, I also have a question to ask you. Do you want to come with? Go-chan points a finger toward the room, his face twisted in a scowl. Shut up and go back inside unless you want to see blood. Mok Jeong-woon steps closer, his gaze locked onto the guard with an unsettling intensity. You said your name was Go-chan, right? He smiles. I don't think anything will happen if both of us keep it a secret. Go-chan reaches out, his hand shooting forward like a viper to grab Mok Jeong-woon by the collar. Go-chan slams Mok Jeong-woon against the wall. You seem to have forgotten your place. He growls, nothing good will come out of annoying me. He commands, so go the hell back inside. Mok Jeong-woon stares at Go-chan. He says, you're definitely weaker than Cam. Mok Jeong-woon lunges, grabbing Go-chan's shoulder with a swift movement. Go-chan could only exclaim, what? He flips Go-chan over his shoulder, the movement precisely mirroring what guard Cam had done to him, the impact echoing through the hallway as the man crashes down. Mok Jeong-woon pins Go-chan to the floor, his knee pressed firmly against the man's chest. Go-chan coughs, Kyuhyuk. He strikes Go-chan's pressure points, attempting to simulate the technique he remembered from when his own pressure points were sealed. Go-chan struggles, his limbs locking up as he finds himself unable to move a muscle. My body won't move. He cries out, see could it be? He stares in horror, his mind racing to understand the sudden paralysis. Did he seal my pressure points? Go-chan thinks, this bastard. Was he hiding the fact that he's learned martial arts? Mok Jeong-woon sees Go-chan still moving, feeling confused. You're moving. Did I do it wrong? He admits I just copied what Cam did last time, but it's actually not that easy. Go-chan stares up, his face pale and dripping with cold sweat. What the hell is he saying? He thinks, does he mean that he's copying what he only witnessed once? Go-chan is terrified out of his wits. Cam was right. He grimaces, this guy is really dangerous. Go-chan screams, have you forgotten about the poison? Go-chan writhes on the floor, his face contorted in agony as he gasps for air. You couldn't have forgotten that you'll die if you don't neutralize the poison regularly. He screams, you'll bleed from all your orifices and die a painful death. Go-chan tries to speak. You're not going to let me go despite. Mok Jeong-woon clamps his hand over Go-chan's mouth, cutting him off mid-sentence. Mok Jeong-woon lightly bites his finger. Go-chan stammers, why you bastard? What are you doing? Mok Jeong-woon replies, right, the poison. I forgot about that. Mok Jeong-woon holds his finger up and drips the blood directly into Go-chan's mouth. Go-chan's eyes bulge, his whole body convulsing as he stammers, PPP poison. He collapses, his hands clutching his throat as he wheezes in panic. I need to circulate my inner energy. I need to expel the poison by circulating my inner energy. Mok Jeong-woon calmly says, I've tried all kinds of poison ever since I was a kid while foraging for herbs with my grandfather. Mok Jeong-woon says, at one point my blood began having poisonous properties. He kicks Go-chan like a dog. Go-chan coughs, Q-huk. He licks the blood from his finger, his eyes glowing with a sinister manic light. I can tell what herbs went into something just by smelling or tasting it. He adds, most poisons won't work on me. Mok Jeong-woon stands tall, emanating a strange, terrifying, murderous aura, so I don't need the neutralizer. He smiles, his face flushed with a dark, twisted satisfaction. I said I wanted to ask you a question, right? Can you tell me about the Mok Sword Manor? Go-chan cowers on the floor, his body shaking as he looks up at the youth. Mok Jeong-woon says, by the way, I'm the only one who can neutralize the poison of my blood. He adds, I'm sure you'll be a lot of help to me. Go-chan whispers, H's. Go-chan stares into the void, his mind shattered by the revelation. A demon, meanwhile, in the Main Hall of the manor. A dim, candlelit room reveals the elderly manor master lying pale and motionless on his bed. Mok In-dan breathes shallowly, his chest rising and falling with great difficulty. Cough, cough. An old physician stands by the bedside, his face etched with deep lines of worry and helplessness. Is there really no solution? He wipes the master's brow with a cloth, his hands trembling with age and frustration. I've recalled all of my knowledge and experience and used all kinds of herbs, but I haven't even been able to find out the cause of his illness. He sighs, Manor Master. The physician looks away, his profile showing his defeat. You should have chosen a successor beforehand. He groans, the 4 sons of the Mok Sword Manor. The Manor Master did not name his successor before falling ill. Thanks to that, the Mok Sword Manor's state is what you'd call the silence before the storm. If the Manor Master dies, the brothers will spill blood trying to obtain that position. He thinks the first wife is especially loving of the first son. Who knows what she'll do to secure that position for him? Lady Seok enters the room, her elaborate hair ornaments catching the flickering candlelight. How's the Manor Master? The physician bows his head, his voice barely a whisper. My lady, I asked how he is. Lady Seok presses him. Lady Seok's eyes are cold and calculating as she surveys the room. The physician replies, I apologize, my knowledge is lacking. I cannot figure out a treatment for him. I can only call it very strange. Lady Seok remarks, tilde as I expected. She turns her gaze toward the physician, her fan pointed sharply in his direction. Everyone calls it a mystery illness that they cannot explain. I guess there is no option other than shamanistic arts. She demands, my lady. The physician looks up, his face flushed with indignation. Shamanism is nothing more than a false belief. How could you resort to such a... Lady Seok stares him down, her eyes narrowing as she asks, then should I just do nothing until my husband dies? The physician stammers in reply, that's not. She turns her back on the physician, her tone icy and final. She commands, I don't want to hear it any longer. I've already called in a shaman who deals with such unidentified illnesses, so you are excused. Lady Seok commands, we will have the shaman deal with the Manor Master's illness, so don't let anyone into the Main Hall. Her eyes pierce through the darkness, cold and unwavering, not even a single soul. Go-chan coughs, his hand covering his mouth as he tries to regain his composure. That is the current situation of the Mok Sword Manor. Mok Jeong-woon ponders the information, his chin resting on his hand. I see. He stands up, his gaze fixed on the door with a newfound sense of purpose. Mok Jeong-woon asks, all right, then shall we get out of here? Go-chan asks, to where? Mok Jeong-woon replies, where do you think? Mok Jeong-woon looks out the window, his silhouette framed by the fading evening light. He turns back, his eyes burning with a dark, ambitious fire as he prepares to act. I'm going to go see the Manor Master. The grand architecture of the Mok Sword Manor stretches under a clear sky, its tiled roofs gleaming in the sunlight as 2 figures stand on the steps. Mok Jeong-woon ponders, so what you're saying? Go-chan trails behind, his face betraying his growing anxiety. Mok Jeong-woon continues, The real Mok Jeong-woon and guard Cam intended to use me as a decoy, forcing the firstborn Mok Yong-ho into action so they would destroy each other. Go-chan stammers. Why yes, Mok Jeong-woon holds up a sketch revealing a portrait of Mok Yong-ho. He remarks this is the best plan they could devise. The sketch provides a detailed profile of the man, noting the birthmark on his left cheek, thin mustache, and top knot. The narration reads, firstborn Mok Yong-ho, 20 years old, has a birthmark on his left cheek. A heavy drinker and womanizer who visits the tavern at least every other day. He is the least capable of the 4 siblings, as well as greedy and cruel. Another portrait reveals Mok Yoon-pyong, a man with long, flowing hair and sharp, intelligent eyes, his expression calm and calculating. The narration continues, second son Mok Yoon-pyong, 18 years old. He resembles his mother and possesses sharp eyes. Clever and cunning, no one knows what lengths he might go to in order to become the head of the family. Mok Jeong-woon has seen through the entire scheme. He explains, by bringing these two to one place and placing a decoy, me. There they intended to provoke Mok Yoon-pyong into killing the decoy. He adds, and once he becomes careless after killing the fake, the firstborn will backstab him, and they will end up killing each other. A floating text box declares, a victory without a fight. This way, regardless of who survives, both brothers will have attempted to kill one another and will be disqualified from the succession. Then, the real Mok Jeong-woon can appear, perfectly unscathed, and easily seize the upper hand. He used his head, but a variable appeared after I killed the real Mok Jeong-woon. The real Mok Jeong-woon was actually quite clever. It is just unfortunate he ran into our protagonist. Go-chan follows Mok Jeong-woon up the grand steps of the manor, a sense of urgency in their movements. Go-chan asks, "But young master, why are you trying to go to the manor master?" Mok Jeong-woon replies, "From what I heard, the life and death of the manor master is related to my life." He adds, "That's why I'm trying to visit." Go-chan looks back at Mok Jeong-woon, his expression worried as he gestures frantically. Go-chan asks, "But if guard Cam finds out that you're moving?" Mok Jeong-woon grins, his eyes glinting with danger. He says, "You'll keep this a secret from him, won't you?" "Thank you, guard Go-chan." Go-chan curses internally. Damn it. Lady Seok, adorned in elaborate hair ornaments and a vibrant robe, stands confidently before the manor's entrance. She watches a lone figure, a shaman, approach the grand entrance of the manor, the vast courtyard stretching out before them. Shaman Mayo Shin, an old man with a long white beard and a tall black hat adorned with a gold emblem, leans on a gnarled staff. He wears a yellow robe over red and blue garments with a yin-yang symbol on his chest. He asks, "So, can I see the manor master now?" Lady Seok gazes at the shaman, her fan held delicately in her hand. As she considers his request, she says, "I've heard that Shaman Mayo is miraculous, so I will trust you once." Shaman Mayo Shin bows slightly, his voice calm and measured. He says, "Thank you. The longer the mysterious illness lasts, the more his state will weaken." He continues then, "Please ask everyone within 30 paces of the Marin building to leave. Otherwise, it'll be bad luck." Lady Seok replies, "I have already taken those steps. Other than the guard who protects the entrance, they will all have left." Shaman Mayo Shin looks down, his brow furrowed with a hint of concern as he addresses Lady Seok. He says, "You also need to take your leave, madam." Lady Seok turns her head, a subtle smile playing on her lips as she meets the shaman's gaze. She asks, "You haven't forgotten what I've asked, right?" He replies, "Fufu, of course." This cunning woman never intended to save the manor master at all. Floating text declares, "The manor master's seal and secret manual." She looks at Shaman Mayo Shin, her voice steady as she reiterates their agreement. She says, "If you find those, I will give you Ba Tram silver coins immediately." He replies, "Thank you." Lady Seok addresses the departing servants and guards, her command echoing through the courtyard. She says, "All of you leave until I say otherwise." The servants reply, "Yes, ma'am." Who? I never wanted to believe in something as unsettling as shamanism, she thinks to herself. Suddenly, she catches sight of a figure training in the distance within the manor grounds. Lady Seok's eyes narrow with an intense, almost furious glare. She shouts, "Mok Yu-chun." Mok Yu-chun, a young man with a muscular physique, dark hair tied back with a white ribbon and a determined expression, practices his martial arts. He is the 4th son. Lady Seok curses under her breath, the child of that lowly geisha. Lady Seok turns away, her face contorted in a sneer of disgust and unforgiveness. She thinks, even if I can understand fooling around with a geisha, giving the manor master position to that lowly blood is something I can't forgive. Mok Jeong-woon and Go-chan appear in the distance, unnoticed by Lady Seok and her attendant as they walk away. Mok Jeong-woon looks toward the training grounds, his attention drawn by the activity. He says, "Someone's here." Go-chan points toward the training figure, recognizing him with a slight nod. He says, "That's the 4th son." He continues, "He seems to be training in martial arts." Mok Jeong-woon replies, "Ah, so that's Mok Yuchun." Mok Yuchun continues his training, completely unaware that he is being watched. Mok Jeong-woon thinks Mok Yuchun. He is the one with outstanding martial prowess who works tirelessly and shares the Manor Master's character, which is why he receives the most favor. Mok Jeong-woon observes Mok Yuchun's training, his brow furrowed in thought. He asks, "HM, but is that the method to learn martial arts?" Go Chan replies, "He is using horse steps to improve his lower body strength, since all martial arts can be said to come from one's lower body." Mok Jeong-woon nods slowly, absorbing the information. He says, "I see." He then adds, "Guard Go Chan." Mok Jeong-woon turns to Go Chan, his question imbued with a chilling intensity that startles the guard. He asks, "If I learn martial arts, can I kill Guard Cam?" Go Chan reacts with a gasp. Mok Jeong-woon stares intently at Go Chan, his expression unyielding. He asks, "Did you not hear me? I asked whether I could kill Guard Cam if I learned martial arts." Go Chan remains silent. Go Chan looks down, his mind racing with a mix of fear and realization. He thinks, all of a sudden did this bastard figure out that we were going to abandon him? I knew he was clever, but this bastard exceeds that. But Mok Jeong-woon listens patiently as Go Chan explains the fundamentals of martial arts. Go Chan says, "Young master, the basics of martial arts can be considered internal training." Mok Jeong-woon asks, "Internal training?" Go Chan continues his explanation. "Yes, internal training is essentially breathing. In other words, using Tugu Naksin to purify nature's energy and gather inner Kai. Once you accumulate inner Kai, you become stronger." Go Chan gestures with an open palm, emphasizing the difficulty of cultivating inner Kai. He explains, however, inner Kai is not something you can gather in one day. Even if you learn martial arts, it'll be difficult to beat a first-class martial artist like Guard Cam at the moment, since he has 30 more years of inner Kai than you. Of course, his technique is excellent too. Mok Jeong-woon listens, his gaze fixed on the distance as Go Chan concludes his explanation. Go Chan says, "So it'll be difficult to do in a short period of time." Mok Jeong-woon replies, "Yes." Go Chan smirks, a cruel glint in his eyes as he picks his nose, enjoying Mok Jeong-woon's apparent predicament. He says, "No." He continues, "You probably won't be able to do it in your entire life." Go Chan's thoughts are revealed in a narration box detailing the harsh realities of martial arts cultivation. He thinks there's a period of time to do internal training. You need to begin at Namsao years old to train your inner Kai, and if you don't, impure energy will stack. So no matter what you do to gather inner Kai. Mok Jeong-woon stands silently, his back to Go Chan, as the crushing truth of his limitations settles around him. Go Chan thinks, "Which means that you will never be able to gather inner Kai." Go Chan grins smugly, his words dripping with condescension. "Got it, try your best." He thinks to himself with a smirk, "Even if you do, you'll just be a frog in a well." Mok Jeong-woon turns sharply, his face inches from Go Chan's. Go Chan gasps. Mok Jeong-woon presses a finger against Go Chan's eye, his voice soft yet menacing. "Your eyes look so greedy. It makes me want to poke them out." He adds, "Guard Go Chan." Mok Jeong-woon extends his hand, a chilling smile on his lips as he offers Go Chan a choice. He says, "Become my person." Go Chan stands stiffly beside Mok Jeong-woon. Faced with such terrifying madness, he has no choice but to obey. "Yes." Go Chan covers his eyes, his expression one of despair as Mok Jeong-woon ponders. "So is killing Guard Cam impossible? He doesn't trust me, so it will be difficult to bring him to my side." Go Chan nervously gestures, urging Mok Jeong-woon to leave the area quickly. Anyway, it would be best to leave quickly. Mok Jeong-woon asks why. Go Chan leans in conspiratorially, his hand cupped to his mouth as he whispers to Mok Jeong-woon. He explains the youngest master really dislikes the real young master. Mok Jeong-woon asks, "Did something happen?" Go Chan covers his mouth and whispers, 2 years ago, the real young master called the youngest son's mother a vulgar bitch. He adds, back then he was beaten to a pulp. Mok Jeong-woon bursts into laughter. He laughs heartily, finding amusement in the past humiliation of the real Mok Jeong-woon. "Ha ha ha ha, the youngest is quite good-natured." He continues, "He still kept him and all 4 of his limbs intact, didn't he?" Mok Yuchun continues his intense training, sweat dripping from his body as he focuses on his forms. Go Chan urges, "Anyway, let's leave quickly." He adds, "We might really get in trouble." Mok Jeong-woon replies, "Yes, yes." The grand Main Hall of the manor stands silhouetted against a vibrant twilight sky, while inside the corridor stretches into a dim, ominous expanse. Red threads crisscross the dimly lit room, stretching taut from a central weighted disc, creating an unsettling web. Mok In-dan, the manor master, lies pale and still on his bed, his body covered in strange purple veins, while Shaman Mayo Shin kneels beside him, surrounded by the intricate web of red threads. Mok Dan's chest heaves with effort, his body marked by an eerie purple discoloration. Shaman Mayo Shin observes, Shaman Mayo Shin bows his head, his expression grim as he assesses the situation. He thinks, I thought these were signs of addiction, but there is an undeniable murderous energy here, Sat Kai, that would have consumed a normal person already. To endure this, he truly is a martial artist. Shaman Mayo Shin sits beside Mok Dan's bed, a red box open before him as he contemplates the grave situation. He thinks, but it's been too long, the possibility of surviving is around Nam Muay %. Looking at the tools clearly meant for exorcism, a sense of detachment fills his thoughts. He thinks, well, I just need to do what I was commissioned to do, so I don't care whether he lives or dies. Shaman Mayo Shin dips his brush into a pool of blood, preparing to begin the ritual. He kneels, meticulously drawing a talisman with blood. As he draws, he mutters Indra's scepter, homage to the 8 heavenly kings. Imitate evil ghosts, aspirations towards the Buddha. Do not inhale on non-auspicious days. The attire of all ghosts. I vow to teach them the Dharma and help them escape from suffering. Having finished the talisman, he immediately launches it while continuing to chant his incantations. The yellow talisman glows with an eerie purple light as it flies and sticks to Mok Dan's chest, causing his body to convulse. Bright golden energy erupts from Mok Dan's chest. Shaman Mayo Shin clasps his hands, golden light radiating from his palms as he focuses his energy. He continues to chant illness of the mind, powerful great general who protects the Dharma, the awe-inspiring manifestation of the transformed golden body. Shaman Mayo Shin presses his hands down, a surge of purple energy overwhelming Mok Dan, who lets out a pained cry. The gold and pure body of Buddha Vajrapani, protector of the Dharma water crystal, copper and iron shackles. His chains, 4 water demon kings under the mouth, various high gods, heavenly court Buddha's teachings in an iron fortress. Mok Dan's body reacts and he cries out, ugh. The shaman thinks, damn it, his murderous energy is too strong. Shaman Mayo Shin clasps his hands, a powerful purple aura radiating from him, pushing back the encroaching darkness. Enlightenment. Buddha has appeared, the protection of the Dharma, a true Buddhist ceremony. Mok Dan screams in agonizing pain, his eyes glowing red as his body convulses under the shaman's assault. Kayak, the swiftness of the Dharmapalas. Shaman Mayo Shin looks up sharply. His ritual has been interrupted by an unexpected presence. Someone has opened the door and entered. Did someone come in? Is it the madam? He then mutters, and no, if we are bothered in the middle of this. Shaman Mayo Shin is thrown backward by an unseen force, his ritual items scattering around him as purple energy surges through the room. He cries, Kiok. He stumbles, bracing himself against the sudden impact, his face contorted in surprise. He exclaims, Kyuk. Mok Jeong-woon and Go Chan stand in the doorway, observing the chaotic scene within the Marin Hall. Mok Jeong-woon exclaims, Hyok. Go Chan cries, H-huh, what is all this? Go Chan points a trembling finger at the shaman, his voice filled with confusion. Go Chan asks, Manor Master. Shaman Mayo Shin asks, W who? Mok Jeong-woon asks, that's the Manor Master. Mok Jeong-woon steps forward, his hands clasped in a traditional greeting, a sinister smile playing on his lips. He says hello. Shaman Mayo Shin and Go Chan stare in disbelief as Mok Jeong-woon calmly kneels beside the ailing Mok Dan, who groans weakly. Mok Jeong-woon continues, Father. Mok Jeong-woon kneels beside the Manor Master's bed, his hands clasped in a respectful gesture, a chilling smile on his face as he delivers his formal greeting. He says, I give you my greetings. Grand Mok Sword Manor stands majestic against a vibrant twilight sky, but within its walls a furious shout echoes through the silent air. Get out of here. The guard bellows. He adds, it doesn't matter if you're his son or whatever. Get out of here immediately. He continues, have you not been informed of what Lady Siok said? Inside the dimly lit room, Mok Jeong-woon observes the chaotic scene while Go Chan confronts Shaman Mayo Shin. Go Chan asks, who are you to kick us out? Mok Jeong-woon muses. Mok Dan lets out a pained sound, Kua. Shaman Mayo Shin, an old man with a long white beard and a tall black hat adorned with gold markings, lets out a frantic cry. All our efforts to control this mysterious illness have been reversed because of the murderous energy. He adds, the murderous energy will only worsen his condition. Go Chan looks on, confused, and asks, murderous energy? Are you an alchemist? Shaman Mayo Shin continues to scream, get out of here. Shaman Mayo Shin trembles as he desperately pleads for them to leave. He shouts, please get out of here. He adds, if things go wrong. He swallows hard, suddenly clamping his mouth shut, unable to utter another word. Mok Jeong-woon continues to observe the situation, his mind working to piece together the unfolding events. Mok Jeong-woon leans closer to the convulsing Manor Master, his gaze fixed intently on the eerie purple veins pulsing beneath the skin. Mockin' Dan writhes violently, surrounded by crimson threads as dark, malevolent energy pulses around his body. Go Chan stares in horror. Shaman Mayo Shin struggles to regain his footing, his eyes wide with alarm at the escalating power. A floating text box appears and he thinks the mysterious illness. He adds, "It has taken over the Manor Master." Shaman Mayo Shin frantically turns to Mok Jeong-woon and Go Chan, his voice strained with urgency. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "Why you two help me? Hold him down so that he doesn't break the strings." Go Chan asks, hold him down." Mockin' Dan thrashes with renewed ferocity, his eyes glowing menacingly as the red threads strain against his immense power. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "Hurry!" Mok Jeong-woon, Go Chan, and Shaman Mayo Shin desperately cling to Mockin' Dan, attempting to restrain his violent convulsions. Shaman Mayo Shin declares, "This charm shall overpower the evil spirit within, cure the sickness, and swallow all evil." As the talisman is pressed to his forehead, Mockin' Dan lets out a guttural scream of pure agony. The golden talisman vibrates intensely on his chest as dark energy bursts forth around him. He screams, "Kua-a-ag." Go Chan cries out in pain as Mockin' Dan's right hand clamps down on his own, causing him to recoil in shock. He gasps. Mockin' Dan snaps Go Chan's arm with a single brutal motion. Go Chan is completely overwhelmed. Go Chan can only scream in agony. Kua-a-ag. All three figures strain against Mockin' Dan's monstrous strength, the red threads glowing with intense pressure. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "He's even stronger now." He warns Go Chan and Mok Jeong-woon of the impending danger, his voice filled with urgency. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "Hold on." He adds, "You'll be in danger too if the evil spirit moves on to you." Go Chan asks, I'll get the mystery illness too?" He then cries out, "Why would you tell me that now? Aog." Go Chan screams as the dark energy visibly courses through his arm, his body convulsing from the sudden invasion. He screams, "Ua-ag." He shouts, "It's coming." Mok Jeong-woon's hand moves decisively to the hilt of his sword, his expression calm amidst the escalating chaos. He prepares to strike. Mok Jeong-woon's blade slices through the air with chilling precision, severing Mockin' Dan's hand in a spray of blood as dark energy continues to surge. Go Chan watches in horror. Go Chan and Shaman Mayo Shin stare in utter disbelief, their faces pale with shock at the sudden brutal act. Mok Jeong-woon's eyes remain calm, splatters of blood adorning his cheek. Mok Jeong-woon stands calmly, his sword still drawn and dripping with blood. Shaman Mayo Shin asks, "What have you just done?" Mockin' Dan lets out a weak, pained groan, gleek. Mok Jeong-woon smiles, a chilling, unsettling grin spreading across his blood-stained face as he raises his sword again. Go Chan shouts, Are you going to do it again?" He screams, "No." Mok Jeong-woon's blade descends once more, swift and decisive, severing the remainder of Mockin' Dan's arm. Go Chan shouts, "Stop." Go Chan stares in horrified silence, his mind reeling from the shocking display of violence. He thinks, this crazy bastard. He just cut off the Manor Master's arm. The severed arm of Mockin' Dan lies on the tiled floor, twitching with residual dark energy and surrounded by pools of black blood. Shaman Mayo Shin places a glowing talisman onto the detached limb, quickly sealing the malevolent energy within. Go Chan attempts to stem the flow of blood from Mockin' Dan's wound, while Shaman Mayo Shin kneels beside the severed arm. He thinks to himself, what a mess. I've failed in my duty and the Manor Master has lost his arm. He thinks, filled with fear, I need to get out of here before I'm blamed for this. Shaman Mayo Shin begins to subtly move away. He thinks, I'll just do the bare minimum and then leave. But a glint of steel flashes before his eyes, causing him to freeze in his tracks. Mok Jeong-woon holds his sword steadily at Shaman Mayo Shin's throat, his gaze unwavering. Shaman Mayo Shin asks, what is the meaning of this? Go Chan asks, why, young master? Mok Jeong-woon raises a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. Mok Jeong-woon questions the shaman about the Manor Master's condition, his voice calm yet probing. Mok Jeong-woon asks, is this the reason the Manor Master wasn't in good condition? Shaman Mayo Shin replies, see, can't you tell? This was what was taking over his body. He adds, plus it's not over yet. He might end up dying. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts in frustration, his patience wearing thin under the pressure of Mok Jeong-woon's scrutiny. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, there is no time for this. He asks, or do you also want the Manor Master dead? Shaman Mayo Shin's eyes widen in a sudden, chilling realization as Mok Jeong-woon's words sink in. He asks. Also, he realizes he has been caught and thinks, shit. Mok Jeong-woon stands impassively, his sword still poised, as he calmly poses a dangerous question to the shaman. He asks who wanted the Manor Master to die. Mok Jeong-woon's sword presses closer to Shaman Mayo Shin's throat, demanding an answer. Mok Jeong-woon asks, was it the person who hired you? Shaman Mayo Shin stammers, there's a misunderstanding. Mok Jong-woon tightens his grip on the sword, the blade glinting ominously at the shaman's neck. He says, "Oh, my blade is even closer to your throat now." He adds, "I think honesty is the only option you have if you want to live." Shaman Mayo Shin's eyes dart nervously, finally breaking under the silent threat of the blade. He reveals the First Lady. He adds, "The First Lady said that it's not necessary to spare the life of the Manor Master." Shaman Mayo Shin continues to confess Lady Seok's true intentions, revealing the sinister plot. He explains, "She told me to locate the secret manual and the Manor Master's seal using the evil spirit." Mok Jeong-woon asks the secret manual. He asks again the Manor Master's seal. Go Chan's eyes widen in horror, cold sweat beading on his brow as the full scope of the conspiracy dawns on him. He thinks, shit, she's actually done it. He adds, the first son would have succeeded the Manor Master if we hadn't come here. Go Chan urgently pleads with Mok Jeong-woon, his voice filled with desperation to save the Manor Master. Go Chan shouts, "Young Master, we must save the Manor Master." Go Chan's thoughts race, driven by the grim consequences if Lady Seok's plans succeed. He thinks, I need to prevent the first son from becoming the Manor Master. He adds, otherwise the First Lady will try to have you killed. Mok Jeong-woon nods subtly, acknowledging the validity of Go Chan's warning. He says, makes sense. I've interrupted her plans. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "Why, young master? I can save the Manor Master." He adds, "I'll do it no matter what." So Mok Jeong-woon cuts off the shaman's desperate plea with a chillingly calm command, his eyes holding a dangerous glint. Mok Jeong-woon says, "No, do it." Shaman Mayo Shin asks, "Sorry." Mok Jeong-woon reiterates his command, his sinister smile unwavering as he points his sword directly at the shaman. He commands, "Find the location of the secret manual and the seal." He adds, "Do it." Go Chan and Shaman Mayo Shin stare at Mok Jeong-woon, their faces a mixture of terror and utter bewilderment at his ruthless directive. Shaman Mayo Shin hesitates, clearly terrified of the consequences, while Mok Jeong-woon's gaze remains fixed on him. Shaman Mayo Shin says, "If we try to do anything one more time, the Manor Master will be in serious danger." Mok Jeong-woon commands, "Hurry." Go Chan thinks, he's out of his mind. What is he planning? Shaman Mayo Shin, having no other choice, agrees, all right. The ornate ceiling of the Marin Hall stretches above, its intricate patterns illuminated by hanging lanterns, casting a soft glow over the tense chamber. Shaman Mayo Shin prepares a new ritual, surrounded by his tools, while Mok Jeong-woon monitors him closely. Go Chan stands guard beside the ailing Mok and Dan. Mok Jeong-woon holds up a small wooden doll wrapped in red threads, his gaze questioning. He asks, "What's that?" Shaman Mayo Shin explains the purpose of the wooden doll, gesturing towards the Manor Master. He explains, a vessel. If the Manor Master gets into contact with the evil spirit once again, he may actually die. He adds, so we will link this to the Manor Master and trick the evil spirit into thinking this is the Manor Master. Mok Jeong-woon muses. Shaman Mayo Shin begins the intricate ritual, his hands moving deftly as he binds the wooden doll with crimson threads, dark energy swirling around it. He says then, "I'll begin," and starts to chant. Great calamitic changes of the earth and heaven. Dark, ethereal energy radiates from the ritual, coalescing into swirling patterns as the incantations take effect. Let the spirit move on. Thus come one samadhi of one seal and 6 concentrations. The 5 wisdoms are the refuge that gods and demons alike cannot harm. The wooden doll is seized by a grotesque, monstrous entity from the Manor Master's hand, its form writhing with dark energy as the red threads hold it captive. Let the effects of this ritual be manifested in haste. Mok and Dan screams in agonizing pain, his eyes glowing with an eerie blue light as the ritual intensifies its hold on the evil spirit within him. He cries, "Kyuhyuak." Go Chan and Mok Jeong-woon stare at the scene, both taken by surprise. Shaman Mayo Shin strains against the immense power, his body trembling as he struggles to control the monstrous entity. 5 wisdoms are the refuge that gods and demons alike cannot harm. Let the effects of this ritual be manifested in haste. He cries out, "KH." Shaman Mayo Shin's brow furrows with intense concentration. He thinks the murderous energy is too strong. He adds, "If I force anything any further, the evil spirit will be freed." Shaman Mayo Shin glances at Mok Jeong-woon, a flicker of desperation in his eyes as he ponders his next move. He thinks, but there's no way he would listen to me. He wonders, what should I do? Shaman Mayo Shin's eyes suddenly light up with a new idea, a spark of cunning igniting in his gaze. "Ah." Shaman Mayo Shin addresses Mok Jeong-woon, attempting to subtly drive Go Chan out of the room. Shaman Mayo Shin says, "Young master, I will now restrict the evil spirit." He asks, but is it okay for him to be here, referring to Go Chan. Go Chan waits for no further invitation and sneaks out. He is a true coward. Go Chan thinks, I guess it would be strange for me to listen in. He says, "I'll excuse myself for a bit." Shaman Mayo Shin continues the ritual. He says, "Then I'll begin." Shaman Mayo Shin channels his energy, performing the ritual with renewed focus as powerful incantations fill the air. Great calamitic changes of the earth and heaven. Let the spirit move on, thus come one samadhi of one seal and 6 concentrations. The 5 wisdoms are the refuge that gods and demons alike cannot harm. Let the effects of this ritual be manifested in haste. Mok Indan screams, his eyes glowing intensely as the evil spirit within him responds to the shaman's powerful invocation. Mok Indan asks Who calls upon me. Shaman Mayo Shin completes the ritual, the transformed doll glowing with dark energy, and immediately presses the entity for information. Shaman Mayo Shin declares it's done. He commands, "Let the effects of this ritual be manifested in haste. Heed my questions." The evil spirit asks, "What question do you mean?" Shaman Mayo Shin presses the evil spirit further, demanding it reveal the hidden locations as Mok Indan screams in torment. Shaman Mayo Shin commands, "Let the effects of this ritual be manifested in haste. Tell me where the Manor Master's secret manual and seal are." Mok Indan screams, "QE. Ugh, the medicinal hole underground." The evil spirit replies. Mok Indan, still screaming in agony, reveals more as the spirit speaks through him past the front stone door. Past the front stone door in an underground chamber under the medicinal hall, they both contemplate. The wooden doll, now a grotesque entity, violently bursts free from its bindings, the red threads snapping under the surge of dark energy. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts a desperate warning to Mok Jeong-woon, urging him to sever the connection. Shaman Mayo Shin shouts, "Young master, you must cut the string." Mok Jeong-woon asks, "The string?" A monstrous, shadowy hand emerges from the ritual doll, reaching menacingly towards Mok Indan's prone form. Shaman Mayo Shin warns, the evil spirit is trying to take over the Manor Master's body. He shouts, "Hurry." Mok Jeong-woon swiftly slashes his sword, a radiant blue energy emanating from the blade as he attempts to sever the encroaching shadowy tendrils. Mok Jeong-woon recoils in surprise as numerous ghostly, skeletal hands burst from the floor, reaching out to grasp him. His face is filled with shock as he looks toward Shaman Mayo Shin. Mok Jeong-woon finds himself surrounded by the spectral, grasping hands, and very quickly, his entire body is completely covered. The ghostly hands swarm over Mok Jeong-woon, seizing his body with an unsettling grip. Shaman Mayo Shin watches, a sinister smile spreading across his face. The ethereal hands swarm over Mok Jeong-woon's face. He has fallen right into the old man's trap. The shaman places a talisman on Mok Jeong-woon's forehead. His eyes are glazed as if he has lost his soul. It was an evil spirit from the beginning, seething with a strong killing intent. The shaman thinks to himself while clearing the battlefield. It was only a matter of time before it broke free from control. He adds, "It was fortunate that the evil spirit transferred to him. I completed the mission and got rid of the obstacle." The shaman sneers, his voice dripping with malice. "I'll pin these trivial matters on you." Deep within the recesses of Mok Jeong-woon's mind, the grotesque, evil entity continues to scream incessantly. It is a formless, malevolent spirit radiating nothing but death. It hisses, "You dare." The creature shrieks upon realizing the shaman has tricked it into transferring into Mok Jeong-woon's body. "You dare to deceive me with this puppet." The monster roars, "I won't forgive you." Is this the culprit? The one who deceived me? The entity laughs, a distorted sound echoing through the hall. "He's pretty young." QQQ good. Mok Jeong-woon has lost consciousness, his mind now drifting and nearly under the creature's control. The entity declares, "I'll take over your body in place of that old man." It continues, "Be trapped in your own mind, forever in slumber." The scene shifts to a sun-drenched forest clearing where Mok Jeong-woon stands alone. He is dressed in simple, rustic robes, carrying a woven basket on his back and a wooden bucket in his hand. Mok Jeong-woon gazes at the lush, vibrant trees surrounding the quiet stream, his eyes reflecting the peaceful beauty of the mountain. He thinks to himself, this place is. He looks around, a sense of deep familiarity washing over him as he recognizes the winding path and the ancient swaying branches. He continues his thought, "Isn't it the watering hole I always visit?" A small, colorful bird perches on a gnarled tree limb, chirping softly amidst the rustling leaves of the tranquil, verdant forest. A peaceful mountain. Mok Jeong-woon walks toward the crystal-clear water, his footsteps silent upon the soft earth as the sunlight dances on the stream's surface. "I know this place very well." He stops, looking down at the water, "since it's a place I always visit." He kneels by the edge of the water, dipping his wooden bucket into the cool, refreshing depths of the mountain spring. He thinks to himself, "I wouldn't be able to forget even if I wanted to." He sighs, "Since it's a place I always come to." Mok Jeong-woon stands up, his brow furrowed as he looks toward the horizon, feeling an inexplicable chill crawl up his spine. He thinks to himself, but somehow it feels a bit strange today. He looks around, unsettled. What is it? What's this strange feeling? Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the serene forest, his brow furrowed as a sudden, gnawing unease takes hold. He thinks to himself, it's as if I'm forgetting something. A massive plume of thick black smoke billows into the sky, rising from the direction of his home. Mok Jeong-woon watches the distant inferno, his heart sinking as the realization hits him. He gasps, his eyes widening in alarm as he stares at the raging fire consuming the horizon. He thinks to himself, that's the direction of my house. Mok Jeong-woon drops his wooden bucket, the water splashing violently against the earth as he breaks into a run. He shouts, "Grandfather!" He sprints through the tall, dense grass, his bare feet pounding against the soil with desperate, frantic rhythm. He gasps, "Huff, huff!" Mok Jeong-woon pushes himself harder, his face twisted in agony as he pleads with the heavens for mercy. He shouts, "Please, please, please!" He leaps over a fallen log, his eyes locked onto the burning silhouette of his home in the distance. He screams, "Grandfather!" Upon arriving, the scene before him is truly ruthless, and his breath hitches in his throat. He rushes toward the crumpled, bloodied figure of his grandfather lying motionless on the scorched ground. He shouts, "Grandfather!" Mok Jeong-woon gathers the frail, dying man into his arms, his voice trembling with a mixture of grief and fury. He shouts, "Wake up! Grandfather!" He stares at the lifeless face, his mind fracturing as the weight of the tragedy begins to crush his spirit. He shouts, "No, no!" Who could have? Mok Jeong-woon clutches the body tightly, his eyes wide and unseeing, lost in the hollow void of his loss. He shouts, "And no! You can't leave me!" He recalls the gentle touch of his grandfather's hand on his head, the memory sharp and painful in the present darkness. I finally understood just what kind of existence my grandfather was to me. You were so important to me. Mok Jeong-woon bows his head against his grandfather's chest, his tears mingling with the drying blood. The evil entity stands behind Mok Jeong-woon watching him. It seems he cannot see it. The entity thinks to itself, that's it. Its glowing eyes burn with malice as it looms over the grieving youth. It hisses, "So that's what you desire." Dark, ethereal tendrils snake toward Mok Jeong-woon, their violet energy crackling as they begin to seep into his skin and hair. The entity cackles, a sound like grinding stone. Mok Jeong-woon is gradually being invaded, with purple veins pulsing across his neck and ears spreading throughout his body. Suddenly his grandfather's voice rings out. "Hey, what are you doing over there?" The image of his grandfather stands there as if nothing happened. The house is still intact, not yet burned. Everything feels like a dream. He shouts, "Aren't you going to help this old man? Snap out of it." Mok Jeong-woon stares at the apparition, his eyes wide with disbelief as the warmth of the memory clashes with the cold reality. He whispers, "Grandfather, just what's going on?" His eyes dilate, the pupils trembling as the dark energy forces its way deeper into his mind, fracturing his perception of time. Mok Jeong-woon lunges forward, his body moving on instinct as he embraces his grandfather. He screams, "Grandfather!" The old man struggles in his grip, his face etched with confusion as he tries to push the youth away. He asks, "Hey, this old man is gonna fall over. Why are you being like this all of a sudden?" Mok Jeong-woon buries his face in the old man's shoulder, his tears flowing freely as he clings to the fading illusion. He whispers, just because, I won't lose my grandfather ever again, since he is the only reason that I, someone who should have died, is still alive." The entity watches from the shadows, its distorted laughter echoing through the mental landscape as it observes the pathetic display. It sneers, "Ho-ho, what's gotten into him? Phew-phew-phew." It stands there, waiting for the moment Mok Jeong-woon's mind is completely submerged so it can possess him. It growls, "That's right, that's it." The entity projects a twisted vision of the past, showing the grandfather and Mok Jeong-woon in a moment of tender, sun-drenched intimacy. It whispers the cherished past, the lost precious memories and love. Endless happiness. The entity declares, its voice booming like a curse as it wraps Mok Jeong-woon in a suffocating embrace of false hope. Mok Jeong-woon sits with his grandfather in the grass, the youth looking up with a desperate, searching expression. He asks, "Grandfather, there's something I've always wondered." "Huh, what is it? Why did you name me after the character for Righteous?" The entity whispers, "Stay with your grandfather forever, so that you won't ever lose." The entity looms over Mok Jeong-woon, its monstrous maw opening wide as it prepares to feast upon his shattered, longing soul. Suddenly, Mok Jeong-woon stares directly at the evil spirit. The scene is as jarring as a horror movie jump scare. It looks truly grotesque. The evil spirit is startled and screams, "WH what?" Mok Jeong-woon lunges forward, his hand gripping the entity's mask with such force that it cannot react or dodge. The monster shrieks, "Puke!" Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the swirling black tendrils, his expression twisted into a cold, predatory, and mocking grin. He says, "I ended up recollecting something unpleasant thanks to you." The entity recoils in sheer terror, its shadowy form trembling as it desperately tries to retreat from Mok Jeong-woon. It thinks impossible. How can he see me? Mok Jeong-woon tightens his grip on the entity's mask. Now it is clear who the truly terrifying one is. He says it's really annoying. Playing with my deceased grandfather, the entity gasps, unable to struggle as it is choked. Mok Jeong-woon continues, and it seems you have misunderstood something. Mok Jeong-woon tightens his grip, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous, and bone-chilling whisper. My desires for happiness or revenge? You should have shown me better, instead of bringing my grandfather back. Mok Jeong-woon glares with eyes that hold a terrifying, bottomless void of pure, unadulterated, and murderous malice. He screams, you should have let me rip apart. The bastard that killed my grandfather. Mok Jeong-woon bares his teeth in a savage, wide grin that stretches across his blood-stained, pale face. The evil entity witnesses Mok Jeong-woon's madness, wondering if the being standing before it is even human. It thinks it's seeping in, deep in his consciousness, a dangerous primal desire, a feeling of pure killing intent, a pure evil intent that even a spirit of the dead would avoid. Mok Jeong-woon reaches out his hand, his fingers twitching as the dark veins crawl across his skin. The evil spirit is terrified, whispering, how is this? Something a living being can possess. The evil spirit suddenly feels a glimmer of hope, however something is tying down that killing intent. What could it be? Suddenly his grandfather's voice rings out again, cutting through the suffocating tension. Jeong, you asked why I gave you such a name, he says. You are a child that's different from the others. He continues, but I wished for you to grow up to be kind and righteous. He adds, that's the reason why I chose the character Righteous for your name. His grandfather's face begins to crumble into ash, his body slowly fading away. He says, like the meaning of the name, grow up as a righteous person, not deviating from the path. His final words echo, so I pray that you will continue to grow as a righteous person. Taking advantage of the distraction, the evil spirit struggles to break free from Mok Jeong-woon's control. It flings Mok Jeong-woon's arm away and screams, arg. It thinks I have to escape. Mok Jeong-woon grabs a sickle and chases after the spirit. It runs for its life, not daring to stop. It is ironic who is the real monster now and who is afraid of whom. It screams this guy is crazy. It adds I have to escape. Deep into his consciousness. Mok Jeong-woon's silhouette fades. It seems it has escaped his pursuit. The entity thinks to itself, thankfully I've already entered his body. I just have to carefully dive deeper into his consciousness. The scene shifts to a lush green field. The environment is serene, and the entity stands there, unsure of where it is within Mok Jeong-woon's mind. A vast, vibrant field of wildflowers stretches out under the endless blue sky, creating a stark contrast to the darkness. The entity stands alone in the center of the serene, sun-drenched meadow. A strange wooden gate stands solitary in the middle of the lush green field. The entity pauses before the gate, confused and unsure of what is happening or where it is. It thinks a field. It adds this is the place deep within his consciousness. A door. The entity stares at the massive, red-lacquered door, its surface adorned with a golden talisman bearing the seal of suppression. There's a seal on the door. It thinks this guy, could it be that his memories are sealed in here? It wonders why. The entity reaches out, intending to try and open the door. It thinks, it doesn't matter, I just have to open this door and take over his consciousness from deep within. It thinks as long as I can do that. But it is not that easy. As soon as it touches the door, its entire body is enveloped by a strange, black mist. The entity screams in terror, what? That strange black mist gradually spreads, covering the entire evil spirit. The entity stares in shock as its own body is being taken over. He is reversely taking me over, it screams, and no. Dark, jagged tendrils erupt from the armor, lashing out and wrapping around its body. It shrieks, stop it. It continues, if this goes on, I will be devoured. The entity's monstrous face distorts, and a vast, bottomless void opens up to consume it completely. Mok Jeong-woon wakes up as if he has just emerged from a long nightmare. Dark energy suddenly surges violently, filling the entire room. The shaman is startled, sensing the danger. The shaman trembles, his hands shaking as he realizes the horrifying shift in the atmosphere of the room. He stammers. Impossible. Mok Jeong-woon gently tears the talisman from his face. He looks at the shaman as if he wants to devour him alive. Dark, residual energy snakes across the floor, coiling around Mok Jeong-woon's fingers like living shadows that refuse to fully dissipate. Mok Jeong-woon gazes at the shaman with hollow, murderous eyes. Behind him looms something dark, massive, and terrifying. Mok Jeong-woon coldly issues a command. Demonic monk. That is the evil spirit Mok Jeong-woon has devoured, now transformed into his shikigami. Its true form is a terrifying, bald, demonic monk with rough, blackened skin, glowing golden eyes and savage fangs like a beast, wearing a necklace made of skulls. The night sky hangs heavy over the silent, imposing architecture of the ancient manor grounds. A thought bubble floats in the darkness. Is this really okay? Jang Yongin sits alone on the cold stone steps, his face etched with deep, weary lines of concern. He sighs heavily, Jang Yongin quietly reflects on the past, the golden age of Manor Master Mok and Dan. He thinks the young Manor Master was a true hero. He continues, I looked up to him and believed he could never do wrong. Memories of his youth flood his mind. He narrates, my ties to him started 19 years ago when I was subjugating the pirates. At that time I was a famous martial artist in the region. The Manor Lord and I worked together to suppress the pirates. Afterward I became the inner Manor Master and pledged my loyalty to him. Jang Yongin tilts his head back, staring up at the vast, indifferent expanse of the evening sky. He exhales a long, weary breath, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his thoughts. Phew, he mutters to himself, but how did it end up like this? Lady Siok gazes down with her usual calculating expression. She asks Inner Manor Master, do you truly believe that lowly child is suitable to become the master of Mock Sword Manor? She declares, it is for the future of the Mock Sword Manor. You must vacate the premises until the shaman uses his arts to locate both the seal and the secret manual. Jang Yongin feels helpless against the lady's command, yet he blames himself for allowing her to run wild. He thinks for the peace of the Mock Sword Manor I permitted it, but it bothers me. He adds, I am certain that shaman is a fraud. He will likely use some kind of medicine to threaten the Manor Lord. Jang Yongin stands up abruptly, his boots scraping sharply against the stone floor as he grips his sword hilt. He shouts, damn it. I can't just let it go. He decides he can no longer let Lady Siok do as she pleases. He thinks this goes against the pledge of loyalty I made to the Manor Lord. I will check on things quickly and return. Myo Shin Shaman stares into the darkness, his eyes wide with terror as he realizes the truth. He thinks this is no ordinary vengeful spirit. The man trembles as a massive, spectral entity with a necklace of skulls manifests in the air, radiating dark energy. He shouts, it is a high-class evil spirit. Mok Jeong-woon stands before the spectral monk, his face calm and his eyes gleaming with a mysterious dark intensity. He says, demonic monk. Mok Jeong-woon, with a dark, predatory grin, extends his hand toward the spectral entity. He commands, go kill that shaman. The elderly shaman, dressed in traditional yellow robes, recoils in horror as the massive demonic monk lunges toward him. He stammers, seek confront. The demonic monk unleashes a blinding, golden burst of energy from its palm, illuminating the room with intense power. Myo Shin Shaman shrieks, did he just order the evil spirit to attack? The demonic monk surges forward like an unstoppable storm, its dark aura tearing through the air. It screams, that is impossible. The shaman flails backward, his face contorted in absolute dread as he witnesses the overwhelming display of malevolent, spectral strength. He shouts, it's a vengeful spirit. The shaman struggles to maintain his composure, his hand trembling as he reaches for his weapon, desperate to survive the onslaught. He cries, it wouldn't be wrong to call it pure evil. How can it possibly be following someone's orders? The demonic monk swings its arm, sending Myo Shin Shaman flying backward. The old man struggles to defend himself, gasping for air. The demonic monk wears a grotesque grin as it reaches out to seize Myo Shin Shaman. The shaman crawls backward, his eyes wide with panic as he tries to escape. He screams, no. The shaman brandishes his sword with shaking hands, his breath coming in ragged, desperate gasps as the entity closes in. He shouts, don't come any closer. No. The demonic monk lets out a deafening, bone-chilling howl that makes the room tremble. The shaman stares in paralyzed, silent shock. The demonic monk displays its true, horrifying nature, revealing a cluster of ghostly, grasping hands emerging from its chest and throat. The shaman swings his blade in a frantic, futile attempt to defend himself against the swarm of spectral limbs closing in. He screams, Mwah! The shaman collapses to the floor, his body trembling uncontrollably as he turns to beg Mok Jeong-woon for mercy. He pleads, save me. Please, please, let me keep my life. I will do anything. Mok Jeong-woon stands with his arms crossed, looking down at the fallen shaman with cold indifference. He says, I don't need it. The shaman, clutching the floor in desperation, pleads if it is because I tricked you. Mok Jeong-woon maintains his calm, composed demeanor, his eyes fixed on the man beneath him. He replies, no, that is not the reason. Mok Jeong-woon leans forward slightly, a cold, faint smile on his lips. He asks, are you unaware of the seal and the secret manual? The shaman trembles, unable to speak. You bastard. The shaman realizes he must die for knowing too much. That is all there is to it. The shaman stares up at the encroaching darkness, his hands bloodied and trembling as he realizes his fate. He thinks he planned to kill me from the very start. The evil spirit suffocates Myo Shin Shaman, bringing a cold and agonizing death upon him. Mok Jeong-woon steps out of the room and calls for Go Chan. He commands, come in. Go Chan asks, is it all over? He starts in shock as he sees the scene inside the room. Wah! The shaman lies motionless on the floor, his body twisted and covered in blood, a gruesome sight to behold. Go Chan asks if he is dead. Mok Jeong-woon replies, you can ask questions later. Can you carry the corpse? Go Chan stammers. What? Mok Jeong-woon grips his sword tightly and swings it with decisive force. He says, I will do it like this. He then begins to smash the furniture in the room. He intends to stage the scene, recounting exactly what he wants Go Chan to tell others while he continues to slash at the room. The shaman went crazy and started swinging his sword around. He adds, he even went as far as to cut the manor lord's arms. Go Chan listens silently to Mok Jeong-woon's plan. He says, we stumbled upon the scene and put a stop to it. Go Chan asks, do you intend to hide the truth? Mok Jeong-woon replies, yes, is there a problem with that? Go Chan stands silently, deep in thought. He thinks it makes sense, but will they believe it so easily? He continues, the manor mistress is not easily deceived. She is unlikely to accept such an explanation without questioning it. He warns, young master, a half-hearted attempt at concealment will only draw suspicion toward you. Mok Jeong-woon paces the room, his gaze shifting thoughtfully toward the bed where the manor lord lies unconscious. He thinks, was it that obvious? Go Chan continues, even if the shaman somehow went crazy and we ended up subduing him, the manor mistress who hired him will not accept it easily. Mok Jeong-woon murmurs, I understand. I suppose I should make it a bit more believable. Then let's do this. Go Chan watches in confusion. Young master, what are you doing? Mok Jeong-woon drives the blade into his own leg with a cold, calculated expression, showing no hesitation. He continues the narrative he has crafted. He cut the manor lord's arms and tried to kill his son. Go Chan screams in fear at Mok Jeong-woon's recklessness and resolve. What? Mok Jeong-woon drops the bloodied sword to the floor and asks coldly, how is that? Is it a bit more believable now? His face shows not a hint of confusion. He is truly a cunning devil. Go Chan trembles, his face pale as he witnesses the chilling lengths to which Mok Jeong-woon is willing to go. He thinks how determined he is, even if it is just to cover things up, to stab his own leg. Mok Jeong-woon sits on a wooden stool, his posture relaxed as he ignores the agonizing wound in his leg. Go Chan approaches him. I will stop the bleeding. Mok Jeong-woon says, leave it be. It will be easier to convince them if my face is pale. Go Chan thinks to himself, he is truly scary. No, scary doesn't even begin to cover it. It is horrifying. I can never become his enemy. At that very moment the door swings open and Jang Myung-gin strides in. He stares at the scene in shock. Go Chan recognizes him. Teetotal manager. Jang Myung-gin cannot believe his eyes. What is this? The manor lord lies motionless on the bed, and beside him the old shaman shows no signs of life. The room is in a state of chaotic ruin. Jang Myung-gin's eyes widen, his rage erupting. He shouts, why you bastards? Just what have you done? Go Chan with his injured arm shouts, total manager, this is a misunderstanding. Mok Jeong-woon interrupts, total manager. Mok Jeong-woon, clutching his bloodied leg, gestures weakly toward the bed where the unconscious manor lord lies. He says, before that, you should take a look at the manor lord. Mok Jeong-woon collapses to the floor, his body convulsing as if struck by an invisible force. Jang Myung-gin rushes over to grab Go Chan and shouts, what just happened here? Why is the third young master here? Go Chan stammers, that is. Mok Jeong-woon, still lying on the ground, flashes a rascally grin. Go Chan stands frozen, his heart pounding as Mok Jeong-woon's play begins. He is smiling. This bastard, could it be that he... Acting. The scene shifts to the dark, quiet exterior of the Mok Sword Manor medicinal hall under the night sky. Rows of dried medicinal herbs line the bamboo shelves, while wooden drawers sit closed in the dim, silent room. Mok Jeong-woon lies flat on his back on the bed, staring at the ceiling with a calm, satisfied expression. He thinks to himself, the smell of medicine, it makes me feel good. Mok Jeong-woon recalls the location of the manual mentioned by the evil spirit. In the fourth basement, behind the stone doors, he thinks I even ended up in the place the manor lord mentioned. I guess I was lucky. Go Chan, despite his injured arm, continues to stand guard outside the medicine hall. Mok Jeong-woon thinks the secret manual and the seal. I will look around at night since there are too many people here. Go Chan enters the room, his arm still in a sling as Mok Jeong-woon sits up on the bed. Go Chan says, young master, I'm here. Mok Jeong-woon asks, you are late. Go Chan remains silent, looking away. Go Chan holds out two dusty old books, his hand trembling slightly. He says, these are the books from the shaman's possession that you requested. He adds, are these the only two? Go Chan holds up the two antique books, his expression weary. He says, I tried my best to get these two before everything was burned. Perhaps they are trying to destroy the evidence. Mok Jeong-woon quietly sits and reads what remains, eager to learn about Mayo Shin's sorcery. How disappointing. Summary of Master Chu, original book of the Yin-Yang School and first tome of Anomaly. Are these the only ones left? Mok Jeong-woon says to Go Chan, you did well. Go Chan shifts uncomfortably, his gaze darting toward the window as he notices the young master's intense focus on the books. Mok Jeong-woon asks, what is it? Go Chan replies, nothing. I was just wondering why you were reading those things. Mok Jeong-woon points a finger toward the dark, silent night lingering just beyond the paper-paned windows. He asks, what do you see outside those windows? Go Chan turns his head looking out at the sky in confusion. He asks outside. The demonic monk looms there, its massive, skull-adorned frame casting a suffocating shadow over the room. Go Chan replies nonchalantly, there is nothing there. Mok Jeong-woon wears a cold, predatory smirk as he holds the book. He says, that is why I want to figure it out. Only Mok Jeong-woon can see the demonic monk. Suddenly there is a loud noise outside, someone is coming. A sharp, authoritative voice cuts through the heavy air, demanding immediate entrance from behind the wooden doors. Madam, the young master is still recovering. The woman behind the door replies, move. The door swings open. Lady Seok strides in, her elaborate golden hair ornaments glinting under the lamplight. She glares at them both with fury. She smirks and says, let us have a chat. The air in the room grows heavy with tension as Lady Seok enters, her presence commanding absolute attention. She says, let's have a chat. Go Chan bows his head low, his face pale and dripping with cold sweat as the lady makes her sudden appearance. He says, I greet the First Lady. Mok Jeong-woon eyes the newcomer and her entourage with a look of cautious appraisal. He thinks to himself, the first wife. Then this woman is a portrait of elegance and cold ambition. Lady Seok stands tall, her golden ornaments glinting under the dim lamplight. She's the first wife from the martial Seok clan, Lady Seok. Mok Jeong-woon recalls the warnings Guard Cam had given him regarding this woman. He thinks Guard Cam listed her as the #1 person of interest. She hails from a martial clan and her skills are top tier. He warned that she is exceptionally clever. Mok Jeong-woon bows his head, maintaining a facade of respect while his thoughts remain guarded. He thinks he said I should be more wary of her than I should be of the first son. I greet the first madam. Mok Jeong-woon remains seated on the bed, gesturing toward his bandaged leg with a cunning glint in his eyes. He says, please understand that I cannot rise due to the current condition of my leg. Lady Seok watches him with a sharp, calculating gaze, her fan partially obscuring her thin, cold smile. She thinks he greeted her better than I expected. Now, if he can respond to whatever she says without a problem. Lady Seok dismisses his formal pleasantries with a flick of her wrist, her eyes flashing with impatient authority. She says, I'm not here to hear your greeting. Mok Jeong-woon replies, sorry. Lady Seok suddenly lunges forward, her fan snapping shut as she strikes with lightning speed toward Mok Jeong-woon. Mok Jeong-woon and Go Chan are both struck with astonishment at the sudden, violent assault. A spray of blood erupts into the air as the strike lands, causing Mok Jeong-woon to cry out in agony. He screams, Kyuog! He gasps, WH what? Go Chan is about to lunge forward when he is suddenly intercepted. Lady Seok's attendant presses a blade against his throat, pinning Go Chan in place. She coldly threatens, stay where you are. Lady Seok leans in close, her face mere inches from Mok Jeong-woon's, wearing a mask of feigned concern. She says, it seems you really are injured. That must be quite difficult for you. Lady Seok looms over him, scrutinizing his form, clearly unimpressed by his charade. She says you had to injure yourself just to make your lie sound convincing. She thinks to herself, this woman is truly ruthless. She continues, you provided a rather convincing testimony to the inner manor master. Lady Seok lowers her fan, her sharp eyes boring into him with a mix of amusement and lethal intent. She says, but there is one thing you missed. She leans even closer, her expression shifting into a cold, predatory smirk that chills the air around them. She says, it's that a skilled shaman would never be possessed during a ritual. Lady Seok laughs, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she mocks Mok Jeong-woon's desperate attempt at a diversion. She says, but for him to have run wild like that. She suddenly lashes out with her fan, striking Mok Jeong-woon across the face with a violent, resounding impact. She shouts, do you dare try to make a fool out of me with such a half-assed lie? Mok Jeong-woon is sent sprawling across the floor, his body crashing into the furniture with a heavy thud. Go Chan screams, young master. Lady Seok speaks with cold indifference. She says, I won't repeat myself. She adds, what exactly did you see and hear? Mok Jeong-woon sits on the cold tiles, clutching his bleeding, injured leg as he stares up at her. A dark, twisted grin spreads across his pale face, his eyes gleaming with a manic, unsettling sense of amusement. He chuckles, ha, he adds, hu-hu-hu. Mok Jeong-woon throws his head back, his laughter erupting like a sudden, chaotic storm in the silent room. He roars, ah-ha-ha-ha. Lady Siok watches him with a mixture of confusion and growing irritation, her fan trembling slightly in her hand. She asks, "Have you lost your mind?" Mok Jeong-woon stops laughing, his expression turning deathly serious as he stares at the empty air behind her. He whispers something under his breath. The demonic monk manifests behind Lady Siok, its massive, dark form adorned with a necklace of skulls. It looms ominously over her. Under Mok Jeong-woon's command, the demonic monk lunges forward, passing directly through Lady Siok's body. Lady Siok freezes, her eyes widening as she senses an unnatural, chilling presence lingering nearby. She cries out, "What was that just passed by me?" The demonic monk lifts Lady Siok's attendant into the air. Everyone is left in a state of bewilderment, save for Mok Jeong-woon. Lady Siok recalls the final form of the deceased shaman, her face turning pale with terror as she realizes the gravity of the situation. She whispers, "This phenomenon, what is it?" Mok Jeong-woon leans toward Lady Siok, his voice a low, mocking murmur. He asks, "The secret manual and the seal, aren't those the very things you need?" The demonic monk continues to toss the attendant about relentlessly. Lady Siok's entourage can only scream in confusion, "Kiok, Sowa, Sowa." Mok Jeong-woon maintains his calm, predatory demeanor, his eyes fixed on the trembling Lady Siok as he continues. He says, "Then you should have approached me for negotiation instead of trying to threaten me." He asserts his dominance, saying, "Whether you believe me or not is your choice, but I have no desire to be the manor master." However, Lady Siok recoils, taken aback. Mok Jeong-woon continues, "Your son is not the only one who wants to be the manor master, you know." Mok Jeong-woon grins, a sharp, unsettling smile that reveals his utter lack of fear toward her authority. He says, "Since you chose to treat me this way, I have no choice but to go see my second brother." Lady Siok grits her teeth, "You." Lady Siok's eyes bulge, her face flushing with a mix of fury and intense, sudden apprehension at the mention of the second son. Mok Jeong-woon adds, "The youngest is quite talented in martial arts, isn't he?" Lady Siok trembles, her composure shattering as she realizes the dangerous game she has been playing with this unpredictable youth. Mok Jeong-woon says with a mocking laugh, "Since I never had a good relationship with the youngest, it would be a good idea to hand the manual over to him as a way to reconcile." He says, "Do you understand now? You are not the one holding the advantage in this situation." Mok Jeong-woon says with a mocking tone, "It is quite cold outside, so please take care, my lady." Lady Siok collapses in frustration, her plans lying in total ruin. A scream of rage tears through the silent night, echoing from the direction of the Blessing Flower Hall, the residence of Lady Siok. Consumed by rage, she begins to smash the furniture in her room. She screams, "How dare he!" The room echoes with her piercing shrieks as she completely loses her composure. She screams, "How dare he!" A terrified maid pleads, "Please calm down, my lady." Lady Siok whirls around, her face twisted in a mask of pure fury. She shouts, "Calm down. Does it look like I can calm down right now? Some fool has stolen the fruits of my labor." She thinks to herself, "Damn it. I let my guard down because I thought he was stupid. I thought he would confess everything if I just scared him a little. How did he change so suddenly?" Lady Siok begins to realize the terrifying nature of Mok Jeong-woon. She thinks he is too different. It is as if he is a completely different person. Could it be? She presses a hand to her cheek, her breathing hitching as she contemplates the terrifying possibility of his true nature. She thinks to herself, he was hiding his real self this entire time. Lady Siok recalls memories of Mok Jeong-woon from his younger days. She thinks, now that I think about it, others always praised him for being smart. But after his mother died, her family began to lose their influence. She looks out into the dark, cold night, her mind piecing together the puzzle of his sudden, drastic transformation. She thinks to herself, perhaps he changed in order to protect himself. Lady Siok regains her footing, her eyes narrowing as she resolves to eliminate the threat before it can grow any further. She thinks to herself, I should never have let my guard down no matter what. I will go kill him before he can try anything. She pauses, her gaze flickering toward the desk as she weighs the risks of her next move. She thinks to herself, no, it'll be even worse if the secret manual is passed on to someone else. Then, Lady Siok narrows her eyes, her lips curling into a cold, lethal smile as she settles on a new, ruthless plan. She thinks to herself, but I won't let him drag me around either. She remains silent, her gaze piercing the shadows. He turns to her subordinate, her voice low and commanding as she issues a decree that will surely shake the foundations of the manor. She says, let the Phoenix Pavilion know of the shaman Mayo Shin's death. The guard stands stunned, his face pale as he stammers, the Phoenix Pavilion, the shaman organization that Mayo Shin was a part of. Lady Siok stares into the distance, her voice a chilling whisper, Mok Jeong-woon. Mok Jeong-woon says, things won't go your way so easily. The scene shifts to the dark, quiet exterior of the Mok Sword Manor Medicinal Hall under the night sky. Mok Jeong-woon sits in the dim room reading a book. He thinks Master Chu's summary, original text of the Yin-Yang school, when a person dies and turns into an evil spirit due to unresolved resentment. He continues his intense study, his eyes scanning the ancient text. He thinks its strength depends on many conditions. Mok Jeong-woon pauses, fingers tracing the worn pages of the tome. He studies the classifications of spirits detailed in the manual. He thinks first is the red spirit, a spirit bound to a certain location. Its powers are limited to causing chills or goosebumps. Second is the orange spirit. They can stick to a human body, causing lethargy, exhaustion, or even sickness. Third is the yellow spirit. These are dangerous spirits that must be exorcised. A yellow spirit can actually kill a person. The demonic monk appears suddenly, as if to inform Mok Jeong-woon of something. He looks at the demonic monk, his gaze analytical and calm. He asks, "Did you find it?" The demonic monk nods in confirmation. He continues, "Then I guess the demonic monk is a yellow spirit." He is attempting to analyze the rank of his first thrall. Mok Jeong-woon examines the wooden drawers of the medicinal hall. He thinks, withered leaves. They created a door by using an herb that is rarely used. The demonic monk is quite useful for finding hidden underground passages and for scouting. He recalls the earlier encounter with Lady Seok. He thinks, but his powers did not work on Lady Seok. Thanks to that, he had to go for the maid behind her instead. Mok Jeong-woon considers the effectiveness of the spirit's influence. He thinks it worked quite well on guard Go-chan earlier, though. Mok Jeong-woon finds the mechanism to open the secret door. The cabinet pops open, revealing a large, hidden space. Mok Jeong-woon ponders as he walks, was Lady Seok a first-rate martial artist? Then I suppose it wouldn't work on guard Cam either, since he is at the same Levi letter 1ED3 as her. He flips the page of the ancient book, his eyes widening as he discovers new information. He says then, Mok Jeong-woon reads the description of a more powerful entity. He thinks it'll be a good idea to get my hands on a stronger spirit. Fourth, green spirit. An evil spirit that has existed for decades. Has the ability to control its surrounding environment and cause hallucinations. The text reads very dangerous. It continues, must be exorcised. Well, all right. He stands up holding a lantern as he prepares to venture into the depths. He declares, let's go then. The heavy stone stairs descend into the suffocating darkness of the hidden basement, shrouded in thick swirling mist. Mok Jeong-woon steps forward, his lantern casting a flickering, golden glow upon the walls. He whispers to find the secret manual and the seal. The air is damp and the tunnel is pitch black as Mok Jeong-woon descends the narrow, ancient stairs. He whispers, it really is deep. The flickering light from his lantern casts long, dancing shadows against the rough-hewn rock of the hidden passage. Mok Jeong-woon pauses, his eyes narrowing as he contemplates the effort required to conceal such forbidden items. He thinks to himself, he dug this deep just to hide a secret manual and a seal. The dim light reveals a vast, cavernous space ahead. He thinks to himself, well, I suppose it's valuable enough. That's why everyone is hunting for it. I won't lose anything by claiming them for myself. Mok Jeong-woon recalls his previous encounters, his mind calculating the potential threats he might face in the coming days. He thinks to himself, now that I know the demonic monk's powers are ineffective against Guard Cam, I need to acquire more cards to use against him. A heavy, iron-barred gate blocks the path, its surface covered in layers of dust and age-old grime. He mutters, is it here? The iron gate creaks open with a piercing metallic groan, revealing the entrance to a dark, forgotten chamber. Rows of stone doors stand like silent sentinels in the gloom, each marked with mysterious ancient symbols. He mutters to himself beneath the medicinal hall behind the 4 doors. Mok Jeong-woon approaches the final barrier, his hand reaching out to touch the cold, weathered surface of the stone. He whispers, the 4th stone door. The stone slab shifts with a heavy, grinding sound, revealing a hidden compartment concealed within the wall. Beyond the door lies a dark, narrow corridor. His lantern illuminates the precarious path leading deeper into the depths. He says, I need to go even further in. He glances back at the path he has traversed, a flicker of doubt crossing his face for a brief moment. He asks, is this really necessary? Mok Jeong-woon steps firmly onto a small stone tile, triggering a hidden mechanism buried deep beneath the floor. A massive, jagged boulder suspended by heavy iron chains crashes down from the ceiling with a thunderous, earth-shaking impact. The ground erupts in a shower of stone and debris as Mok Jeong-woon leaps away, narrowly avoiding the crushing force of the falling rock. Mok Jeong-woon lunges through the air, narrowly dodging the heavy, spiked boulder crashing down behind him. He thinks to himself, I didn't expect there to be traps. He lands gracefully, his eyes darting toward the darkness as he senses another hidden danger approaching him. Multiple sharpened wooden arrows whistle through the air, forcing Mok Jeong-woon to deflect them with his lantern. He spins his body with fluid grace, his movements a blur as he bats away the incoming projectiles. Mok Jeong-woon thrusts his lantern forward, the light revealing a massive, metallic spike descending rapidly toward the floor. He pauses for a brief moment, his gaze fixed on the trap as he calmly assesses the situation. The heavy iron mechanism groans, its massive weight pressing down as Mok Jeong-woon observes the lethal construction. He thinks to himself, the real deal begins now, I see. He leaps upward, his body suspended in the air as he navigates the dangerous, trap-filled cavern chamber. He thinks to himself, deep underground in a cave full of traps. Mok Jeong-woon lands on the spike he just dodged, yet he continues to analyze the situation, thinking, is this secret manual really that valuable? He pushes off the trap, his body soaring upward as the heavy, spiked mechanism shatters upon impact with the stone floor. Mok Jeong-woon lands softly, his eyes scanning the dark, mysterious surroundings for any other hidden secrets or items. He wonders, is there something else here? Is that thing more important? A flurry of deadly weapons, including spiked maces and heavy bells, swings down from the ceiling toward him. Mok Jeong-woon leaps away, a confident smirk playing on his face. He thinks, well, I suppose I'll find out soon enough. He slams his hand against the ground after navigating through the entire trap-filled corridor. Mok Jeong-woon exhales a long, steady breath, his lantern illuminating the chamber. He sighs, phew. Mok Jeong-woon studies the surroundings, his eyes narrowing in focused concentration. He murmurs. Before Mok Jeong-woon lies a vast, wooden-structured hall, appearing both majestic and solemn. He declares, now I'm here. Mok Jeong-woon silently ponders the strange architecture of this hidden space. He thinks to himself, I didn't expect this place to be made of wood, given it's underground. Furthermore, everything is perfectly symmetrical. Mok Jeong-woon walks across the polished wooden floor, his footsteps echoing softly in the silence. Mok Jeong-woon scans the room, searching for any signs of recent activity or hidden secrets. He thinks this place looks like it's been lived in. Has someone been training here? Mok Jeong-woon approaches a central altar, his lantern light revealing the intricate details of the space. He mutters, well, anyway. Mok Jeong-woon stands before a wooden chest, preparing to open it. Mok Jeong-woon lifts the heavy lid, his eyes widening slightly as he gazes at the contents. He says, found it. Mok Jeong-woon stares down at the ancient leather-bound books resting inside the velvet-lined wooden box. The inscription reads, Adamant Resolve, Woodheart Sword Transformation Technique. Mok Jeong-woon recalls the details Go Chan shared, his fingers brushing against the worn covers. He thinks, Guard Go Chan said the secret manual was divided into two, a sword technique and a cultivation technique. He adds, I'll take both. Mok Jeong-woon turns his attention back to the room, his brow furrowing in deep analytical thought. He thinks to himself, but it feels quite strange that these two manuals would be the only things in a building this large. Mok Jeong-woon notices a large, heavy wooden box sitting nearby, its presence drawing his immediate, sharp attention. He asks, what is that? He thinks to himself it looks unnecessarily heavy and serves no apparent function. Mok Jeong-woon inspects the floor, his eyes tracing the faint, dark marks etched into the wood. He thinks there are traces of it being dragged here as well. Mok Jeong-woon places his hands on the heavy chest, pushing it aside to reveal what lies beneath. He says, so that's it. Perhaps it was placed there to hide something. I knew it. Mok Jeong-woon stares down at the wooden floorboards, his eyes widening as he spots several yellow talismans. He exclaims, there's something on the floor. He crouches low, his fingers trembling slightly as he reaches out to pry open the concealed wooden panel. Mok Jeong-woon gasps, breath hitching in his throat as he discovers a hidden compartment beneath the floor. He thinks to himself, a wooden chest. He pulls the chest out, noting the strange, glowing yellow papers plastered firmly across its weathered wooden surface. He thinks it's sealed with charms as well. Mok Jeong-woon feels a cold shiver run down his spine as he senses a dark, suffocating aura radiating from the box. He thinks it gives off an ominous energy. He peels back a charm, his brow furrowing in deep suspicion. He thinks the thing he wanted to hide isn't a secret manual. As soon as he peels back the charm, a flash of light erupts and immediately extinguishes his lantern. It feels just like a scene from a horror movie. Mok Jeong-woon is taken aback by the sight. He exclaims, what? Why did the lantern, a caption box reads, inside the chest was a book with a leather cover. It was not an ordinary book. Mok Jeong-woon holds the ancient, grotesque tome in his hands, its surface covered in a texture that makes his skin crawl. It had a sickening smell and texture. It's made from human skin. Mok Jeong-woon stares at the book, a twisted smile spreading across his face. He feels a surge of excitement at the sight of something so terrifying and sinister. The cover of the book is adorned with a string of red beads, each inscribed with tiny, pulsating characters that seem to writhe. The scene shifts to a vast, bustling hall where a banquet appears to be underway. Musician strikes a large drum with rhythmic intensity, the sound filling the opulent hall with a frantic, joyous energy. A group of performers dances with wild abandon, their laughter echoing through the hall as they celebrate in the presence of their master. Mak Yumpyong shouts harder, with more joy. He laughs, ha ha ha, that's right. Mak Yumpyong stands amidst the revelry, his face radiating a satisfied grin as he watches the chaotic performance. He shouts, all right, that's great. The opulent Marin Hall of the Mock Sword Manor glows with an unusually vibrant golden light. Mak Yumpyong gazes at the scenery while holding a wine cup. He says, that's amazing. What a joy. He adds, the Marin Hall of the Mock Sword Manor looks even brighter today somehow. Mak Yumpyong smiles with a cold, calculated expression, his dark eyes reflecting his growing ambition. He thinks to himself, I'm sure it's because I'm one step closer to becoming the manor master. He turns his head toward the entrance, his expression shifting into a mask of feigned, welcoming warmth. He says, it's all thanks to you coming to my side. Guard Cam steps into the room, his stern face hardening as he locks eyes with the youth. Mak Yumpyong gestures toward him and shouts, Guard Cam. The cold night air swirls around the manor, heavy with the scent of an impending clash. Guard Cam bows his head, his expression a mask of rigid discipline that barely conceals his calculating intent. I greet the second young master, he says. Mak Yumpyong responds with a solemn tone. I apologize for keeping you waiting until this late hour. Mak Yumpyong stands in the hall holding a wine cup. I had intended to prepare a much grander welcome feast for you, but my father is still feeling unwell. Guard Cam replies, I am honored to be treated with such hospitality. Ha ha ha, very well, let us head inside. As you wish, young master. Musicians depart one by one, as the young master prepares to discuss matters of a confidential nature. Mak Yumpyong rests his chin on his hand, his expression cold as he contemplates the fate of his younger brother. So that bastard Mak Jeong-woon has truly lost all his martial arts abilities. Guard Cam stands in the shadows, his face stern as he contemplates the situation. That is correct. The real one is dead, and the impostor has never learned martial arts. He adds that is no lie. Furthermore, I have no intention of revealing that he is an impostor. It would be dangerous for me if it were discovered that I failed to protect the young master. He muses to himself, I am certain he offered me that deal knowing full well this would be the case. But things will not proceed as you wish, Guard Cam replies with a sinister smile. That is correct. Guard Cam looks directly at Mak Yumpyong, emphasizing his point firmly. Young Master Mak Jeong-woon is currently completely unable to use any martial arts. He thinks to himself, I will sever his head to serve as proof of my loyalty to the second young master. Mak Yumpyong paces through the room, his long robes flowing as he mocks the weakness of his younger brother. Kyukuk idiot. He was already powerless, but now he can't even use martial arts. That's one way to lose in the succession competition. Mak Yumpyong laughs heartily, his voice echoing throughout the hall. Well, I suppose I should be grateful that I now have someone as talented as you working for me. Mak Yumpyong leans back in his chair, his gaze fixed on Guard Cam as he probes for more information. All right, I was wondering. Can you really not tell me the reason why he has lost his martial arts abilities? Mak Yumpyong waves his hand dismissively, his face twisting into a wide, insincere grin. I would forgive you even if it were your fault. Everyone makes mistakes. After all, ha ha ha, he laughs boisterously. Guard Cam bows his head, pressing his palms together in refusal. I apologize, I cannot tell you at this moment, he says to Mak Yumpyong, though he thinks otherwise to himself. If this were to get out, I would be the one stuck cleaning up your mess. I would never tell you. Mak Yumpyong smiles and leans back. But it will not harm you even if you remain unaware. He chuckles, ha ha. He continues, very well. I shall trust you. After all, it is you. Mak Yumpyong rests his chin on his hand, his expression calm as he remarks, the former assassin from that notorious place. Guard Cam is visibly startled, his eyes widening in sudden shock as he curses internally, this bastard. Mak Yumpyong feigns ignorance, asking with a mocking tone, is something the matter? Guard Cam remains silent, his head bowed low. He thinks to himself, I knew he was clever, but I had always considered him to be nothing more than a child. Mak Yumpyong leans in closer, his smirk widening as he probes further. Oh, was that also a secret? Guard Cam breaks into a cold sweat, his brow furrowing with deep anxiety as he thinks, has he investigated my background? He quickly replies, ah no. Mak Yumpyong keeps his gaze locked onto Guard Cam, his smile cold and calculating. Guard Cam thinks to himself, I let my guard down. Mak Yumpyong murmurs, H.M. The night sky looms over the dark, imposing silhouette of the Mock Sword Manor. Mak Yumpyong waves his hand, signaling for Guard Cam to leave, I will call for you later. You are excused for now. Mok Yumpyong gazes out the window, quietly watching him depart. Mok Yumpyong turns his attention back to the room, his expression hardening with suspicion. He thinks to himself he's hiding something. The third must be up to something. Mok Yumpyong turns to a guard standing nearby. This is Cho Il-seng, a middle-aged warrior with a shaved head and a topknot, dressed in brown martial arts robes. Mok Yumpyong commands Cho Il-seng go and investigate. He adds, see what he is hiding and whether he has truly lost his martial arts. I trust you can handle this, as you are nearing the early peak stage. Cho Il-seng looks at Mok Yumpyong, his face stoic and focused. He asks, do I just need to check? Mok Yumpyong shakes his head, his smirk turning into a cruel, mocking expression. No, that's no fun. Break an ankle or something while you're at it. Cho Il-seng bows his head, clasping his hands together to accept the order. He shouts, understood, sir. The scene shifts to the dark, hidden chamber beneath the medicinal hall. Mok Jeong-woon stands in the wooden space, holding the grotesque tome in his hands. He thinks to himself, the pulse I feel through my fingertips is not my imagination. Mok Jeong-woon stares intensely at the grotesque, skin-bound book, but paradoxically the sensation beneath my fingertips is something clearly on the verge of death. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the red, pulsating rosary beads wrapped around the book. He thinks, why would something like this be down here? Mok Jeong-woon clutches the cursed object, his eyes wide with a mix of hunger and dread. He thinks, I am so curious. I want to untie these beads and check the contents inside right now. Suddenly, a surge of energy rises from the corner of the room. The demonic monk appears, seemingly with a report to deliver. Mok Jeong-woon asks, what is this? Upon seeing the skin-bound book, the demonic monk's face suddenly shifts to express fear and reverence. The demonic monk kneels, pressing his palms together in a ritualistic bow before the skin-bound book. It seems that even he is terrified of what, or who, might be inside. Mok Jeong-woon finds the situation deeply strange. For being as arrogant and powerful as the demonic monk to submit to this object, it must surely be a great treasure. The demonic monk trembles violently, sweat dripping from his charred, mottled skin as he cowers before the presence of the book. Mok Jeong-woon thinks for him to react in such a manner. Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his lips curling into a sinister smirk. He thinks this book. It is certainly something extraordinary. Mok Jeong-woon glances at the wooden box he had discarded earlier, his mind shifting from the creature to the hidden danger. He thinks, but if the demonic monk is here, there must be someone nearby. Mok Jeong-woon looks up toward the ceiling, his ears straining to catch any sound of movement above the wooden floor. He thinks that means an intruder. The scene shifts to the manor courtyard at night, bathed in cold, eerie blue moonlight. A masked intruder in dark robes stands near a wooden pillar observing the surroundings. It is Cho Il-seng. He leaps through the air with silent, fluid grace, his dark cloak billowing behind him like a shadow. He lands on a tree branch observing the manor. Cho Il-seng perches on the sturdy branch, his sharp eyes scanning the area for any potential threats or signs of life. He spots him, Guard Go-chan. Cho Il-seng watches from afar, noting that Guard Go-chan's face is etched with weariness. That fool is always dozing off. Cho Il-seng leaps from the tree, his movements making barely a sound as he descends to the courtyard floor below. He moves stealthily across the rooftops, his dark silhouette blending perfectly into the midnight sky above the traditional buildings. Cho Il-seng crouches on the roof, his gaze fixed on the room below, his eyes narrowing as he observes. Cho Il-seng watches as the occupant of the room lies motionless on the bed, his form barely visible in the dim light. He slips into the room through the window, his movements precise and calculated as he approaches the bed with caution. Cho Il-seng stands by the bedside, his eyes scanning the sleeping figure for any signs of movement or hidden inner energy. Cho Il-seng leans over the bed, his hand reaching out to check the pulse of the person sleeping before him. Cho Il-seng pulls back, his expression shifting into one of confusion as he realizes the person is merely sleeping peacefully. He thinks, what? He is just sleeping. He turns his head, his brow furrowing in deep suspicion as he contemplates the guard's strange behavior. He thinks, then why did he have Guard Go-chan stand watch outside? Cho Il-seng leans closer to examine Mok Jeong-woon. He thinks, I need to check his inner energy first. He pauses, his eyes widening in sudden, sharp realization. Cho Il-seng, still masked, holds the mysterious blue book, his eyes widening in disbelief. This is... He clutches the secret manual tightly, his breathing becoming ragged and heavy with agitation. Hyuk, Cho Il-seng gasps, his face pale beneath the mask as he confirms the artifact. Cube, he whispers, this is the real thing? How does he have this? No, that is not important. This is all we need to gain the upper hand in the succession. Cho Il-seng turns his head, his eyes locking onto the figure lying on the bed. This will be our victory. Little did he know this was merely a trap laid out by Mok Jeong-woon, who had been standing silently behind him all along. Mok Jeong-woon suddenly lunges forward, his hand clamping firmly onto the hooded head of Cho Il-seng. Mok Jeong-woon swings Cho Il-seng down with immense force, smashing his face into the wooden table. Mok Jeong-woon looms over the dazed Cho Il-seng, his expression twisted into a cruel, mocking smirk. "What business do you have in my bedroom? Were you feeling sleepy?" Cho Il-seng groans in pain. "Th, this bastard. Was he just pretending to be asleep?" Mok Jeong-woon repeatedly slams Cho Il-seng's face into the table, giving him no chance to explain, the impact echoing throughout the small room. "Well, I can put you to sleep. After all, I am a kind man." Cho Il-seng struggles to breathe, blood trickling from his nose as he stares up in terror. He wheezes, "He is insane." Mok Jeong-woon delivers a brutal final strike that sends Cho Il-seng crashing into the floorboards. Dark, crimson blood splatters across the floor in a violent, messy display of swift and lethal violence. Cho Il-seng lies motionless, a faint, ragged sound escaping his lips as he loses consciousness. "Yug." It takes a moment for Cho Il-seng to regain his senses, only to realize his body has been hung upside down from the ceiling. What kind of pathetic warrior is this? To be captured and beaten senseless by someone with no martial arts. Mok Jeong-woon stands before him and asks calmly, "Oh, you are awake." Cho Il-seng hangs upside down from the ceiling, his body bound tightly by ropes in the dim, silent room. He screams, "What? Where am I?" Mok Jeong-woon holds a sharp, gleaming blade close to Cho Il-seng's face, the steel reflecting the cold light of the room. He calmly says, "Now then." The oppressive atmosphere of the chamber thickens as Mok Jeong-woon stares down at the captive with a predatory, chilling grin. He says, "Let us talk." Cho Il-seng lies on the floor, blood pouring from his face as he gasps in agony. "Hyuk." Go-chan enters, his face pale with shock. Cho Il-seng, he whispers, "Why is he here?" Mok Jeong-woon asks, "Do you know him?" Go-chan replies, his name is Cho Il-seng. He is one of the second son's guards." Mok Jeong-woon tilts his head, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "The second son? Why would he be here?" Go-chan answers, "I'm not sure. But considering he's wearing a mask, he couldn't have had any good intentions." Mok Jeong-woon stands up deep in thought. Then I guess we'll make him confess." As he grabs the intruder, Go-chan cries out, "Sorry." Go-chan tries to stop Mok Jeong-woon. "Young master, are you going to torture him? You can't do that." He pleads it would be better to just let him go. Go-chan adds the second son is famous for being protective of his people, especially if they are talented. Mok Jeong-woon ignores the pleas and twists Go-chan's uninjured arm, causing him to scream in pain. "If you injure him, the second son will be very angry." Go-chan yells, "Kua-ag." Mok Jeong-woon says, "Well, I'll think about it." Go-chan gasps, "No, don't just think about it. Young master, it will be really bad, young master." Mok Jeong-woon drags Cho Il-seng away, leaving Go-chan in a state of utter panic. Go-chan shouts, "Young master, fuck it, I don't care." Go-chan lies on the floor feeling helpless. He won't kill him, right? He mutters, "Even if he's reckless, he's quite smart." Back then, with the manner master, he falls silent. Go-chan stares at the ceiling, his mind racing with worry about Cho Il-seng's fate. He thinks, he won't kill him, right? Cho Il-seng hangs upside down from the wooden ceiling, his body bound tightly by coarse ropes. Mok Jeong-woon stands below, looking up at him. "Untie me," Cho Il-seng shouts. Mok Jeong-woon looks up with a calm, mocking expression. "Sorry, why?" Cho Il-seng dangles helplessly, his face bruised and bleeding as he glares down at his captor. "Why, you must know since you've seen my face. I'm here on the orders of the second son, Mok Yoon-pyong." He snarls, "Do you think you can survive after harming me?" Mok Jeong-woon holds a small blade, his eyes glinting. "Don't make things annoying. Just give me the secret manual." He continues, "Then I'll make sure the second son spares your life at least." Cho Il-seng thinks I assume his plan was to scare me into talking about our mission. As if that would work on me. Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his face radiating a strange, unsettling amusement. "That's fun." Mok Jeong-woon toys with his blade, the sharp edge catching the dim light of the chamber. Cho Il-seng cries out, what?" Mok Jeong-woon remarks, "I guess it must be true that my older brother really values his subordinates. You're acting like you have the upper hand despite your current situation." Mok Jeong-woon reaches out toward the ropes binding the captive. He says, "All right, I'll untie you." Cho Il-seng, feeling encouraged, says, "Good. A wise choice. I will convince the young master." He begins, but before he can finish, a sharp slash cuts him off. Mok Jeong-woon suddenly severs one of Cho Il-seng's fingers. He begins his twisted game of torture, saying, "Pop quiz." Mok Jeong-woon holds up a severed finger, his expression twisted into a wide, chillingly cheerful grin. He says, "Whose finger could this be?" Cho Il-seng stares at his own hand in horror, his eyes bulging as he realizes the gruesome truth. He screams, "My finger was cut off." He continues, "But I didn't feel anything." Cho Il-seng feels the cold dread wash over him as his body remains completely unresponsive and numb. He thinks, I can't move either. I also can't feel my inner energy. Mok Jeong-woon looms over the captive, his eyes glinting with a dark, calculated satisfaction at the result. He says, I used a paralysis poison on you. Mok Jeong-woon gestures toward the room, his voice calm and steady as he explains the grim situation. He says, I made it with the herbs in the medicinal hall. You won't feel anything below your neck for about a couple hours. Cho Il-seng gasps, you. Mok Jeong-woon adds, I'm going to ask you a few questions now. Mok Jeong-woon brings his blade closer, his smile remaining sharp and dangerous as he threatens him. He says, if you don't answer right away, I'm going to cut off 1 finger per second. Cho Il-seng lets out a muffled, panicked sound. Mok Jeong-woon says coldly then, first question. What is the reason my brother sent you? Mok Jeong-woon raises his blade, the sharp steel catching the dim light as he prepares to strike again. He says, begin. Cho Il-seng thrashes against the ropes, his face contorted in sheer agony as he pleads for the torture to cease. He screams, wait. Mok Jeong-woon counts down with a cold, rhythmic tone. He says, 1, you're not answering, then I'll keep going. 2. Cho Il-seng watches in terror as the blade descends, his eyes wide with the realization that he is truly helpless. He screams, you son of a bitch. Stop right now. Mok Jeong-woon strikes down with a swift, brutal motion, his face calm and utterly detached. He says 3. He continues 4. Cho Il-seng cries out in desperation. He screams, stop. Cho Il-seng screamed, his voice hoarse and desperate as blood dripped from his wounds, his fingers falling one by one without feeling anything. Please, please stop. Mok Jeong-woon holds his blood-stained blade, his expression calm. Oh, next up is the thumb. Cho Il-seng gasps for air, his face contorted in sheer terror as he stares up at his tormentor. He whimpers, why? Cho Il-seng says in agony, the second son, Mok Yoon-pyong, ordered me to check if you had really lost your martial arts. Cho Il-seng hangs in the air, his body trembling violently as he struggles to catch his breath. He gasps, huff, huff, huff. Mok Jeong-woon wipes the blood from his blade. He thinks, lost my martial arts? Mok Jeong-woon smiles to himself, his lips curling into a sharp, dangerous smirk of hidden amusement. He thinks, he sure switched sides real quick. The next question. Mok Jeong-woon stares intensely at Cho Il-seng and asks, did Guard Cam say that? Cho Il-seng is taken aback that Mok Jeong-woon could deduce the whole story from just a small piece of information. He replies, that's right. Mok Jeong-woon calmly responds, he was pretty clever with that one. He told a half-truth without revealing his failures. Cho Il-seng hangs upside down, his eyes wide with shock as he realizes the young master's true intellect. He thinks, what? He knew Guard Cam betrayed him just from that. Was he always this smart? Or was he suspicious of Guard Cam from the start? Or is Guard Cam perhaps a spy? Cho Il-seng stares in disbelief at his own situation, his mind spiraling into a pit of absolute despair. He thinks, no, then he wouldn't have tortured me. Mok Jeong-woon turns away, his face calm as he considers his next move in this dangerous game. He says, but now I don't have any questions to ask. Mok Jeong-woon stands before Cho Il-seng, his posture relaxed as he waits for a reaction. He asks, now what? Cho Il-seng thinks, beginning to realize the truth. He thinks, I'm gonna die. Mok Jeong-woon stands there with a sinister gaze, a terrifying, killing intent radiating from him. Cho Il-seng struggles to speak through his bloodied lips, his desperation reaching a fever pitch. He shouts, I will swear my loyalty to you. Cho Il-seng gasps, begging for his life. He screams, I didn't know you were this smart. You're the perfect candidate for the Manor Master. Please help me to make the right choice for the future of the Mok Sword Manor. Mok Jeong-woon watches with detached, chilling indifference, his hand resting on his hip. Cho Il-seng pleads, I will risk my life for you. Please take me in, I will do anything. Please, please. Mok Jeong-woon replies, all right. Mok Jeong-woon steps closer, his shadow looming over the dangling figure, his presence making the air suffocating. Cho Il-seng gasps and Mok Jeong-woon says, there's something you have to do for me anyway. Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his eyes glinting with a predatory, dark intent that makes the air grow heavy. He asks, can I ask you right now? Cho Il-seng stares up in absolute relief, his face contorted in a mix of pain and pathetic, fawning gratitude. He shouts, I am saved. Of course, just give me the order. Mok Jeong-woon suddenly strikes, his blade piercing through Cho Il-seng's neck with a swift, brutal, and calculated motion. He only manages to gasp, but what? Cho Il-seng's eyes bulge in shock, his face drenched in blood as he falls into despair. Mok Jeong-woon leans in, his face inches from the dying man, his expression calm and utterly devoid of pity. Cough, cough, kiuk, kiuk. He says, you said you were willing to risk your life. Mok Jeong-woon yanks the blade free, sending a spray of crimson blood across the wooden floorboards. He says, then let me borrow some blood. Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the carnage, his face splattered with blood. his eyes burning with a dark, satisfied intensity. Cho Il-seng hangs motionless, his eyes glazing over as his final, broken thoughts echo in the silent, blood-stained room. He thinks, who the hell would have thought that this would be how I risk my life? Mok Jeong-woon turns his attention back to the mysterious, skin-bound book, his expression calm and focused once again. He thinks, I can't open these prayer beads with force. He adds, I think this is a seal mentioned in the original book of the Yin-Yang school. Mok Jeong-woon stares at the ancient text. According to the book, a seal for something evil is full of pure Kai. The warm, crimson blood of Cho Il-seng flows steadily into the basin, so pouring something impure on it will weaken its powers. Mok Jeong-woon gazes at the dark liquid. I'll pour it onto the book. He thinks, complete impurity. The dark, ominous energy begins to swirl around the room. Mok Jeong-woon watches the blood-soaked seal closely. The red prayer beads on the book begin to crack and shatter. Mok Jeong-woon observes the sudden reaction. Dark, viscous blood covers the surface of the book completely. Mok Jeong-woon whispers. Mok Jeong-woon stands before the altar, his eyes fixed on the pulsating book. Now I wonder what will come out. A sudden, violent surge of dark energy erupts from the book, shaking the entire chamber. Mok Jeong-woon steps back. The room is flooded with a terrifying, crimson aura. Mok Jeong-woon exclaims, What? The seal on the book is completely broken, releasing an overwhelming pressure. Mok Jeong-woon shields his face from the blast. A massive, shadowy figure begins to manifest from the blood-soaked book. Mok Jeong-woon watches the entity emerge. The dark energy spirals upward, filling the room with a suffocating, malevolent presence. Mok Jeong-woon stands his ground firmly. The shadows dance wildly across the walls as the entity takes its true form. Mok Jeong-woon remains alert. Mok Jeong-woon senses the immense power radiating from the summoned spirit. The entity towers over the room, its dark form expanding rapidly. Mok Jeong-woon prepares for the confrontation. Mok Jeong-woon stares in disbelief at the swirling crimson vortex manifesting before his very eyes. The dark, blood-red energy twists into a complex, ethereal shape, pulsing with an ancient forbidden power. A figure begins to take form within the crimson mist, its silhouette draped in flowing, dark robes. The entity's face remains obscured by the thick magical veil of blood, adding to the eerie atmosphere. A sudden, powerful shockwave of red energy ripples outward, shattering the wooden structure of the hidden room. Mok Jeong-woon is thrown backward by the sheer force of the manifestation, his body hitting the ground. Blood continues to pool on the floor, the liquid glowing with an unnatural, pulsating light as it churns. Mok Jeong-woon recovers quickly, his eyes wide as he observes the entity fully emerging from the void. Long, red fabric cascades down from the ceiling like a waterfall of silk, surrounding the summoned spirit completely. The chamber transforms into a surreal landscape of red light, with the mysterious figure standing at the center. Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the ruins of the chamber, his gaze locked onto the beautiful, dangerous apparition. The spirit steps forward, her bare feet touching the blood-soaked floor as the red veil flows behind her. Countless red butterflies flutter through the air, their wings glowing softly against the vibrant, crimson-hued background of light. The mysterious woman stands revealed, her eyes sharp and captivating behind the veil, radiating an aura of supremacy. The air in the hidden chamber grows heavy with an suffocating, malevolent pressure. Mok Jeong-woon stares ahead, his eyes wide as he senses the overwhelming presence of the entity. Mok Jeong-woon struggles against the oppressive force, his breathing becoming ragged and shallow. He thinks, it's much stronger than a green spirit. The mysterious woman stands amidst the crimson mist, her elegant red robes flowing like a river of blood. The fifth V-letter-1-ED3 of ghosts as described by the original book of the Yin-Yang school. She glides forward, her pale, slender legs visible beneath the layers of her vibrant, intricate silk garments. The entity gazes at him, her sharp eyes radiating an aura of absolute, cold supremacy. Blue spirit. Mok Jeong-woon grits his teeth, his body trembling as he fights to maintain his composure against the spirit's influence. He thinks, to be honest, I was expecting a green spirit. He thinks, should I say I'm lucky? The chamber erupts into a swirling vortex of dark energy, the red light intensifying until it blinds the senses. The blue spirit looms over the room, her voice cold and detached as she observes the struggling youth. She says, foolish sentient being. Mok Jeong-woon gasps, "Cuke." She gestures with a long, slender finger, her movements graceful yet filled with a terrifying, ancient malice. She says, let go of your soul, and offer up your body to me, she says with a smile, her expression sharp and dangerous as it cuts through the crimson haze of the room. Mok Jeong-woon stares at her, his mind reeling as he faces an opponent of overwhelming power. The fifth V-letter-1-ED3 of ghosts, blue spirits, he thinks, a hateful spirit. Ancient text describes the capabilities of this entity. That has existed for centuries. They have the power to greatly influence a certain area, and they can even cause suffering through inducing hallucinations. It takes at least 10 shamans for a successful subjugation. Extremely dangerous. She exhales a thin wisp of smoke from her pipe, her gaze fixed intently upon the young man. She says, "What? You're still struggling?" She adds, "You sure are slow." Mok Jeong-woon fights to regain his focus, his expression hardening as he prepares for the inevitable confrontation. He thinks, I get why the book said. He thinks that blue spirits are extremely dangerous. He thinks, but... Mok Jeong-woon grins, his dark eyes glinting with a sharp, predatory amusement. He says, interesting. She tilts her head, her veil shifting as she stares down at him. She asks, "What?" Mok Jeong-woon looks at his blood-covered hand, his expression mocking as he addresses the entity. He says all ghosts, regardless of their leviler1ed3, simply want someone else's body. He adds, it's funny that you're all so desperate for it. He continues to smile, his gaze fixed on her as he taunts her. He says, I guess ghosts can't do anything without a body. She remains silent, her eyes glowing with a cold, intense light. Mok Jeong-woon crouches low, his posture tense as he prepares to challenge the powerful entity. He says, but if you really want my body that bad, try taking it from me. She descends from above, her red robes trailing behind her like a waterfall of blood. Mok Jeong-woon watches her approach, his body braced for the incoming strike. Mok Jeong-woon suddenly recoils, his eyes widening in shock as a mysterious force strikes him. He gasps. The blue spirit looms over him, her presence filling the room with an suffocating, malevolent aura. She says, Tusk, foolish mortal. Mok Jeong-woon groans, Cuke. She raises her slender hand, the air around her fingers crackling with concentrated dark energy. She says, you're leaving me no choice. The blue spirit strikes, her hand glowing with a vibrant, lethal crimson light that pierces through the air. Mok Jeong-woon is struck by the powerful blast, his body flying backward as the energy tears through him. He screams in agony, his voice raw as the impact leaves him reeling in the dark chamber. He cries out, Cuke. Mok Jeong-woon struggles to breathe, his face splattered with blood as he glares at the entity. She stands tall, her elegant form radiating an aura of absolute dominance over the room. She says, do you get it now? She adds, there's nothing you can do. She reaches out, her hand descending toward him as she prepares to claim her prize. She says, so now be a good boy and give me your body. She exhales a plume of smoke, her gaze fixed on the blood-soaked floorboards. She says, Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the crimson pool, his body trembling as he struggles for each ragged breath. He gasps, huff, huff. She watches him with a mixture of curiosity and cold detachment, her eyes narrowing. She thinks he managed to endure that. His face was destroyed and his flesh was gone. She continues, you're no ordinary human. The blue spirit gestures with her slender hand, the dark energy swirling around her fingers like liquid silk. She says, well, it doesn't matter. She gasps. Mok Jeong-woon is suddenly lifted into the air by an unseen force, his body pinned against the wooden pillar. She drifts closer, her voice echoing with a promise of dark power and forbidden desires. She says, all right. I'll give you an offer. She adds, if you give me your body, I'll grant you a wish. Mok Jeong-woon stares at her, his vision blurring as he tries to comprehend the entity's strange proposal. He asks, a wish? Why are you offering something like that? She floats before him, her red robes cascading around her like a sea of blood. She says, I'm being kind. She asks, kind. She continues, it's not good for me if your body is harmed too much. Mok Jeong-woon glares at her, his defiance burning bright despite the agony coursing through his broken frame. He asks, what if I reject this offer of yours? She smiles, her expression shifting into a mask of predatory hunger as she radiates killing intent. She says, then I'll kill you and look for another human. Mok Jeong-woon coughs up blood, his resolve hardening as he stares into the entity's glowing eyes. Mok Jeong-woon gathers his remaining strength, his voice barely a whisper as he makes his choice. He says, I do have a wish. She leans in, her eyes wide with a manic, unsettling delight. She shouts, yes, a wish. She looms over Mok Jeong-woon, her presence radiating an aura of intense, suffocating malice. She shouts with this kind of determination, you must have lived a hard life. Has someone betrayed you before? Has someone killed your beloved family? Tell me, I will rip them all to pieces. I'll make sure only their ashes remain. She stares intensely at him, her fangs bared in a wide, hungry grin of anticipation. She shouts, so tell me your wish. Mok Jeong-woon, his face stained with blood, offers a chilling, mocking smile to the entity. He says, my wish is for you to shut up and become my familiar spirit. Her anger explodes, a murderous aura rising from her. The chamber pulses with a violent crimson energy as the spirit unleashes her fury upon the room. She says, all right. She, surrounded by swirling dark shadows, looms over the youth with murderous intent. She shouts, you brought this upon yourself. Dark, claw-like tendrils of energy lash out from the void, converging rapidly toward Mok Jeong-woon. She, her eyes burning with cold rage, glares down at the defiant young man. She shouts, "You foolish mortal." She reaches out with a slender pale hand, her expression twisted into a predatory sneer. A massive wave of blood-red energy surges through the chamber, engulfing everything in its path. Mok Jeong-woon watches the onslaught with intense, unwavering focus. The energy violently impacts the surroundings, causing the structure of the chamber to tremble and crack. She, her eyes glowing with a malevolent light, delivers her final, cruel ultimatum to the captive. She says, "Your flesh will be slashed into, your bones carved." She adds, "And your limbs torn off." She asks, "Can you endure that?" She leans close, her lips curled into a sharp, mocking smile as she observes his suffering. She says, "Well, it is a shame that your body will be damaged." Mok Jeong-woon is struck by the brutal force, his body spiraling through the air amidst the blood. He reels from the impact, his senses overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the spirit's attack. Mok Jeong-woon wipes the blood from his lips, his mind analyzing the strange, metallic sensation lingering on his tongue. He thinks, "This taste, it's more crimson than a pomegranate, much stickier." Mok Jeong-woon stares into the darkness, sensing and comparing it to the human blood he has tasted before. He thinks, "And bitter and like metal." He thinks, "All my 5 senses are telling me that this is blood." Mok Jeong-woon braces himself against the swirling currents, his expression shifting into one of deep, calculating realization. He thinks, however, it's different. The air is thick with the scent of blood as Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the carnage. "I've tasted so much blood during my rampage." He stares at the blood-stained blade in his hand, his thoughts drifting to the sensations of the battle. "Then how was the blood I tasted like?" He muses, the vibration of life. "Heat and warmth, that was." Mok Jeong-woon closes his eyes, feeling the cold reality of his current situation settle over his weary spirit. "Life," he thinks, "but what I'm feeling right now." A sudden dark realization washes over him, his eyes snapping open as he stares into the crimson void. His death. She gasps in shock, her eyes widening as the reality of the illusion begins to shatter around her. Mok Jeong-woon shouts, "This is all an illusion," she screams, her voice echoing through the chamber as the illusion finally gives way completely. She stares across the room, her eyes fixed on the figure standing amidst the clearing red mist. She gazes at the figure, her expression shifting from shock to a deep, unsettling sense of dread. She thinks that's impossible. The heavy, ancient atmosphere of the manor returns as Mok Jeong-woon turns to face the source of the power. A crimson butterfly flutters delicately, landing upon a slender, pale finger adorned with sharp, dark-painted nails. Blue Spirit, a woman with long golden hair and intricate red silk robes, watches the insect. The butterfly dissolves into a spray of blood-red mist, scattering into the air like dying embers. Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the swirling, violent crimson energy, his dark robes fluttering in the gale. Mok Jeong-woon stares intensely, his dark eyes fixed on the entity as he senses her power. The chamber vibrates with an overwhelming, oppressive aura as Blue Spirit looms above, her presence radiating transcendence. A way to escape any hallucination by rejecting all the 5 senses. He continues, "It is much harder than it looks. Even a first-rate shaman finds it difficult to completely reject their senses." Blue Spirit stares down at Mok Jeong-woon, her red eyes wide with disbelief as she realizes his true nature. "But this kid, he is not even a shaman," she whispers. "Could it be that he was born with the qualities of a great shaman?" Mok Jeong-woon remains stoic, his calm expression contrasting with the chaotic, glowing energy surrounding his slender frame. Mok Jeong-woon tilts his head, a faint, mocking smile curling his lips as he looks up at her. "Ha!" He throws his head back, letting out a wild, echoing laugh that pierces through the heavy, suffocating atmosphere. Blue Spirit glares down at him, her face twisting with irritation as she grips her pipe tightly. "Ha, you dare laugh. You may have escaped the illusions. But do you really think that you have the upper hand now?" Mok Jeong-woon closes his eyes briefly, his expression shifting to one of cold, calculated, and dark amusement. He says, "Hoo-hoo." He adds, "No, I just had a fun idea." Blue Spirit widens her red eyes, her breath hitching as she stares at him with a mix of confusion. "Fun?" Blue Spirit shrieks in alarm as she stares at Mok Jeong-woon. "Why you?" Mok Jeong-woon grins, holding the ancient book tightly. According to Master Chu's summary, the original book of the Yin-Yang school, the older a spirit, the more likely it is that they have a vessel that connects them to this realm. Mok Jeong-woon bites down hard on the cover of the book, tearing into the surface with his teeth. "So this book must be it." Blue Spirit recoils, her eyes widening in sheer terror as she watches Mok Jeong-woon desecrate the sacred artifact. A massive crimson shockwave erupts from the void, throwing Blue Spirit backward as she screams in agony. "Kaya!" Mok Jeong-woon stands firm amidst the swirling red chaos, his dark robes whipping around him as he clutches the book. He looks at the damaged book with a triumphant glint in his eyes. He thinks I was right. Blue Spirit clutches her chest, her face pale as she stares at the damaged relic. You damned mortal! She gasps, how is this possible? No one has been able to harm that book. It is imbued with demonic Kai. That's why the first-rate shamans had barely managed to seal it after many attempts at destroying it, so how is he able to? She screams, you've enraged me. Blue Spirit lunges forward, her red robes trailing like a river of blood as she attacks Mok Jeong-woon. She glares at him with murderous intent, her voice trembling with fury. Try and tell me that this is just an illusion too. She looms over him, her red eye glowing with a malevolent, burning light. She shouts, I don't need your body anymore, just die. She adds, blame your own foolishness for rejecting my kindness. She bellows, become ashes. Mok Jeong-woon spits out a piece of the book, his mocking laughter echoing through the chamber. Kyukuk, how strange. All you need to do is just snatch this book away from me. So why aren't you? Blue Spirit freezes in midair, her eyes wide with a mix of surprise and confusion. Ah, I see, you cannot touch this book, can you? Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his teeth stained with the remnants of the book. Then, Blue Spirit stares in disbelief, her voice trembling. How dare you? Blue Spirit lunges forward, her red robes billowing as she screams, spit it out. She commands, I said, spit it out. Mok Jeong-woon gasps as the internal damage takes hold. He thinks the blood that entered my body earlier is going into a rage. He thinks it's reversed the flow of blood all over my body. Blue Spirit glares at him with wide, frantic eyes. She yells, spit it out. Mok Jeong-woon thinks the feeling of my entire body cracking reminds me of the first time I ate a poisonous herb. He reflects, but what I can sense much more clearly is the soul's rage, a rage against someone as strong as me. Blue Spirit looms over him, her red eyes glowing with intense malice. She reaches out, her face contorted in fury. She bellows, and the desire for revenge. Mok Jeong-woon stares back, a trickle of blood and saliva running down his chin as he grins. Blue Spirit trembles with rage, her features twisted as she shrieks, you preposterous mortal. Mok Jeong-woon coughs violently, blood spraying from his mouth as the internal pressure forces him to collapse. Blue Spirit watches him with a mixture of shock and predatory hunger. Mok Jeong-woon stares back, his vision flickering as he sees a new, terrifying landscape manifest. A desolate, burning horizon stretches out before him, the sky stained a deep, ominous crimson. Mok Jeong-woon stands alone in the center of the scorched, ruined landscape. Mok Jeong-woon looks around, his expression dazed. He asks, where am I? He gazes at the ground, which is covered in countless fallen soldiers. The ground is littered with bodies, forming an endless ocean of corpses. Mok Jeong-woon surveys the carnage, his eyes wide in disbelief. A mysterious figure in red robes stands in the distance, holding a sword. Mok Jeong-woon thinks that's. The figure turns, revealing a face that mirrors the entity he was just fighting. Mok Jeong-woon thinks the Blue Spirit. Blue Spirit, clad in red robes, wipes blood from her lips as she struggles against an unseen foe. A vast, blood-drenched landscape stretches out under a crimson sky, where a mysterious figure in a straw hat stands alone. I could not hear what she was saying, Mok Jeong-woon observes, hearing only screams and an unrecognizable foreign language. Mok Jeong-woon stares ahead, his dark eyes reflecting the intense, burning atmosphere of the battlefield. But I vividly felt her rage. The figure in the straw hat glares back with furious, bloodshot eyes. A vast, blood-red sea covers the ground, littered with countless fallen soldiers as an ancient figure with antlers watches from a throne. He says something, his expression cold and unreadable. The two figures clash in a fierce battle, the antlered man clearly overpowering the Blue Spirit. He laughs mockingly as he easily subdues her. Blue Spirit lunges forward, her blade flashing through the air as she screams with primal fury. Conversely, the antlered figure remains calm, a look of enjoyment playing across his delicate features. Blue Spirit is easily subdued. From a distance it appears as though the man has pierced straight through her chest. Blood pours incessantly from her chest, a truly horrific sight. As for them, he uses only his bare hands to tear into her, proving he possesses terrifying, monstrous power. He coldly rips the heart from Blue Spirit. She gasps, her eyes wide with shock as she witnesses her own heart still beating within his grasp. Death is near. Blood erupts continuously, staining the crimson sky as she is cast away into the void. She tumbles through the air, her form shrinking against the vast, oppressive backdrop of the ruined landscape. Blue Spirit collapses into a pool of blood, her body limp and broken as shadows loom over her. Several masked figures in dark cloaks emerge from the darkness, surrounding her with drawn blades. The masked figures advance, their movements synchronized and lethal as they close in on the fallen Blue Spirit. The air hums with the sound of their blades, sharp and menacing in the heavy, silent atmosphere. Blue Spirit lies helpless, her red robes spread out like a pool of blood upon the ground. She looks up at the sky, consumed by utter despair. The masked men raise their daggers high, preparing to execute her. Blue Spirit has accepted her fate, waiting for the final, inevitable strike. Blue Spirit looks up, her face a portrait of agony as tears stream down her blood-stained cheeks. Above her, the crescent moon hangs in the blood-red sky, casting a pale, cold light over the scene. Her eyes widen, the crimson reflection within them fracturing as the world around her dissolves. Her foot steps into the deep, blood-red pool, the liquid rippling outward as the illusion begins to fade. The air grows heavy with the scent of blood as Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the carnage. I have tasted so much blood during my rampage. He stares at the blood-stained blade in his hand, his thoughts drifting to the sensations of battle. Then how was the blood I tasted like? He muses, the vibration of life, heat, and warmth, that was. Mok Jeong-woon closes his eyes, feeling the cold reality of his current situation settle over his weary spirit. Life, he thinks, what I am feeling right now. A sudden dark realization washes over him, his eyes snapping open as he stares into the crimson void. Is death? He gasps, what is that? He ponders a red thread. Blue Spirit is caught in the collapsing energy, her elegant red robes fluttering violently in the chaotic wind. She screams, I. She cries out, I. The crimson mist surrounding the chamber begins to tear apart. Blue Spirit shouts, a familiar spirit. A red thread extends from Mok Jeong-woon's chest, connecting to the chest of the Blue Spirit. Mok Jeong-woon sits in a corner and thinks, hell yeah. I have obtained a Blue Spirit. Blue Spirit screams, Aog, this has to be a nightmare. Blue Spirit screams me. A symbiotic spirit. Blue Spirit, with her long golden hair and intricate red silk robes, recoils in horror. She stares fixedly at the glowing red thread connecting her chest to Mok Jeong-woon. Mok Jeong-woon, clad in simple dark robes with his long black hair flowing, glances at the thread with a calm, curious expression. Mok Jeong-woon is suddenly slammed against the wooden wall by Blue Spirit. She screams, you. Let me go. Right in. Ugh. Blue Spirit gasps for air, her face contorted in agony as she realizes a wound has appeared on her own neck while she was attacking Mok Jeong-woon's. Mok Jeong-woon witnesses this strange connection for the first time. Blue Spirit coughs repeatedly, cough, cough, kaog. Mok Jeong-woon touches his own throat, feeling the phantom pain of the bond as he observes the suffering entity. He thinks, I guess a familiar spirit feels the same pain as its owner. Mok Jeong-woon shifts his focus, his dark eyes narrowing as he contemplates the implications of his survival. He thinks, then what about the demonic monk? I basically came back from the dead earlier. The demonic monk is out in the courtyard with Go-chan. It seems he has also just gone through a rather unpleasant ordeal. Blue Spirit stands in the chamber, having regained her composure. Mok Jeong-woon speaks up, well, it seems like we'll be together from now on. Why don't we introduce ourselves? Mok Jeong-woon stands before her, his hands tucked into his sleeves as he calmly makes his request. He says, I'm Mok Jeong-woon. What about you? What should I call you? Blue Spirit remains silent, turning her back on him without offering a reply. Mok Jeong-woon adds, if you aren't going to tell me, I'll call you whatever I want. Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his expression mocking as he delivers his chosen name for the powerful, ancient entity. He says, Red Dung Beetle. Blue Spirit trembles with pure, unadulterated fury, her golden hair whipping around her as she glares at him. She screams, are you out of your mind? Mok Jeong-woon laughs heartily, his amusement contrasting with the intense, murderous rage radiating from the entity. He says, I guess you don't like that name. Blue Spirit bellows, you dare mock me. Mok Jeong-woon sits on the floor, holding the ancient book while looking at Blue Spirit. He asks, why don't you tell me your name if you don't like that one? Blue Spirit huffs, HMPH, I'm not going to tell some stupid mortal my name. Mok Jeong-woon gazes at the book, his expression thoughtful as he considers his next move. He says, all right. I'll just call you whatever I want then. He thinks, well, since she's a Blue Spirit. Blue Spirit sits elegantly on the raised wooden platform, her gaze distant and cold. He has decided to call her Blue Spirit. Mok Jeong-woon looks up from the book, a faint, confident smile playing on his lips. He says, that's what I'll call you. Blue Spirit turns her back to him, her posture rigid as she maintains her haughty silence. She huffs HMPH. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the book, his brow furrowed as he contemplates the entity's stubborn nature. He thinks she's got quite the ego. He continues, I can't beat her up to tame her or anything. He adds, well, I guess it makes sense, considering the way we got to this point. Mok Jeong-woon focuses his mind, determined to find a way to manipulate the situation to his advantage. He thinks, I'll just slowly persuade her to like me. The ancient book lies open on the wooden floor, its tattered pages filled with cryptic dark markings. Mok Jeong-woon muses anyway, the book that was wrapped in human leather. Mok Jeong-woon sits cross-legged, holding the book out toward the entity while awaiting a reaction. He asks, Blue Spirit, do you know what's in this? She retorts indignantly, who is Blue Spirit? I don't know her. Mok Jeong-woon sighs, his eyes scanning the pages as he dismisses her previous inquiries. She says, I don't know, don't ask me anything. I'm busy. Mok Jeong-woon freezes, his eyes widening as he finally realizes the nature of the script. He thinks this. He wonders, is it written in blood? Mok Jeong-woon traces the crimson characters with his finger, his expression shifting to one of dark fascination. He thinks, wrapped in human leather and written in blood. He concludes, what an interesting book. Blue Spirit watches him intently, her pipe held loosely in her hand as she observes his strange behavior. He thinks, but all the characters don't make sense next to each other. What is this supposed to mean? Blue Spirit glances back at him, her red eyes gleaming with a mix of curiosity and amusement. She chuckles, kick. Mok Jeong-woon stares at the book, his mind racing as he realizes he must solve the mystery himself. He thinks, HMPH. Doesn't look like she's going to tell me anytime soon. He wonders, how long has she been looking at me? He concludes, I guess I have to figure it out on my own. Mok Jeong-woon stands in the dim wooden chamber, his gaze fixed intently on the ancient book. Mok Jeong-woon focuses on the text, his mind processing the cryptic instructions written within the tattered, blood-stained pages. He murmurs some nonsensical phrases. Without despair, rely on the mind of the other form. Blue Spirit stares at Mok Jeong-woon with wide, frantic eyes, her golden hair flowing as she senses a shift. He continues to mutter cryptic words. Before nothingness there must have been a form. What seems to be may not actually be. Something strange is happening, as a sudden, peculiar disturbance of energy radiates around Mok Jeong-woon. Mok Jeong-woon grips the book tightly, his expression calm despite the purple aura swirling around his slender frame. He continues to recite what sounds like an ancient curse. The demon stands in the way of the good. The pages seem to be swallowed by Mok Jeong-woon's palm, and the air continues to twist violently. He persists in his reading, but the ultimate blood has the power to reverse all. Mok Jeong-woon pauses, his brow furrowing as he struggles to comprehend the sudden resistance from the artifact. He thinks, it's stuck. Blue Spirit recoils, her face contorted in a mix of shock and disbelief as she watches his actions. She shouts, no way. Blue Spirit glares at him, her red eyes burning with a mixture of intense frustration and growing, palpable dread. She bellows, how did you do? Mok Jeong-woon looks up, his expression unreadable as he holds the book firmly against the oppressive, dark atmosphere. He asks, do what? Does it have something to do with the book doing this? Mok Jeong-woon gasps, his face pale as a sudden, sharp pain radiates through his chest and limbs. He cries out, Hube! Blue Spirit trembles, her hand reaching out as she stares at him with a look of pure, raw panic. She whispers, no. Blue Spirit looms over him, her voice frantic as she commands him to abandon his current, dangerous mental path. She screams, mortal, stop breathing, empty your mind, do not think about anything at all. Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the dissipating purple mist, breathing heavily as he clutches the book to his side. He remains silent, his eyes downcast, as he processes the overwhelming surge of power. Purple spiritual energy crackles violently as Mok Jeong-woon presses his palm against the surface of the ancient weathered book. This is it. The aura intensifies and the book gradually loosens from Mok Jeong-woon's grip. Blue Spirit gasps in disbelief that fast. Mok Jeong-woon stands amidst the glowing violet vortex, his eyes shut tight as he drops the book. The pages of the book flutter open, the ancient ink glowing with a faint, ethereal light as the spiritual seal begins to dissolve. Blue Spirit stares at the display. He has already undone the ritual of attachment. How is that possible for someone who hasn't even learned any martial arts? No, it's a miracle that he even managed to carry out the ritual of attachment. She murmurs, ha. Mok Jeong-woon tilts his head back, his eyes reflecting the brilliant, surging energy as he experiences a profound, transcendent sensation. He thinks, I'm getting to witness what I never did in my life post-death. Mok Jeong-woon collapses onto the wooden floor, his chest heaving as the intense pressure of the ritual finally begins to subside. He gasps, I thought I was going to suffocate. What was that just now? Blue Spirit glides toward him, her red robes trailing elegantly as she looks down with a cold, analytical expression. She says, it's because you couldn't control the ritual of attachment properly. Your breathing was wrong. Mok Jeong-woon looks up at her, a mocking, lopsided grin spreading across his face as he recovers from the near-death experience. He asks, you're explaining now? Blue Spirit looks at him with a look of disdain. Blue Spirit points an accusatory finger at him, her face flushed with a mix of irritation and genuine concern for her own safety. She bellows, it's just to avoid taking damage myself because of your foolishness. Mok Jeong-woon chuckles. All right. Mok Jeong-woon holds out his hand, the purple energy still dancing across his fingertips as he seeks further knowledge from the spirit. He asks, so what is this ritual of attachment? Blue Spirit explains, HMPH. It is what it sounds like. You pull things to you and they stick. You're manipulating the very nature of something to your own will. Mok Jeong-woon contemplates the explanation, his brow furrowing as he recalls the physical agony he endured during the process. He asks, "Pull things to me. But why does it make my stomach hurt and my veins all taut?" Blue Spirit replies, "Because you were pulling at nothing. You manipulated the flow of your Kai but pulled nothing after the book. Naturally, the Kai got all messed up." He muses. Blue Spirit gestures toward the corpse of the intruder lying nearby, her gaze shifting toward the body with a calculated, sinister intent. She says, "Try it with that." Mok Jeong-woon looks at the body. The lifeless body of Cho Il-sun still lies sprawled in the corner of the room. Mok Jeong-woon approaches the corpse, his eyes narrowed as he prepares to test the ritual on a physical vessel. He asks this. Blue Spirit instructs yes toward the energy core. His Kai is probably scattered since he's dead, though. Mok Jeong-woon asks, "Below the belly button, right?" Blue Spirit watches the bloodied form of the intruder with a cold, detached expression. She asks, "Do I have to tell you everything?" Mok Jeong-woon replies, "Well, yeah." Blue Spirit commands now, "Try doing the chant again." Mok Jeong-woon exhales slowly, his body enveloped in a swirling violet aura of spiritual power. He murmurs, "Phew." Mok Jeong-woon closes his eyes, focusing his mind as the cryptic instructions from the book echo within his thoughts. He thinks without despair, rely on the mind of the other form. Before nothingness, there must have been a form. What seems to be may not actually be. The demon stands in the way of the good. Mok Jeong-woon channels the energy, his palm glowing with an intense, blinding light as he focuses on the goal. He continues to mutter, but the ultimate blood has the power to reverse all. Mok Jeong-woon reaches out, his fingers trembling as the raw, volatile power surges through his arm. He gasps, this is." Mok Jeong-woon stares at his hand in astonishment, feeling the strange, pulsating warmth that defies all logic. He thinks, a warmth is traveling through the veins and into my palm, and it's circling around my energy core. Blue Spirit observes his progress, her expression unreadable as she smokes from her elegant, slender pipe. She says, "Pull forth anything and make it stick, even if that thing may be Kai." Mok Jeong-woon stands before the spirit, his eyes locked onto hers as the violet energy intensifies around them. She asks, "Can you feel it?" The air grows heavy with the scent of ancient, stagnant blood as the ritual reaches its final, chilling climax. Blue Spirit explains, "That is how the ritual of attachment works." Violet spiritual energy surges around the chamber as Blue Spirit explains the nature of the technique. She says, "That is how the ritual of attachment works." Mok Jeong-woon feels the internal shift as the energy flows through his body, his eyes wide in realization. He thinks, a warm energy is wrapping around my torso. He continues, "Kai. So this is what Go-chan was referring to." Mok Jeong-woon focuses his mind, observing the inner workings of his own energy core with newfound clarity. He thinks, according to Go-chan, it takes a long time to gather Kai. He adds, however, "This allows me to absorb other people's inner energy so that I can collect Kai a lot faster." Mok Jeong-woon clenches his fist, feeling the raw, pulsating power of the newly acquired energy coursing through his veins. He thinks, in other words, I can get stronger in a shorter period of time. Purple mist suddenly dissipates, leaving Mok Jeong-woon standing in the center of the room, looking confused. He asks. Blue Spirit observes him with a calm, analytical gaze, her hand resting gracefully on her pipe. Mok Jeong-woon says it just scattered away. Blue Spirit replies nonchalantly, "Of course. That is how Kai is." Blue Spirit continues to explain the nature of Kai and how it functions. She says that is why you need a special method to gather the energy. She adds, otherwise, it won't be able to concentrate in the energy core. You need that special method so that it possesses a unique trait, and so that it doesn't mix with the energy of others. Blue Spirit looks at Mok Jeong-woon, her expression cold and detached as she delivers the harsh truth. She says, in other words, collecting Kai with the ritual of attachment is impossible. Mok Jeong-woon stands up, dusting off his robes while looking at Blue Spirit with a disappointed expression. He says, "What a shame. I thought I found a shortcut." Blue Spirit replies, "Kukuk. Did you think that becoming an expert martial artist would be that easy?" Mok Jeong-woon looks at her, his face revealing a mix of curiosity and lingering doubt. Blue Spirit says, "Well, don't be too disappointed. The ritual of attachment still has many other great uses." Mok Jeong-woon appears surprised and intrigued by what Blue Spirit is about to say. The first ritual, the ritual of attachment, is nothing more than the basics of the thought-shattering 8 techniques, but learning just that much already opens up endless possibilities. Blue Spirit gazes at him, her red eyes gleaming with a mix of wisdom and hidden intent. She says it may scatter away, but Kai is still Kai. She continues, "Try to concentrate the Kai into your hand by circulating it." Mok Jeong-woon looks at her, his brow furrowed as he struggles to process her cryptic instructions. He asks how. Blue Spirit looks blank, clearly not having expected that she would one day have to provide such detailed guidance to a complete novice. She sighs, "Phew. All right. Just imagine it." Mok Jeong-woon asks, imagine it. Blue Spirit gestures with her hand, her movements elegant as she guides him through the mental process. She says, yes, Kai circulation and chance are all just to help you picture the right image in your head. She adds, if that is possible, then you should be able to send the Kai to your hand too. Blue Spirit reflects on her instructions, smiling slyly to herself as she is certain that Mok Jeong-woon cannot understand even half of what she has said. She thinks, is what I said, but I am certain you will not be able to do it. She continues, it is absurd that a beginner could accomplish that without proper training in Kai circulation. She adds, it is a shame that we will have to waste such precious Kai, but it cannot be helped. Mok Jeong-woon stands, surrounded by swirling purple energy as he attempts the technique. He remains silent. He extends his hand, the vibrant purple energy intensifying around his palm with crackling power. Mok Jeong-woon clenches his fist, successfully concentrating the volatile spiritual energy into a solid mass. Blue Spirit recoils in utter disbelief, her eyes wide with shock at Mok Jeong-woon's unexpected success. She exclaims, what? Mok Jeong-woon lunges forward, a torrent of purple energy erupting from his clenched fist with explosive force. He slams his Kai-infused fist against the sturdy wooden wall, creating a powerful, shattering impact. Blue Spirit stares in disbelief, her mind struggling to comprehend the impossible feat she has just witnessed. She exclaims, impossible. She continues, are you telling me that he actually managed to do that as a complete beginner? Mok Jeong-woon looks back, a confident, slightly sinister smile gracing his lips as he revels in his power. He exclaims with joy, great. Blue Spirit watches Mok Jeong-woon intently, unable to believe what is happening. She thinks to herself, this mortal. Who on earth is he? The person standing before her must surely be a martial arts prodigy, for no one could successfully execute such a complex technique on their very first attempt. She thinks, I have seen countless talented individuals in my lifetime, but I have never met anyone like him before. She wonders, where on earth did he come from? Mok Jeong-woon clenches his Kai-charged fist, reflecting on the essence of martial arts and their true purpose. He thinks, so this is why everyone is always hyping up martial arts. He continues, it will be much easier to kill people when you learn something like this. Blue Spirit observes him, her thoughts turning philosophical about the true nature of martial arts. She thinks, he has seen right through the essence of martial arts. She continues, training the soul and mind through martial arts is all just nonsense. She concludes, the main point of martial arts is how efficiently you can kill your opponent. She looks straight ahead, her expression thoughtful as she prepares to voice her next observation. Mok Jeong-woon looks at Blue Spirit, his expression calm and full of curiosity. He asks, what is the second technique of this? Blue Spirit recoils, her face flushing with sudden, intense irritation as she points her finger upward. She gasps, Hugh. She had almost blurted out the next set of secrets to this guy. This man is truly sinister. Blue Spirit glares at Mok Jeong-woon, her golden hair flowing as she clutches her pipe in frustration. She shouts, I was almost fooled by a mortal, as if I'd do something nice for you. Blue Spirit stares down at her own hand, her red eyes narrowed in deep, simmering resentment. She thinks, damn it. I talked a lot more than I meant to because he just absorbs everything I tell him. I get why the old geezers were always so obsessed with their disciples. Mok Jeong-woon remains standing, his dark eyes fixed on her as he questions her sudden, erratic behavior. He asks, Blue Spirit. She replies, don't talk to me. Mok Jeong-woon turns his attention toward a dark, swirling mist manifesting near the wooden wall. He silently ponders him. Is that all? What a shame, I wanted to ask her something. Mok Jeong-woon reaches out his hand, his slender fingers trembling as they touch the cold, lingering energy. He thinks, she said that it would scatter away. So what is this remnant of cold energy? Mok Jeong-woon glances back at Blue Spirit, his expression thoughtful as he considers his next move. He silently ponders, should I just ask? Mok Jeong-woon shrugs, his shoulders relaxing as he dismisses his lingering questions for the moment. He thinks, whatever, I don't think she'd answer me anyway. It's fun to figure things out on my own too. A desolate nighttime view of the manor grounds appears, bathed in the pale, cold light of a crescent moon. Mok Jeong-woon says, Blue Spirit, let's get out of here. A dark, looming structure stands beneath the night sky, its silhouette imposing and ominous against the stars. A caption box introduces the character, Lady Seok's escort warrior, Hoang. The Phoenix Pavilion rises into the darkness, its multi-tiered roof casting long, jagged shadows over the silent courtyard. Inside the pavilion, the air is thick with the scent of incense and the presence of countless, eerie stone statues. The room is filled with rows of strange, carved faces and jars sealed with yellow, glowing talismans. A grotesque skeletal statue with multiple eye sockets and a wide, eternal grin stands guard in the darkness. The figure looms, its carved features radiating a cold, malevolent aura that fills the entire chamber. Inside the eerie Phoenix Pavilion, wooden statues stand as silent sentinels in the shadows. Ho-Ang, clad in a light blue uniform with a red headband, gazes at the grotesque carvings. She thinks, wooden statues? Why is this room full of things that look so ominous? Ho-Ang walks slowly across the cold stone floor, her footsteps echoing through the cavernous space. She approaches a flickering torch that casts long, dancing shadows against the walls. She remains silent. After a long moment of silence, Ho-Ang is forced to speak first. She says, "I am sure you are already aware since I sent a message in advance, but the shaman Mayo Shin has died." She continues, "He was killed by the third son, young Master Mok Jeong-woon." A floating text box declares, "This is Lady Seok's expression of grief. 300 silver nyang." She places a pouch of coins on a wooden table, the sound of metal clinking against wood breaking the silence. She says she is offering B-letter 181N tram more if you will take on another quest from us. The quest is to eliminate the third young master. Will you do it? Suddenly, the oil lamp nearby flickers and goes out due to an external force. This signifies that they have accepted the deal. Ho-Ang clasps her hands and quickly departs. She whispers, "It worked." Then she bows her head and murmurs, "Thank you." Ho-Ang steps out into the cool night air, her brow furrowed as she contemplates the strange, lingering sensation of being watched. She thinks, there was definitely no one in there, so why did I feel like there were eyes watching me? That was so creepy. I would never have come here if it weren't for those quests. Within the dark, mystical chamber, purple energy swirls around a group of masked figures gathered in a circle. They stand motionless, their presence radiating a cold, oppressive aura that fills the entire hall. One of the masked figures raises a golden ritual staff, its metal rings clattering loudly as the air crackles with energy. He declares, "I am certain. It was definitely a murder. I agree." The masked figure points the staff toward the center of the circle where a dark, swirling void appears. Another figure shouts, "The boy said that the maid was floating in the air, so it was definitely a yellow spirit. I am certain the third young master was possessed by that spirit." The masked figures discuss the implications of the possession, their voices low and filled with chilling, calculated malice. One says, question, "It is possible that the boy has taken the spirit as his familiar spirit." Another retorts, "Impossible. Perhaps if it was a beast of pure spirit or a yokai, there is no way to take a resentful spirit as a familiar spirit. Either way, this is a very dangerous situation." Conclusion. A figure in white robes, distinct from the others and seemingly the leader, declares, "One of you will eliminate the third son of the Mock Sword Manor and help the resentful spirit move on." A masked figure in dark robes stands in the shadows, holding a staff. He shouts, "Yes, sir." The sun sets over the distant mountains, casting a golden glow across the quiet manor roofs. The evening air is still and calm. Go Chan, still wearing his traditional attire and a headband embroidered with golden cross patterns, has his goatee twitching as he lets out a loud yawn, his face contorted in exhaustion. Go Chan walks through the dim courtyard carrying a heavy metal brazier while grumbling to himself. He thinks, "Ugh, this bastard. I wanted to sleep after staying up all night, but he had to give me an errand to run." Mok Jeong-woon stands inside the room, gesturing for the guard to place the object down. He says, "I have brought the brazier." Mok Jeong-woon replies, "Thank you." Go Chan thinks he is polite about it, too. The brazier is filled with burning coals, the flames dancing and crackling as they consume the oxygen. The fire glows intensely. Mok Jeong-woon stands by the fire, his dark robes flowing as he holds the secret manual. He says, "I have something I need to burn." Go Chan asks, "But what did you want it for?" Mok Jeong-woon says, "Yes, it is. This is the secret manual of the Mock Sword Manor." The guard stares in absolute horror, his eyes bulging as he watches the precious book being held over the flames. He screams, "How did you?" "You?" Mok Jeong-woon drops the manual into the fire, the pages curling and blackening instantly as the flames roar upward. Go Chan screams, "Ah!" Go Chan stumbles back in shock, his hands trembling as he watches the pages of the manual burning away pointlessly. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the fire, a cold and mocking smile spreading across his pale face. The fire consumes the final remnants of the manual, leaving only ash and the empty, flickering light of the room. Go Chan screams in his mind, "This insane bastard." He just burned the entire secret manual. A warm orange glow of the brazier illuminates the dim chamber, casting long shadows against the walls. Mok Jeong-woon stands near the fire, holding a book while Go Chan watches him with wide, panicked eyes. Go Chan stares at the scene unfolding before him, his breath hitching in his throat. He shouts, "What are you doing?" Go Chan clutches his chest, his face contorted in sheer disbelief as he watches the flames consume the secret manual. He screams, "Young master, why did you burn that?" He continues, "I know you don't know martial arts, but still." He adds, "There are so many people who want that technique. You could have used it to your advantage somehow." Mok Jeong-woon holds the book firmly, his expression calm as he prepares to destroy the manual. He says that is exactly why I had to burn it. Go-chan stammers, what do you mean? Mok Jeong-woon tosses the manual into the fire. The page is catching instantly as the flames flare up. He says so that only I can use it. Go-chan gasps, sorry. He continues, what do you mean? Mok Jeong-woon points a finger toward his own forehead, his gaze steady and focused. He says right here. Mok Jeong-woon taps his temple, his dark eyes reflecting the flickering light of the burning manual. He says it is all stored in here. He implies that he has already memorized the contents of the manuals. And by burning them, he remains the sole possessor of the family's entire martial legacy. Go-chan stares at him, his mouth agape as he struggles to comprehend the full implications of the statement. He stammers. Mok Jeong-woon turns his back, his dark robes flowing as he prepares to leave the room. He says there's something you have to do. Mok Jeong-woon says once the sun rises, please give that to Lady Seok and the second son. Go-chan shouts, what? Go-chan stares at the burning remains of the book, his brow furrowed in deep, troubled confusion. He asks, didn't you say that everyone wanted it? Mok Jeong-woon looks toward the fire, remarking with satisfaction, I like a harmonious family. He adds, framing it as a brilliant plan if everyone receives a piece. Mok Jeong-woon turns his face toward the shadows, a dark, mocking smile spreading across his pale lips. Mok Jeong-woon stares directly into the darkness, his eyes gleaming with a sinister light. He says, it will be a beautiful sight, don't you think? Go-chan stands blankly before the fire, completely failing to grasp the situation. The morning sun rises over the traditional tiled roofs of the manor, casting a golden glow across the serene, quiet landscape. Guard Cam prepares for his day as he always does. He thinks, my mornings are fast. He continues, after I wake up, I tidy my bed and get changed. Guard Cam meticulously straightens his bedding, his movements precise and disciplined, as he maintains order in his quarters. Guard Cam cleans his room, his focus so intense and his movements so orderly that he seems like someone suffering from OCD. He thinks I clean my room. He adds, then I check my schedule for the day. Guard Cam adjusts his belt, his expression stern as he readies himself for duty. He thinks, it is a routine I have set since my days as an assassin. Guard Cam ties his headgear, his movements swift and professional. He thinks, a life of strict control and planning. He adds, but there will be no need for that for much longer. Guard Cam pours hot tea into a small cup, the steam rising in delicate swirls. He thinks once I successfully become the second son's subordinate, then mutters, H.M. Guard Cam gazes out the window at the sprawling manor grounds, his eyes scanning the horizon. He thinks I will become an elder. Guard Cam looks reflective while holding his tea, his expression softening slightly. He thinks it feels like it was just yesterday that I was working as an orphaned assassin. He adds, how reminiscent. A messenger arrives at the doorway, interrupting the quiet moment. The messenger says, Guard Cam, the second young master, Mok Yumpyong, wishes to see you. Guard Cam turns his head, his brow furrowed in sudden confusion at the unexpected summons. The manor grounds remain peaceful under the bright blue sky, with the elegant architecture standing tall and silent. Guard Cam suddenly strikes the wall with his fist, the impact echoing through the room as his composure shatters. Guard Cam strides through the courtyard, his pace hurried and his face flushed with visible agitation. He screams internally, damn it, damn it. Guard Cam grits his teeth, unable to hide his fury. A bead of hot blood trickles down his forehead. He shouts, damn it. A moment earlier, Guard Cam stares ahead, his eyes wide with absolute disbelief as he hears the news from Mok Yumpyong. He thinks Cho Il-seng has disappeared. He shouts, what? Guard Cam stands in the room, his hand resting on his chin as he confronts Mok Yumpyong. He says, I sent Cho Il-seng to check if the third young master had truly lost all his martial arts. He continues, and he has gone missing. He shouts, do you dare deceive me? Mok Yumpyong sits on the wooden platform, his face twisted in a sneer as he glares at Guard Cam. Guard Cam stands before him, his hands clasped tightly together in a gesture of intense, nervous agitation. He thinks something is not right. Guard Cam trembles, his face slick with sweat as he tries to defend himself against the accusation. He shouts, I have not lied to you, young master. He adds, there must be some other problem. Mok Yumpyong throws a teacup at Guard Cam's head and shouts, shut up. Mok Yumpyong lunges forward as if to devour Guard Cam alive. He shouts, then why hasn't Cho Il-seng returned yet? He screams, do you think I am an idiot? Guard Cam stands frozen, not knowing how to respond, his face splattered with blood as he looks down in despair. He thinks, why have things gone so wrong? He continues, damn it. At this rate I will have no one left to rely on. He whispers, no. Guard Cam grips his head. He thinks, no. My life's hard work, all the sacrifices I have made. He screams, this cannot happen. He says, please give me time. He adds, I will find Cho Il-seng and prove that I was not lying to you. Mok Yumbyong watches him with a cold, piercing gaze, his fist clenched tightly in the air. Guard Cam shouts, "I swear on my right arm." He continues, "The right arm is everything to a martial artist." Mok Yumbyong stares at him, appearing to have calmed down. The room remains tense as Mok Yumbyong finally breaks his silence, his voice echoing through the chamber. He says, "All right," he adds, "then prove yourself." He shouts, "I will give you 4 hours." Mok Yumbyong leans in close, his face filled with a menacing, predatory intensity. He shouts, "If you find Cho Il-seng, I will believe you." He continues, "Otherwise you will have to die for it." Guard Cam clenches his fists, his face bloodied and determined. Guard Cam bows his head, his voice trembling as he acknowledges the command. He says, "Yes, young master." He walks out into the bright, sunny courtyard of the manor, the architecture looming large and silent behind him. He thinks, "Now that I think about it, nothing has worked out ever since I took that fake in." Guard Cam clutches his head, his hand stained with blood as he paces through the courtyard. He thinks it's not likely, but if it was that bastard's doing. Guard Cam stands on the stone steps and growls, "I will not forgive him." Go Chan stands in the courtyard looking as sleepy as ever. He watches Guard Cam walking away, his expression grim and his gait heavy with frustration. Guard Cam spots Go Chan from a distance, and unable to contain his rage, shouts, "You." Guard Cam lunges at Go Chan, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him against the wall. Go Chan is caught off guard and screams, "Guard Cam." Guard Cam bellows, "I told you to keep an eye on him at all times." He adds, "Are you disobeying me?" Go Chan stammers, confused by the sudden turn of events, "What, of course not." Guard Cam challenges him, "Then what are you doing here? Are you cooperating with that fake?" Go Chan stammers, "Cooperating." "You are." Guard Cam suddenly discovers the secret manual hidden against Go Chan's chest. Guard Cam holds the book up, his expression darkening as he stares at the object with suspicion and mounting anger. He shouts, "What is this?" Go Chan shouts, "Wait, that is." Guard Cam stares intensely at the book, his brow furrowed as he recognizes it as the master's secret manual. The cover of the manual is clearly visible, displaying the title Woodharp Sword Transformation Technique. Guard Cam nearly roars, his face etched with clear fury. "You." Guard Cam glares with burning intensity, his eyes bloodshot as a dark, crimson aura flares around his head. He shouts, "Just what have you been doing?" Go Chan stands blankly, not knowing how to respond to the situation. Go Chan is being dragged along like a sack of meat by Guard Cam in front of everyone. They are heading toward Mok Jeong-woon's study. The hallway is filled with tension, and no one understands what is happening. Guard Cam kicks open the door to Mok Jeong-woon's study. He says nothing, his face stern yet remarkably calm, the previous heat of his anger seemingly vanished. Guard Cam throws Go Chan into the middle of the room. Go Chan's face and nose are covered in blood, looking as if he has just received a brutal beating. Mok Jeong-woon stands nearby, calm and composed, holding the book and observing the fallen Go Chan with a chilling, steady gaze. Guard Cam lies motionless on the floor, his face covered in fresh blood as his consciousness begins to fade away. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at him with a faint, mocking smile. The atmosphere is tense as the confrontation between the two erupts, promising anything but peace. Mok Jeong-woon speaks in a cunning voice, "Welcome, Guard Cam." The cold, dark room is thick with tension as Guard Cam growls, interrogating Mok Jeong-woon. He shouts, "Explain yourself." He mutters to himself, "Damn it. Just looking at him is enough to ruin my mood." Mok Jeong-woon replies with a calm, mocking smile on his lips. He asks, "Explain what?" Guard Cam slams the study door shut and approaches silently. He says, "I don't have the time for this." Mok Jeong-woon laughs, "Ha." He walks past Go Chan, muttering to himself, "I can't shake off this anxiety gnawing at my mind, damn it. I'm certain I made it clear from the start." Guard Cam suddenly lunges forward, grabbing Mok Jeong-woon by the throat and pinning him against the wall. He shouts, "If you try to pull any tricks, I will kill you." Mok Jeong-woon remains surprisingly composed, his throat still firmly gripped by Guard Cam. He asks, "Did you say that?" He adds, "I don't recall." Guard Cam screams, "You piece of shit." Guard Cam stands in the middle of the room, his hands still clamped tightly around Mok Jeong-woon's neck. He shouts, "What did you do to the second son's guard?" Mok Jeong-woon asks back with a mocking tone, "Who?" Guard Cam cannot hide his rage, his hands tremble, desperate to crush the life out of Mok Jeong-woon right then and there. He shouts, "Don't lie to me. You didn't hurt him, did you?" Mok Jeong-woon replies, "How could I? You know how weak I am," and he is a master of martial arts. Guard Cam thinks, unable to suppress his growing suspicions, as something about Mok Jeong-woon makes him feel uneasy and irritated. He mutters, "I know that. I know, so why do I feel so unsettled?" Mok Jeong-woon smiles, "Isn't that so?" Mok Jeong-woon gazes directly into the eyes of Guard Cam, his expression one of chilling, calculated delight. He asks, how could the third son, who has lost his martial arts, have killed him? Don't you agree? That was exactly what Guard Cam had told the second young master. He trembles, his vision blurring as he realizes the trap beginning to unfold before him. Guard Cam grinds his teeth, the sound of his rage echoing throughout the silent, oppressive room. His anger reaches a breaking point, and unable to restrain himself any longer, Guard Cam roars, "You bastard!" He presses Mok Jeong-woon hard against the wall and asks, "Who killed Cho Il-sang?" as he draws a small blade with his other hand. Mok Jeong-woon laughs, his eyes gleaming with a dark, triumphant light as he watches his enemy crumble. He shouts, "Ha ha ha! What will you do now, Guard Cam? You switch sides." Guard Cam stands tall, flames of fury rising, his face twisted in extreme rage. Mok Jeong-woon laughs crookedly and shouts, "But that damned fake killed the second son's guard." Guard Cam grinds his teeth, as if ready to tear Mok Jeong-woon to pieces. He slashes at Mok Jeong-woon, but avoids any lethal spots, seemingly intending to threaten him, or perhaps because there is still something about Mok Jeong-woon that he can exploit. Debris scatters across the floor as the wooden structure of the room shakes violently from Guard Cam's strike. Mok Jeong-woon remains slumped on the floor, breathing heavily while Guard Cam kneels before him, his hand still clutching a weapon. Guard Cam looks down at his own trembling hands, his voice heavy with the weight of his long, arduous journey. He says, 3 years. Guard Cam bows his head, his face slick with sweat as he recounts the bitter struggles of his past. He says, "I was born an orphan and raised as an assassin. I barely managed to get into this place by sacrificing all the money and time I had. I endured 3 years doing all kinds of side jobs." Guard Cam stares into the distance, his eyes wide with the crushing weight of his lost future. He says, "My life depended on those 3 years. Guard Cam locks his gaze on Mok Jeong-woon, his expression hardening into a look of cold, calculating hatred. He says, "But you ruined everything. Not only did you suddenly kill the third son, but you also killed the second son's favorite subordinate." Mok Jeong-woon looks up, his face pale and bloodied, as Guard Cam prepares to deliver the final blow. Guard Cam shouts, "I have to kill you. Even if I stay here. I'm dead anyway. I'll kill you and leave. I have no other choice." Suddenly, Guard Cam remembers something. He stops, saying no. Mok Jeong-woon sits up, his posture shifting as he calmly confronts the desperate, bloodied guard. He says, "Cho Il-sang's already dead. There's nothing that can be done about that. But there is something that can replace him." Guard Cam taps the secret manual tucked against his chest, his eyes gleaming with a dark light. He says, "I don't know how you earned this, but the rest of this secret manual. You have it, right?" Guard Cam's eyes light up as he considers the plan. It turns out this was the very thing preventing him from killing Mok Jeong-woon immediately. Guard Cam stares at the book, his eyes wide with a mix of greed and desperate, clawing hope. He shouts, "If I take the secret manual with me, it'll make up for the death of Cho Il-sang and more. Answer me." Guard Cam remains crouched before the seated Mok Jeong-woon, his blade still drawn. Mok Jeong-woon feigns ignorance, saying, "I'm not sure." Guard Cam replies, "You don't understand your situation." Guard Cam presses his knife against the neck of Mok Jeong-woon, his eyes burning with malice. He says, "If things go wrong for me, I can just kill you and leave." He continues, "But who knows? I might change my mind if you give me the rest of the secret manual." Guard Cam leans in close, the tip of his blade glowing faintly as he threatens Mok Jeong-woon. He says, "But if you keep lying that you don't know, you will die a terrible, slow, and painful death." He adds, "So you had better give it up while I still have my patience." Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the hand pressing against his head, his expression calm despite the blood staining his neck. He feigns agreement, few. He says, "All right, I'll give it to you." Guard Cam sneers, releasing Mok Jeong-woon with a triumphant laugh. He thinks kick. He can't pretend to be powerful when his life is at stake. He says, "HMPH, you should have done this sooner." Guard Cam commands now, "Give it here." He reaches out his hand. Suddenly, Mok Jeong-woon grabs his hand. Guard Cam is confused, unable to understand Mok Jeong-woon's intentions. Guard Cam pulls back, his face confused as he realizes something is terribly wrong. He shouts, "What the hell is this?" Mok Jeong-woon replies, "What? I already gave it to you." He adds, "That secret manual." Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his dark eyes glinting with a sinister hidden power that begins to manifest around them. He says, "It's all in my head." Guard Cam stumbles, his eyes widening as he realizes he has been played by the youth he once deemed powerless. He shouts, "What?" Mok Jeong-woon says, "All right, one more thing." A blinding flash of golden light erupts from their joined hands, signaling the activation of a forbidden soul-binding technique. Mok Jeong-woon channels a stream of violet energy, his face twisted in a predatory, triumphant, and delighted grin. He says, "Thanks, Guard Cam." He shouts, thought-shattering 8 techniques. Guard Cam gasps as the eerie energy wraps around him and surges into his body, his face twisted in utter disbelief. He screams, "First technique, attachment." Guard Cam feels his energy being drained rapidly, his body trembling as the dark energy consumes him. He cries out, "My inner energy is being sucked away." Guard Cam lets out a guttural, soul-piercing cry as the violet flames incinerate his remaining strength and focus. He screams, "Kua!" Mok Jeong-woon channels the violet energy, his face twisted in a crazed grin. He shouts, "Q-Q-Q-Kuk! I was wondering who I should use this on." Mok Jeong-woon maintains his grip, his eyes glowing with a dark aura as he continues his sinister laughter. He shouts, "But you just volunteered to be the test subject. I'm so grateful, ha-ha-ha." Guard Cam gasps as the evil energy drains him, his face twisted in agony and utter disbelief. He screams, "Qog, let me go." Guard Cam swings his dagger in a desperate attempt to break free, but Mok Jeong-woon effortlessly maintains his grip on Guard Cam's hand. Mok Jeong-woon stares at the guard, his expression cold and calculating as he maintains his hold on the energy. Guard Cam screams in sheer panic, his eyes wide as he feels his strength fading rapidly. He continues to slash weakly at Mok Jeong-woon. He shouts, "You insane bastard!" He groans, "Puke." Mok Jeong-woon absorbs the essence, his fingers glowing with the stolen power as he stares at the guard. Guard Cam attempts a desperate kick to push the youth away, but the energy drain leaves him weak and sluggish. Guard Cam collapses to the floor, gasping for air while Mok Jeong-woon kneels nearby, looking entirely unaffected by the struggle. Guard Cam, his skin pale, stares at his own trembling and powerless hands. It feels as though they can no longer function normally. Guard Cam clenches his fist, his brow furrowed in confusion as he realizes his connection to his own power is severed. He thinks, "I can't feel the inner energy in my hand. Did he absorb it or something?" Mok Jeong-woon watches the guard with a mocking, chilling smile, his eyes reflecting a dark and dangerous intelligence. He says, "Phew, hoo-hoo, as expected of a first-rate martial artist, that wasn't enough." Mok Jeong-woon leans forward, his gaze intense. He says, "Well, I guess I have no choice. I'll have to find another way to kill you." Guard Cam grinds his teeth, his expression one of pure unadulterated rage despite his weakened state. He shouts, "You think that just because you can use some dirty little trick like that, a person like you wants to defeat me?" Guard Cam bellows with an arrogant voice. Guard Cam leaps through the air, his body moving with the swiftness of flight. He grinds his teeth and lunges forward, his hand still gripping the short sword as he screams, "Die!" Suddenly, Mok Jeong-woon summons the demonic monk, his eyes turning a sinister, glowing yellow, indicating that the demonic monk has possessed his body. Mok Jeong-woon easily intercepts the incoming strike, his hand catching Guard Cam's blade with supernatural force and batting it aside. Guard Cam stares in absolute disbelief, his eyes bulging as he watches his lethal attack being effortlessly neutralized. He screams, "He blocked it. But how?" Guard Cam stumbles backward, his face contorted in pure shock as he realizes his dominance has completely vanished. He shouts, "Why you? What have you done this time?" Mok Jeong-woon smiles, his expression cold as he stares at the trembling, defeated guard before him. He says, "Well, here is another dirty little trick. I'll show you in more detail," while his left hand grabs the short sword just knocked from Guard Cam's grip. The demonic monk looms behind him, controlling Guard Cam's right hand, leaving the guard unable to see or understand what is happening. The demonic monk lifts and throws Guard Cam backward. He screams in astonishment, "What?" Mok Jeong-woon glides forward. He says, "I'll return this to you." Mok Jeong-woon grins, his teeth bared in a savage expression as he prepares for the final blow. He says, "Both your inner energy and this dagger, too." Mok Jeong-woon drives the blade into Guard Cam's chest, to the guard's utter shock. Guard Cam lets out an agonizing cry, his blood spraying across the room. He screams, "Kuog!" The room falls into a heavy, suffocating silence, the air thick with the metallic scent of fresh, warm blood. Mok Jeong-woon looks at Guard Cam, his expression one of calm satisfaction. He says, "After all, both of those things were yours to begin with." Spacious study is dimly lit and filled with the scent of old paper and the pungent metallic tang of blood. Guard Cam stumbles backward, clutching his side as he gasps, "Puke." Guard Cam collapses to his knees, his body racked by violent hacking coughs as he vomits a pool of thick, dark blood onto the floor. He wheezes, cough, he continues, cough. Guard Cam stares down at his own trembling hands, his face pale and slick with sweat as he realizes the dire nature of his injury. He thinks, "That's bad. The location he stabbed me in is dangerous." He groans, huff. He adds, huff. Guard Cam remains hunched over, his mind racing with the terrifying consequences of his current physical state. He thinks, "If I take this out incorrectly, the bleeding is going to be bad." Mok Jeong-woon, his dark eyes sharp and cold, stands nearby in blood-stained robes while the demonic monk looms behind him with glowing eyes. Guard Cam thinks, "That bastard. Not only did he take my inner energy, but he also used an otherworldly force to attack me." He adds, "I was foolish." He laments, "Why did I have to choose someone like him?" Guard Cam grinds his teeth, his jaw tightening as he struggles to maintain his composure despite the overwhelming pain. He thinks, however. Guard Cam slowly lifts his head, his eyes locking onto Mok Jeong-woon, who stands motionless in the center of the room. He mutters, You haven't forgotten about the poison I fed you, have you? Guard Cam glares at Mok Jeong-woon, his face contorted in a desperate, menacing expression as he tries to regain control of the situation. He thinks, this is exactly why I prepared that poison beforehand. Mok Jeong-woon meets his gaze with a cold, calm expression, his lips curling into a subtle, mocking smile. He says, Go on. Guard Cam wipes the blood from his mouth, his breathing ragged and shallow as he attempts to suppress the agony. He thinks that's right. He says, Let's negotiate. Mok Jeong-woon stands tall, his dark robes flowing as he watches Guard Cam with a look of detached curiosity. He asks, Negotiate. Guard Cam replies, Yes, if we continue to fight. It will be a loss for both of us. Guard Cam clutches his wounded side, his face twisted in a desperate, pleading grimace as he tries to bargain for his life. He shouts, So I'll give you the antidote, cough and money. He adds, Isn't your goal to get out of here anyway? He wheezes, huff. He continues, huff. Guard Cam coughs violently, his hand trembling as he tries to hide his true intentions behind a mask of submissiveness. He thinks, Yes, I need to act subservient for now. He adds, I can kill him later. Guard Cam doubles over, his body convulsing as he vomits another spray of blood onto the floor. He lets out a guttural, pained sound, Jai, Gui, Jai, Jin. Mok Jeong-woon watches him with a cold, unblinking gaze, his eyes reflecting a dark, calculating intelligence. Guard Cam stares at his blood-drenched hands, his voice trembling as he asks, Something's wrong. I'm continuing to circulate my Kai, so why is my body getting worse? Guard Cam gasps for air, his eyes widening in realization as he shouts, Poison. Mok Jeong-woon stands calmly in the study, watching the guard struggle. He says, Phew. Stabbed by the dagger and cut. I'm not badly hurt, but it still hurts. He adds, Cough you. What have you? What have you done? How did you? Mok Jeong-woon gently opens the window and explains, Well, it's nothing great. When you stabbed me with that dagger, you got a bunch of my blood on it. Guard Cam stares blankly. What are you talking about? Cough. Mok Jeong-woon smiles down at the suffering man. My blood is extremely poisonous. Guard Cam recoils in horror, listing pokeweed, russula, fennel flower, creeping fig, giant angelica, pheasant's eye, and crow dipper. He asks, Those are the ingredients for the poisonous orb you fed me, right? Mok Jeong-woon replies, I ate all kinds of poisonous herbs growing up, so my blood turned poisonous. Mok Jeong-woon stands over Guard Cam, his dark robes flowing. Do you get it now? Guard Cam looks up, his face a mask of pure terror. Mok Jeong-woon smiles coldly and declares, I don't need it. He adds the antidote. Guard Cam stares into the void, his mind shattered by the impending doom. He thinks I'm gonna die. Mok Jeong-woon leans in close to the trembling guard. Why are you shaking? Are you cold because I opened the window? I opened it because I thought you might be feverish from the poison. He continues, You'll live a bit longer if your body temperature is lower. It will slow down the spread of the poison. Guard Cam watches his own hands, his fingers twitching uncontrollably as he gasps for air. Guard Cam reaches out, his face twisted in desperate agony. He pleads, Have mercy. Guard Cam clutches Mok Jeong-woon's robes, his tears mixing with the blood on his face. He screams, No, please have mercy. I'll swear my loyalty to you. Guard Cam collapses, dragging himself toward the youth's feet. He cries out, I'll become your dog. I'll lick your feet if you wish. And if you tell me to crawl, I'll crawl. Please, just please spare my life. Mok Jeong-woon remains stoic, his dark eyes fixed on the man at his feet. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the bleeding Guard Cam. He says, I like that attitude. Mok Jeong-woon leans closer, his dark eyes glinting with a cold, calculated amusement. He says, How nice is this? With that kind of attitude, we'll work great together. Guard Cam lets out a ragged, pained sound as he struggles to breathe through the agony. He gasps, Mok Jeong-woon stares directly at Guard Cam, his face devoid of any sympathy for the suffering man. He says, We would have if that was how you had acted from the beginning. Guard Cam looks up, his eyes wide with shock as he realizes his desperate plea has been ignored. He shouts, What? Mok Jeong-woon stands over the guard, his voice dripping with icy disdain as he dismisses the man's pathetic attempts at survival. He says, You switch sides based on your needs. He adds, Loyalty, my ass. Guard Cam coughs up more blood, his vision blurring as he struggles to comprehend the finality of his situation. He wheezes, K-Cuke. He adds, You're better off. Dead. Mok Jeong-woon reaches down, his hand stained with blood as he prepares to finish off his enemy. Guard Cam stares into the distance, his eyes glazing over as his consciousness begins to fade into darkness. He lets out a final, groaning breath. Mok Jeong-woon flexes his bloodied fingers, the remnants of the struggle still visible on his dark robes. Mok Jeong-woon stands over the lifeless body of Guard Cam. A dagger remains embedded deep in Guard Cam's chest, with blood pooling around him in the dim light. Mok Jeong-woon closes his eyes, taking a deep, steadying breath to calm his racing heart. He sighs, phew. Mok Jeong-woon stretches his arms, his face wincing slightly as he feels the lingering pain from the wounds. He says, "Yua, ouch, it still hurts a bit. Well, he did really dig into me with that dagger. I changed into new clothes for nothing." Mok Jeong-woon picks up a book from the floor. He says, "Anyway, that took care of things earlier than I expected. Should I call it luck? Well, I was going to kill him eventually anyway since he knew of my true identity." Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the deceased Guard Cam, his dark eyes narrowed in deep contemplation. Mok Jeong-woon glances toward Go-chan, speaking in a blunt tone as if intentionally raising his voice. "Should I kill Guard Go-chan too?" "No," he adds, "considering that Guard Cam didn't know that I burned the secret manual, he knows how to keep secrets. He concludes he's still useful to me." Mok Jeong-woon looks towards Go-chan, who is feigning unconsciousness on the floor, and commands him to rise. He says, "You can get up now." Go-chan immediately replies, "Yes, Sir Tilda." Go-chan, now sitting up, looks confused as he questions Mok Jeong-woon's perception. Go-chan asks, "How did you know?" Mok Jeong-woon replies, "How could I not have noticed when you kept moving away from your spot little by little during the fight?" He adds, "I saw you scooting away because you were afraid of getting stepped on." Go-chan asks, "Did I do that?" Mok Jeong-woon places a hand on Go-chan's shoulder, a subtle smile playing on his lips as he praises the guard. "By the way, you know how to keep secrets." He adds, "I'm liking you more and more." Go-chan replies, "Thank you." Mok Jeong-woon instructs Go-chan to clear the area, taking charge of the grim task ahead. He says, "Now go tell anyone nearby to go somewhere else." He adds, "I'll take care of Guard Cam's body myself." Go-chan responds, "Why yes, young master." The study is quiet once more, with only Mok Jeong-woon and Guard Cam's body remaining. He whispers, "Then shall I start?" Mok Jeong-woon kneels over Guard Cam's corpse, his hands glowing with ominous death kai as he prepares a dark ritual. Mok Jeong-woon focuses on the energy, noting the familiar sensation of inner power but recognizing its different purpose. He thinks, "I can feel the warmth of the inner energy, but it's no use." He adds, "Plus, this isn't what I wanted to check anyway." Mok Jeong-woon recalls a past encounter, remembering the chilling, malevolent energy he once felt. He thinks, "The cold, ominous energy I felt." He adds, "Back at the underground pavilion." He concludes, "The death kai that I felt when killing." Mok Jeong-woon's hair flows wildly as the dark energy swirls around him, intensifying his connection to the sinister power. Mok Jeong-woon's eyes widen with a dark delight as he confirms the nature of the energy he is absorbing. He thinks, "I can feel it." He adds, "It's the same feeling." Mok Jeong-woon revels in the chilling sensation, comparing it to his past acts of violence. He thinks the cold kai isn't scattering like the inner energy. It's gathering around my energy core. He adds, "I like the chilling feeling." He continues, "It's the same feeling I had when I was murdering people." He concludes, in order to collect more of this, "Do I need to kill more people?" Mok Jeong-woon smiles with a sinister glint in his eyes, contemplating the dark implications of his newfound power. Blue Spirit, with her long golden blonde hair tied back and pristine white skin, smokes from a pipe while observing the scene. She stands silently in a corner, watching every expression on Mok Jeong-woon's face. Blue Spirit looks toward the demonic monk, a giant bald entity with mottled black skin and a necklace of skulls. She says, "Hey monk, I think I get why you let him control you." The demonic monk looms beside Blue Spirit, his glowing red eyes fixed forward. She says, "That's a monster." Mok Jeong-woon stands alone, his dark robes flowing as he inspects his own hands, which are crackling with dark, swirling energy. Inside a traditional wooden hall with a view of a mountain pagoda, Jeon Yongpyeong, a guard with a mustache and a dark cap, stands before Mok Yunpyeong. Jeon Yongpyeong says about Guard Cam, "I don't think he was lying." Mok Yunpyeong sits at a table holding a slender sword as he listens to Jeon Yongpyeong. Mok Yunpyeong says, "I know. Why would he lie about something we would see through right afterward?" Jeon Yongpyeong asks, "Sorry." Then why? A sharp, gleaming sword blade is held up, catching the light. Mok Yunpyeong says, "You know, when you're too nice to someone from the start, they get entitled." Mok Yunpyeong looks directly at Jeon Yongpyeong, his expression calm and calculating. Mok Yunpyeong says, "So I need to show him how strict I am. If I forgive him later on, he'll learn to stay subservient to me." Mok Yunpyeong smiles, his eyes sharp and intelligent. Mok Yunpyeong says, "You need to be cruel to someone before being nice to them in order for the nice act to really stand out." Jeon Yongpyeong bows his head in respect while Mok Yunpyeong remains seated. Jeon Yongpyeong says, "I see. I didn't know about such wisdom." Mok Yunpyeong replies, "You don't mean that. Hu-hu-hu." Jeon Yongpyeong looks at Mok Yunpyeong with a smirk, his face showing a mix of admiration and cunning. Jian Yongpyong thinks I do. Guard Cam is not a loyal man. This kind of test was necessary. The young master is very talented in handling people. Han Xing, the guard with a thick beard and a dark cap, bursts through the wooden doors. Han Xing shouts, there's a problem. Mok Yumpyong asks, what is it? Han Xing gasps for air, his face dripping with sweat and his eyes wide with panic. Han Xing shouts, Guard Cam. Han Xing points frantically toward the direction he came from, his voice cracking under the pressure. Han Xing shouts, Guard Cam just tried to kill young master Mok Jeongwoon. Mok Yumpyong asks, what? Why? If that was his attempt to prove his innocence, it's a rather foolish way of doing it. Han Xing interrupts him, that's not what's important. Third young master, he's announced that it was you who was behind the murder attempt. Mok Yumpyong feels the ground beneath him shift, his composure shattering instantly as the name of his brother echoes in the room. He stammers, what? He then screams in pure rage, Mok Jeongwoon. The quiet hall erupts into chaos as Mok Yumpyong slams his sword down onto the table. The blade bites deep into the surface, sparks flying as the metal grinds against the grain, signaling the start of a violent confrontation. Han Xing bursts into the room, his face pale and eyes wide with frantic desperation. He shouts, Guard Cam just tried to kill young master Mok Jeongwoon. Mok Yumpyong stares back, his expression hardening as he asks, what? Tension fills the luxurious hall, the ornate wooden furniture casting sharp shadows under the dim light. Mok Yumpyong shouts, why? If that was his attempt to prove his innocence, it's a rather foolish way of doing it. Han Xing continues, that's not what's important. The third son. He has announced that it was you who was behind the murder attempt. Mok Yumpyong feels his world tilt, his composure fracturing as the baseless accusation lands with devastating weight upon him. He whispers, what? Rage flares in the room as Mok Yumpyong and his associates process the impossible news. Mok Yumpyong shouts, what kind of slander? Guard Cam, what about Guard Cam? Apparently, he has gone missing. Han Xing mutters in reply. Mok Yumpyong stands amidst the chaos, his face contorted with fury as he realizes the magnitude of the betrayal. He screams, Mok Jeongwoon. Mok Yumpyong grips the hilt of his sword, his knuckles white as he prepares to unleash his wrath. He shouts, I will not forgive him for this. His subordinates surround him, their faces etched with concern as they attempt to restrain his impulsive rage. A subordinate shouts, why, young master? If you do anything to the third son right now, you'll just be proving his testimony. Mok Yumpyong replies, then what? Should I just sit here and do nothing? Mok Yumpyong paces, his dark hair whipping around his face as he vents his burning frustration. He shouts, how overjoyed would that bastard be seeing the situation I am in right now? And you want me to sit still and do nothing? Jian Yongpyong listens intently, his eyes narrowing in cold, calculated thought. He mutters, then why don't we have the others take care of things? He proposes cryptically. Mok Yumpyong pauses, his sharp gaze fixed on his subordinate as he contemplates the deadly suggestion. Jian Yongpyong says, the third son told the outer hall that Guard Cam tried to kill him. He adds, if that is true, things might be easier to resolve than we expected. Jian Yongpyong says, the organization that Guard Cam was affiliated to. He adds, let's just say that they have rules of their own because of their pride as assassins. He continues, failing an assassination is unacceptable. There are no exceptions, even for retired assassins. Accomplish the mission you are given no matter what method you must resort to. Jian Yongpyong declares, I'll talk to them. One of the three greatest assassin organizations in Zhongyuan, the Flying Assassin Sect. Mok Yumpyong gazes into the distance, his long black hair flowing as he contemplates the deadly name. He mutters, the Flying Assassin Sect. Mok Jeongwoon wears a faint, chilling smile, his dark eyes glinting with a hidden, dangerous intent. He says, good. At this moment, Go Chan stands guard outside the study, while Mok Jeongwoon sits cross-legged on the bed, regulating the internal energy he had just absorbed from Guard Cam's corpse. Mok Jeongwoon closes his eyes, his breathing steady as he focuses his mind on the internal cultivation process. He thinks, phew. I've been trying to create an energy core as described in the secret manual. But no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't create an energy core and channel Kai into it. Mok Jeongwoon opens his eyes, his expression weary yet determined as he assesses his latest attempt at cultivation. He thinks, yet another failed attempt. I can circulate the Kai very close to it, but as soon as it's close enough, the Kai splits up. What am I doing wrong? Mok Jeongwoon calls out, guard Go Chan. Mok Jeongwoon looks toward Go Chan, his tone calm and inquiring. He says, I'm trying to create an energy core, but the Kai keeps dispersing. Do you have any idea why? Go Chan replies, sorry. Go Chan stares at Mok Jeongwoon, feeling that he finally had something he knew more about than Mok Jeongwoon. He thinks, so this little dude who didn't know anything about martial arts until yesterday. Aha tilde, is that so? Go Chan continues to observe Mok Jeong-woon, his internal monologue dripping with skepticism. He thinks, was able to sense Kai overnight, and he even circulated it, HM. He imagines himself scolding Mok Jeong-woon as if the young master was an incompetent who had to beg him for guidance. He thinks, if I said that, I'm sure he'll beat me up. He then forces a subservient smile and says, young master, could I perhaps check? Mok Jeong-woon asks, check, how? Go Chan steps forward, his hand outstretched as he prepares to touch the youth's back. He says, it's nothing much. I will just be imbuing your body with my own Kai to see why it's scattering. Mok Jeong-woon replies, here please. Go Chan thinks, yeah, let's not piss him off. He's still a kid, and kids always want to act like know-it-alls. Go Chan sits behind Mok Jeong-woon, placing his palms firmly against Mok Jeong-woon's back. He says, don't mind me and just focus on Kai circulation. Mok Jeong-woon sighs. Phew. Kai began to circulate as Go Chan channeled his energy into Mok Jeong-woon. The air around the two distorted and twisted. Seemingly sensing something amiss, Go Chan exclaims, and no way. Go Chan watches in awe as his internal energy flows profusely. He thinks he's actually doing it. There's no blockage anywhere either. It's a smooth flow. This would only be possible if an internal martial arts master with profound Kai massaged his acupoints every day. Go Chan stares at his own glowing hand, trembling with mounting dread. He thinks, are you telling me he's really a genius? Go Chan sits in intense concentration, his brow furrowed as he senses a dark, chilling presence within him. He thinks, what? I just felt a strange energy. The mysterious, frigid power pulses through his veins, forcing Go Chan to be cautious. He thinks something cold and creepy. Go Chan watches the purple light dissipate, his expression shifting from shock to confusion. He says, it's dispersing. Did you feel it too? Mok Jeong-woon looks toward Go Chan, his voice calm yet filled with underlying concern. He asks, please be honest. Can I not create an energy core if this is the case? Go Chan replies, no, you cannot. Go Chan gestures nervously, his gaze shifting away from Mok Jeong-woon's intense stare. He says, I sense something strange and foreign near your energy core, but I have no idea what it could have been. Mok Jeong-woon gazes downward, his dark eyes reflecting a deep, somber realization as he contemplates his own physical limitations. He asks, so this cold energy is the problem? What do I do? Do I have no choice but to give up on martial arts? Go Chan scratches his chin, his mind racing to find a plausible explanation. He says, how strange. It dispersed Kai. I don't think it was created from the Kai circulation. It feels. Mok Jeong-woon looks up, his expression sharpening as he fixates on Go Chan's words. He asks, like the complete opposite? Opposite. Go Chan waves his hands frantically, trying to downplay his previous slip-of-the-tongue observation. He says, it's just my hypothesis. You don't need to pay it any mind. Mok Jeong-woon mutters, opposite? Opposite. Mok Jeong-woon touches his lips, his mind connecting the dots between the cold sensation and the nature of his power. He thinks, now that I think about it, normal Kai is warm, but this death Kai is cold. He says, no, I think you're right. Mok Jeong-woon stands up, his movements fluid as he prepares to test his radical new theory on Kai circulation. He says, I'll try circulating my Kai in the opposite direction. Go Chan shouts, what? Go Chan lunges forward, desperately trying to stop him, for only madmen would casually circulate Kai against their blood vessels. He screams, why, young master? Stop. You'll end up with Kai deviation if you... Suddenly, he feels an invisible force pull him back and cover his mouth, preventing him from speaking further. It is Than Lin. She commands, be quiet. Than Lin gazes at the scene with glowing red eyes. She thinks, Q-cuck. The fool, he's going to end up killing himself testing out his stupid ideas. Than Lin looms over Mok Jeong-woon. She says, if a familiar spirit is to put a hand on their human, it pains them, but if the human dies of other means, then the contract between them will be nullified. Than Lin smiles, her sharp teeth glinting as she addresses the demonic monk. She says, seems like we'll be free earlier than we expected, monk. Once you die and your soul leaves your body, Than Lin wants Mok Jeong-woon to die from Kai deviation, thereby giving her a chance to escape manipulation and restraint. She screams, I'll rip you to pieces myself. Night falls over the manor, the dark sky looming above the quiet, sprawling architecture of the Blessing Flower Hall. Lady Seok stands in the shadows, her face partially obscured by a folding fan as she observes a mysterious cloaked visitor. The visitor says, I'm New Moon. She stands tall, draped in a heavy dark cloak and holding a long, ornate staff, radiating an aura of ancient mystery. She says, a shaman from the Phoenix Pavilion. New Moon lifts her head, revealing a single glowing red eye beneath the brim of her wide, metallic hat. Shaman New Moon Lady Seok lowers her fan, her eyes wide with suspicion. She thinks their most famous shaman died, but they only sent one person. She sounds like a young woman, too. And a wooden coffin lies open in the center of the room, revealing the lifeless body of Myo Shin Shaman. Lady Siak thinks, why the hell did she bring that with her? New Moon stands near the coffin, her presence commanding as she addresses the occupants of the room with cold, professional detachment. She says Disciple Mayo's corpse will be helpful for the ritual. It will help me track down the spirit that killed him. Lady Siak stares at New Moon, her brow furrowed in confusion as she attempts to decipher the young shaman's unsettling words. She thinks Disciple Mayo. Does that mean she is higher in rank than Mayo Shin? She says, I understand. New Moon turns her gaze toward Lady Siak. She says, but first, there's one thing I must make clear. Lady Siak asks, what is it? New Moon stares ahead, her red eye burning. She says, the third son, he's going to die. Lady Siak holds her folding fan, her lips curved in a cold, calculating smile. She says, to be honest, I didn't like you, but I've changed my mind. Lady Siak lowers her fan, a twisted, sinister smile gracing her lips. New Moon says, all right. She begins chanting all. Mayo Shin Shaman's corpse begins to stir. Fight. Future. The Northern Emperor has bestowed upon me a talisman and guides my hand to write a charm to repel the evil spirits. The wicked ritual begins. New Moon channels crackling energy into her ritual staff, the air around them humming with lethal power. She commands swift decree. New Moon strikes downward with the ritual staff, piercing the chest of the corpse in the wooden coffin. Ghostly, spectral hands erupt from the corpse's chest, swirling into a dark, suffocating mass of energy. A strange, eerie sound emanates, and Lady Siak and her attendants, witnessing this for the first time, cannot help but feel terrified. The corpse convulses violently as the spectral energy tears through his physical form, tearing his soul apart. The ghostly mass screams, "Yuag!" The shaman's face is overtaken by the mass of spectral hands, his features distorted by the overwhelming spiritual pressure. A massive, dark column of spectral hands flows from the shaman's mouth toward New Moon in the shadows. The dark, sprawling architecture of the manor is illuminated by a sudden, ominous flash of light from the distance. The target is. A streak of light cuts through the dark sky, heading toward the chamber where Blue Spirit and Mok Jeong-woon reside. Blue Spirit turns her head, her golden blonde hair flowing as she senses the incoming danger. Blue Spirit stands poised, her red eyes narrowing as she prepares to confront the surge of dark, encroaching energy. Blue Spirit recoils as a swarm of spectral hands erupts from the shadows, clawing at her elegant red silk robes. She gasps, "What is this?" The dark, oppressive energy converges into a singular point, aiming for Mok Jeong-woon, who is concentrating on circulating his Kai, completely unaware of the imminent danger. The chamber pulses with dark energy as spectral hands claw at Mok Jeong-woon, who remains deeply focused on his Kai cultivation, oblivious to the chaos around him. The demonic monk growls, his eyes burning red like hellfire, as countless skeletal arms erupt from the void, savagely clawing at his massive form. Mok Jeong-woon remains seated, meditating amidst the chaos. A terrifying surge of energy explodes, tearing through the air and sending the demonic monk flying backward. He plummets through the air, while Blue Spirit maintains her dignified composure despite the powerful impact. The malevolent power continues to spread, carving deep fissures into the ground. The demonic monk is forced back, his colossal body violently shaking amidst the swirling dust. Blue Spirit stares intently at the demonic monk, her red eyes wide with astonishment. She murmurs to herself, "Reverse murder." Lady Siak observes the scene with a cold, calculating gaze, a sinister thought forming. She thinks reverse murder. Sowa stands silently behind her. Lady Siak thinks she calls this reverse murder, so every time she stabs that thing, the third son will be the one to suffer the pain. New Moon, cloaked in dark robes, continues her ritual, channeling crackling green energy into the air. The demonic monk screams in agony as the green energy courses through his body, inflicting immense pain. Lady Siak licks her lips, her eyes gleaming with sadistic pleasure. She thinks just imagining it. New Moon, her face obscured by a wide hat, intensifies the ritual, her power surging with malevolent intent. She thinks it makes me overjoyed. Lady Siak's eyes gleam with a manic intensity, her desire for torment palpable. She thinks more. The demonic monk screams, his skeletal arms flailing in desperation. New Moon drives her ritual staff downward, channeling a potent surge of green energy. Lady Siak smirks, her eyes gleaming with delight as she witnesses the torment. She shouts, "Make him suffer more?" Blue Spirit exhales a wisp of smoke from her pipe, her gaze sweeping across the scene with disdain. She says, "HMPH, inferior mortals." She sweeps her hand, sending streaks of blood splattering around her, directly nullifying the opponent's technique. Blue Spirit suddenly stops, her red eyes wide with astonishment. She says, "What?" The Blue Spirit looks down, blood staining her attire, her face contorted with fury. She says, "How dare they touch my prey?" She falls, her golden blonde hair scattered amidst a pool of blood, yet her eyes remain resolute. Blue Spirit commands, "Get lost." Blue Spirit's form is engulfed in a sea of blood as countless grotesque arms reach out to ensnare her. New Moon, shrouded in her dark cloak, focuses intensely, her single glowing red eye piercing through the shadows. A horrifying explosion tears through the space, sending attendants flying and streaking fresh blood everywhere. New Moon recoils, clutching her chest. Lady Siak and Sowa rush forward, concern etched on their faces as New Moon collapses to the ground. Sowa asks New Moon, "Are you all right?" New Moon coughs Yuig. New Moon coughs up blood, her eyes wide with disbelief. She says, "Ah, impossible." Then she murmurs to herself, "Reverse murder." Reverse murder was repelled. New Moon breathes heavily, her red eye wide with panic and astonishment. She thinks that isn't a yellow spirit. New Moon stands up and turns to Lady Siak, her voice strained but firm. She says, "Madam, I believe," she adds, "I'm going to need more payment for this." Lady Siak, holding her fan, stares at New Moon, her composure slightly faltering at the demand. She asks, "What do you mean?" She asks, "You need more payment?" New Moon coughs. "That's what I mean." She adds, "I'll need at least 1,000 silver nyang." Sowa looks aghast at New Moon's exorbitant demand for additional compensation. Sowa asks, 1,000. Are you serious? She continues, "You already took 500 and that's enough to get you a ton of rice. You want 1,000 more?" New Moon replies, "This is not what I was expecting." She adds, "I'll need to take that much since I'll have to risk my life for this." Lady Siak clutches her fan, her brow furrowed with intense concern. She asks, "Are you telling me it's that dangerous?" New Moon, still cloaked, stands firm, explaining the spirit's formidable power. She says it's an evil spirit of a very high rank. She adds, even just a yellow spirit can threaten a person's life. She continues, "This is much higher than that." New Moon, seen from behind, emphasizes the gravity of the situation. She says, "Higher than a yellow spirit is a disaster." New Moon continues her explanation, highlighting the rarity of her S-letter 1EDDQ. She says most shamans cannot handle anything above a yellow spirit. She adds, "Unless they're as skilled as I am." Lady Siak listens intently. Lady Siak decides to concede to the demand, her expression resolute. She says, "All right, I'll give you 1,000 more." Sowa looks on in disbelief. Sowa shouts, "Madam." Lady Siak's eyes narrow with a cold, demanding glint. She says, but she adds, "You better have a clear plan to get rid of Mok Jeong-woon." New Moon subtly pulls back her cloak, revealing a glimpse of her face. She says, "Shamans have ranks," she adds, "like spirits do." New Moon fully reveals her attire, a dark outfit with orange accents, confidently explaining her standing. She says from highest to lowest, they are divine, sun, moon, talent, darkness, and porter. She adds, "I'm 2 levels above Mayo Shin, who was porter rank and went through 5 years of basic training." Her single glowing eye beneath the wide hat asserts her powerful position as she declares, "Talent rank." Lady Siak's eyes widen slightly in surprise, revealing her shock and disbelief. She thinks, "Huh? I thought she was much older than that." She thinks, "Was I lied to?" New Moon strides forward with dark energy swirling around her, emphasizing her unique capabilities and high rank. She says, "On top of that, I'm one of the only 3 shamans of the Phoenix Pavilion," she adds, "that handles familiar spirits." New Moon walks forward with a powerful stride, leaving a swirling trail of dark energy behind. New Moon confidently strides towards the exit, her glowing eye fixed forward. She says, "I guarantee." She adds, "The 3rd son won't survive this." New Moon's lips curl into a confident, chilling smile as the night sky and crescent moon are shown. She says, "Never." The sprawling manor rests silently under the cloak of night, its ornate architecture illuminated by distant lights. Blue Spirit stands beside Mok Jeong-woon, whose eyes remain closed, while the demonic monk sits nearby and Go Chan lies on the floor. Blue Spirit takes a drag from her pipe, her expression one of annoyance. She says, "Annoying little things. How dare they try to interfere?" She thinks, HMPH? She thinks if he had been killed during his Kai circulation, that would have been a death not by his own hand. She thinks it would have harmed me too. She thinks he was going to die soon anyway. Blue Spirit observes Mok Jeong-woon with a sudden, questioning gaze as dark energy swirls around him. Blue Spirit recoils, her eyes wide with horror and disbelief. "Death Kai and Yin Kai?" She gasps, "No way." Blue Spirit stares at Mok Jeong-woon, unable to comprehend the sight before her. She asks, "How can a living person be collecting Death Kai?" Blue Spirit scrutinizes Mok Jeong-woon, recognizing the profound abnormality within him. She thinks, "He's definitely not normal." Blue Spirit recalls Mok Jeong-woon's rapid development from martial arts novice to Kai master. She thinks he understood the ritual of attachment very quickly. She thinks and learned to circulate Kai at once as someone who knew nothing about martial arts. She thinks, and now he's collecting Death Kai while he is still alive. Blue Spirit reluctantly acknowledges Mok Jeong-woon's extraordinary nature. She thinks, "I hate to admit it," she thinks, "but he's starting to interest me." Blue Spirit observes Mok Jeong-woon intently, a new spark of interest igniting within her. Mok Jeong-woon's hand glows with dark energy, captivating Blue Spirit's attention. Mok Jeong-woon's hand pulses with controlled dark energy, confirming his radical new theory. He thinks, I knew it. Mok Jeong-woon smiles confidently, his eyes gleaming with newfound understanding. He says, the answer was to circulate my Kai in the opposite direction. He adds, it doesn't dissipate like before now. He thinks, it's a shame I wasn't able to make an energy core because I didn't have enough Kai yet though. Blue Spirit looks at Mok Jeong-woon, her expression a mix of awe and suspicion. Mortal, are you sure you're alive? Mok Jeong-woon replies, sorry. Mok Jeong-woon looks at Blue Spirit, who continues to question his strange abilities. What kind of question is that? She asks. How can a living human pull in Death Kai? Mok Jeong-woon questions the spirit, his gaze fixed on Blue Spirit. He asks, am I not supposed to? Blue Spirit replies, it's not a matter of whether you're supposed to or not. Never mind, she adds. But Blue Spirit asks, what's with the room? The room lies in disarray, its furniture overturned and scattered across the floor. Mok Jeong-woon replies, took you long enough to notice. Blue Spirit observes the chaotic scene, her golden hair flowing. She says the demonic monk is in a mess too. Mok Jeong-woon asks, why is guard Go Chan passed out? Blue Spirit replies, he's always rolling on the ground anyway. She thinks, I'm sure he's just sleepy. She adds, I'm not sure. The demonic monk looms into view, his eyes glowing with fierce golden light. He whispers something to Mok Jeong-woon. Blue Spirit flinches, her face contorted with fury. Mok Jeong-woon says, I see, he adds, so Go Chan was. Blue Spirit screams, hey, you stupid monk. Blue Spirit stomps on the demonic monk, her face contorted with fury. She screams, I thought you were on my side. Mok Jeong-woon replies, you're very persistent. Blue Spirit turns away, her face filled with a sulky expression. She says, HMPH, lucky for you I saved your life from reverse murder. Mok Jeong-woon asks reverse murder. He thinks what's TH, a terrifying roar echoes through the room. Blue Spirit and Mok Jeong-woon both look in one direction, their eyes wide with vigilance. Mok Jeong-woon looks at Blue Spirit, his face filled with confusion. He asks, what was that? Blue Spirit replies, these annoying mortals are causing quite a ruckus. Mok Jeong-woon looks down at the floor where strange black tendrils are creeping. Blue Spirit and Mok Jeong-woon stare intently at the black tendrils. Blue Spirit asks, which insane bastard dared to use this thing as a familiar spirit? Mok Jeong-woon asks, what is this? Blue Spirit replies, a spirit of the mountains. Countless colossal, pitch-black insects with glowing red eyes swarm across the floor. Blue Spirit continues to explain, mountain-piercing shelled beast. Thousands of repulsive, massive insects with glowing red eyes crawl across the entire chamber floor, creating a horrifying spectacle.